Alright, so one day the whole world gets rocked by a massive earthquake, and suddenly dungeons start popping up, spitting out monsters immune to regular weapons, leaving humanity's only hope to a few lucky folks who got supernatural skills, who could level up by killing monsters and become ridiculously powerful. And these new heroes were called the Awakened, which brings us to our boy who is currently facing down a very angry-looking goblin. This is Kisaragi Tsukasa, a low-level hunter with the skill Imitate, and he charges in hoping to end this fight with a single clean strike, but his attack barely even scratches the monster's chest, because his skill to copy the goblin's power completely fails, a total dud, leaving Tsukasa completely stunned and defenseless, just in time for the goblin to lunge forward for the finishing blow, when out of nowhere a massive fireball intercepts the attack. And a red-haired guy casually strolls in, mocking Tsukasa for struggling with a basic mob. Turns out this is to do Kakeru, a level 15 Flame Master who is clearly not impressed. In fact, he is considered a rising star among the new generation of Awakened, since in this world the quality of your skill determines your entire social standing. So Kakeru just treats Tsukasa like a pack mule, ordering him to collect the loot. But as Tsukasa looks up, he gets an idea and says he has got it. Referring of course to Kakeru's ridiculously powerful Flame Master skill, so his Imitate skill lets him copy a monster's ability after making physical contact, but the success rate is abysmal and forces him to get dangerously close to his targets, a fundamentally flawed power that has gotten him nothing but grief. We even see a flashback of his old party members calling his skill complete trash, and while their leader pretends to be the nice guy, putting on a big "we are all comrades" show, he is actually just as condescending, whispering some seriously creepy nonsense in Tsukasa's ear. All this just reminds our boy why he is putting up with this humiliation in the first place. He became a hunter to save his little sister Mayu, who's been sick her whole life, and the only cure is a legendary elixir that can only be found inside dungeons. For him, quitting is simply not an option. Back in the present, Kakeru's two lackeys are getting nervous about their next move. But the Flame Master is not aiming for the boss, he's going straight for the monster's den. Turns out his grand strategy is to just skip the hard part and loot all the treasure, and he immediately starts barbecuing every goblin in sight to clear a path. Of course, this light workout is still enough for Kakeru to hit level 16, while Tsukasa just watches from the sidelines completely powerless. This kid's stuck in a loop. He cannot level up because he cannot kill anything alone. But in a party, Kakeru just incinerates all the mobs, hogging all the experience, making him realize that being their glorified luggage carrier is getting him absolutely nowhere. Right as the rest of the team finds the treasure room and completely forgets he exists. While Kakeru's lackeys are busy celebrating the gold, he is already looking for the next score, and his eyes land on a suspicious-looking wall at the back of the room, which he promptly demolishes with a massive fire blast because doors are for chumps. Turns out he was right, revealing a hidden door to a secret bonus room. These places are legendary for holding incredibly rare and powerful items, but they are also notoriously rigged with traps that can end you in a heartbeat. His goons get nervous, asking how they are supposed to deal with the inevitable death traps, and Kakeru just smiles, saying he has the perfect idea for that. His brilliant plan, of course, involves Tsukasa, who is just trying to chug a health potion, when Kakeru suddenly slugs him right across the face without a word, following it up with a swift kick that sends our boy sprawling to the ground. This Flame Master stands over him with a completely fake apology, then grabs Tsukasa by the throat and lifts him off his feet, revealing his grand strategy. Tsukasa is going to be their sacrificial lamb. Even his own party members are shocked, realizing he is about to use a classmate as a human minesweeper. But Kakeru just scoffs, calling it an efficient way to recycle useless baggage. With their orders clear, the two lackeys grab Tsukasa and drag him toward the bonus room, throwing him into the darkness with a final, mocking "thanks for your help." Kakeru gives one last condescending smirk, telling him they will meet again if he survives. And Tsukasa just glares back with pure hatred, offering a very simple two-word reply. Tsukasa lands hard in the darkness, completely at their mercy, when the floor beneath him erupts in a blinding flash of blue light, catching him totally off guard as he is suddenly teleported away. His eyes snap open, taking in his new, much more ominous surroundings, and it turns out the trap was actually a portal to some kind of massive, ancient coliseum. From the shadows of a massive archway, a pair of glowing eyes lock right onto him, giving him a seriously bad feeling because dungeons have very specific difficulty ratings, ranging from beginner all the way up to the legendary heroic tier. But this place is something else entirely, a Mythocrank dungeon home to a level 80 God-Eater Fenrir. This kid cannot believe his luck, realizing Kakeru's trap was a one-way ticket to an impossible boss room. Faced with certain death, our boy clenches his fist, refusing to just roll over and die, because he is not about to let some arrogant jerk be the reason his story ends here. His mind flashes back to the day he lost both of his parents, leaving his little sister Mayu as the only family he had left in the world. For her sake, he grabs his sword, absolutely determined to survive this no matter what. With a desperate roar, he leaps straight at the colossal beast, aiming for a miracle. But the wolf looks about as threatened as a mountain does by a housefly. It unleashes a devastating energy blast that just completely swallows his attack whole, sending Tsukasa flying backwards into a wall with bone-shattering force. And just to rub it in, his Imitate skill fails yet again, leaving him utterly broken and helpless. He is completely cornered, staring down a mythocrank beast that could kill him with a sneeze. But even on the absolute brink of death, our boy refuses to just lie down and accept it. This memory of his sister Mayu is the only thing keeping him on his feet, and that thought fuels a last, desperate surge of defiance. When suddenly a massive barrage of ice shards comes screaming out of nowhere, completely pinning the God-Eater Fenrir to the ground before it can even react. A calm, almost bored voice echoes through the Colosseum, telling the beast to behave. And a woman in ridiculously impractical heels steps out from the shadows. She casually scolds her pet wolf for being too rough with the new arrival, calling Tsukasa an important guest with a smirk that suggests something else entirely. With a grand gesture, she welcomes him to her castle as if this is all perfectly normal. Tsukasa, still bleeding and completely bewildered, can only manage to ask who she is, because getting saved by a mysterious elf queen was not exactly on his to-do list. She just finds his confusion amusing, noting he is tougher than he looks, but also points out that in his current state, he is basically useless to her. Before he can even process that backhanded compliment, she grabs him by the chin and gives him a present in the form of a very unexpected, very magical kiss. A massive surge of power explodes from the point of contact, flooding directly into Tsukasa as she tells him to be grateful for the gift. Because his trash tier skill just evolved and his level is about to skyrocket, his system window goes nuts. He has jumped 21 levels in an instant and his skill just evolved into copycat. Tsukasa is left completely reeling, trying to figure out what the hell just happened to him, while the mysterious elf queen just smirks, clearly enjoying the chaos she has created. With her gift delivered, she casually announces that she is taking her leave, turning her back on him and starting to walk away without another word. But Tsukasa, bleeding and desperate, grabs her dress, begging for an explanation. She does not even look back, simply telling him to use his new power to defeat the Fenrir. And if he succeeds, he will finally be able to leave this mythocrank dungeon. Then she just dissolves into a cloud of dark energy, leaving him completely alone again. At that exact moment, the Fenrir breaks free from the ice and charges straight for him. Its massive claws glowing with enough power to tear him to absolute shreds. Tsukasa barely gets his sword up in time, managing to block the strike but getting thrown back. But that physical contact was all he needed, because his new copycat skill instantly activates. A surge of blue energy wraps around his body as the power begins to take hold, and a system message confirms he is now copying the God-Eater Fenrir's ability. Our boy cannot believe it, realizing he is actually supposed to fight this thing head-on, staring up at the colossal beast with the power difference still looking absolutely insane. For a second, he is just completely stunned by the whole situation, until the system confirms the impossible. He successfully copied the Fenrir's skill. He has just stolen heavenly authority, a power that boosts his physical stats to their absolute limit for 1 minute. For the first time, Tsukasa actually thinks he has a shot at winning this, but this god-tier power boost only lasts for a single minute, meaning he has to pick the perfect moment to go all in against the beast. This Fenrir does not give him time to think, unleashing a flurry of deadly energy claws, forcing Tsukasa to dodge and weave with speed he never thought possible. He feels impossibly light on his feet, realizing his new level is boosting his reaction time. And he is still just trying to process how he even copied the skill in the first place. His old imitate was a low-chance, one-and-done piece of garbage, while copycat is a guaranteed success with a very weird new condition. Right on cue, the Fenrir lets out a terrifying roar, hitting him with a wave of pure pressure. Tsukasa's body locks up as a system window confirms his mobility has been nerfed. And just as he is about to suffocate, another message pops up: he has copied the skill. Turns out Divine Wolf's Force is an intimidation debuff that paralyses weaker opponents, and Tsukasa finally gets it. Experiencing a skill means he has to get hit by it to copy it. That near-death experience was apparently just a test run for the Fenrir, which now unleashes its real ultimate move, a devastating attack called Vanargand. Our boy's eyes go wide, his own power flaring up in response, as a storm of shadowy claws tears through the arena straight towards him. This attack carves massive trenches into the solid stone floor, and Tsukasa knows there is absolutely no way he is walking away if that thing hits him. This Fenrir lets out a furious roar, clearly not a fan of being turned into a popsicle, unleashing a vicious storm of energy claws that Tsukasa can barely even parry, and he knows his stamina is draining way too fast to keep this up for long. His new copy condition is a total non-starter here, tanking that ultimate attack would be instant death. But then he remembers the god-tier skill he already has in his back pocket. As the Fenrir winds up for another devastating strike, our boy realizes it is now or never. Deciding this is the perfect moment to bet everything on one incredibly stupid, brilliant plan. He activates Heavenly Authority, and a massive wave of raw power surges through his body, just in time for the Fenrir's ultimate attack to slam into him with the force of a meteor. And the system confirms the absolute madman actually did it, copying Vanargand by taking it to the face. His eyes are now glowing with an intensity that borders on demonic, but the clock is ticking with only 60 seconds left on his temporary god mode. Without wasting a single moment, he unleashes the Fenrir's own ultimate move right back at it, and the two attacks collide in a cataclysmic explosion that shakes the entire Colosseum. For the first time ever, Tsukasa feels an overwhelming power coursing through his veins, a feeling so intense that even the mythocrank beast seems completely stunned by it. He slams his sword down with earth-shattering force, the timer now down to just 30 seconds. Realizing that tiny window is all he has to finish this impossible fight for good. With only 20 seconds left, he goes for an all-out head-on collision with the beast. Knowing he has to end this right here before his borrowed power completely vanishes, it is a battle of wills as Tsukasa roars, ready to beat the Fenrir with its own ultimate move, and the two Vanargand attacks collide in an absolutely cataclysmic explosion of power. But the raw force of the blast sends our boy skidding backwards across the stone floor, as he realizes the massive level difference means his attack will not even reach the beast. So with the timer rapidly ticking down, he plants his feet for a much dumber plan, deciding to just close the distance and hit the problem directly in the face. Unfortunately, his sword just bounces right off the Fenrir's hide, doing absolutely nothing, and with only 8 seconds left, the beast unleashes a furious counterattack. This clock drops to 7 as a wave of pure energy threatens to swallow him whole. But Tsukasa uses the momentum to launch himself high into the air, sword at the ready. He has 5 seconds left to pull off a miracle, poising for a final downward strike, when the Fenrir fires a last-ditch energy beam straight from its mouth, scoring a direct hit that makes the colossal wolf howl in what it thinks is victory. Turns out that was the plan all along, as Tsukasa lands perfectly on its head. With only 3 seconds to spare, he raises his sword to end this fight for good. And as the timer finally hits 0, the entire world seems to freeze in place. He plunges the blade deep into the beast's skull, ending the impossible battle. Just as a system window confirms his copycat skill has activated one last time. Right on cue, the mysterious elf queen reappears, applauding his wonderful performance, and with a simple snap of her fingers, the entire dungeon begins to dissolve around him. She declares the fight over and casually suggests a tea party because of course she does. Tsukasa, standing over the corpse of a god beast, just wants to know what her whole deal is. Her answer is peak rich person boredom. She apparently did all this just to kill some time. She explains that adventurers almost never make it this far into her little fortress, and on the off chance they do, Fenrir usually turns them into a light snack. Our boy is just trying to process this insane justification for nearly getting him killed. She then floats over and asks him to do her a little favor, as if he owes her one. Turns out this dungeon-dwelling queen wants to experience the outside world for herself, but the low mana concentration out there means she needs a human proxy to help her explore. And Tsukasa, probably concussed and definitely out of options, just immediately agrees. His quick acceptance actually catches her completely off guard for a second, though she quickly recovers with a smirk, admitting she expected more of a fight. He knows he cannot trust her, but also figures helping the person who gave him god-tier powers is a good career move. So he just asks the practical question, how exactly is she planning on doing this whole outside world thing? But instead of an answer, he just gets a very ominous, shadowy stare. Before she pulls him into a hug, pointing out that he has completely exhausted his stamina. As his vision starts to fade, he manages to ask for her name, and the mysterious elf queen finally introduces herself as Loki. She looks forward to their partnership as Tsukasa finally passes out from his injuries. He wakes up sometime later staring at an unfamiliar ceiling, which is never a good sign. He wakes up in a hospital bed to a strange girl casually greeting him, who seems genuinely offended that he has no idea who she is after all they have been through. Turns out it is Loki, now in a much more compact, travel-sized form, calling him a cold-hearted man. This gears finally turn in Tsukasa's head as he recognizes the dungeon queen, and she tells him to drop the formalities, hopping off her chair with a little bounce, before immediately climbing onto his bed, complaining that he has been a very bad partner. Now sitting right on top of him, she demands he make it up to her for the trouble. While Tsukasa just wants to know what the hell happened after he blacked out, Loki explains she teleported his unconscious body out of her fortress and into a beginner dungeon. When he asks how he got to the hospital, she has no idea what a hospital even is. Her brilliant rescue plan was to just dump him at a random dungeon entrance, hoping some other adventurer would stumble upon him and do all the actual work. Tsukasa then asks the obvious question, if she can teleport, why did she need him to get outside? She reveals her true form, explaining that as a god, she needs a ton of mana to exist. This low mana concentration outside her domain forces her into this childlike body, and Tsukasa points out a lone kid would just get picked up by the cops anyway. For this stunning display of logic, she calls him insolent and pinches his cheek. He then asks why she bothered helping him at all, and she admits she wants his cooperation. She's about to say he will be her something, but cuts herself off with a very ominous smile, then just dissolves into shadows, leaving him alone in the hospital room to process all that. She gives a cutesy farewell, promising not to intrude on his family time for now. Her shadowy form then dissipates completely, leaving Tsukasa staring at an empty chair. He is still trying to process the absolute insanity of the last few hours, when a familiar voice from the doorway snaps him out of it. It is his sister Mayu, and she looks like she has seen a ghost. Without a word, she rushes to his bedside and throws her arms around him, revealing he has been in a coma for a whole week, with doctors fearing the worst. Tsukasa, completely oblivious, just pats her head and apologizes for making her worry. She is just so relieved he is awake, clinging to his shirt for dear life. He reassures her that he is not going anywhere, they are all each other has after all. Mayu finally manages a tearful smile, just happy to have him back. After a bit, she tells him to get some rest and that she has to go, but not before giving him a cheerful wink, insisting she has been feeling great lately. Once she is gone, our boy lets out a sigh, thinking she is as energetic as ever. Of course, his peace is immediately shattered by Loki reappearing, asking if that was his sister. Tsukasa confirms it was Mayu, the only family he has left in the world. A quick flashback reveals the truth: Mayu has been suffering from a serious illness. She has apparently been sickly ever since she was born, her condition never improving. This doctors had already given up on her, saying there was no cure to be found. And that is why he has been diving into dungeons, to find a miracle elixir that can save her life. Loki then drops a bombshell telling him that no medicine can cure his sister's illness, and Tsukasa is completely floored, demanding to know what she is talking about. Turns out the source of Mayu's condition is something called the Dungeon's Curse, which to be more precise is a curse that actually stems from a skill. She speculates it has to be the work of another mythocrank being just like her. So our boy quickly connects the dots: if a god cast it, killing that god will break it. With a thoughtful look, she confirms his logic is 100% correct. He gets dead serious, looking her right in the eyes to make his plea, vowing to defeat the god who cursed Mayu and asking for her divine assistance. After a moment of consideration, she decides to accept his very desperate offer. She will help him out, admitting she is also pretty curious about who is behind all this. And he gives her a heartfelt thank you, sealing their new, very strange alliance. Loki immediately lays out the plan. They are going to grind dungeons every day for training, but Tsukasa tries to explain he still has to go to school, a concept she has never heard of. He clarifies that it is a specialized academy for students who are awakened adventurers. She seems to just brush that little detail aside, ready to make their partnership official. And with a fist bump, they officially become a team, ready to hunt down a god. 3 days later, they are at the dungeon management organization but hit an immediate roadblock. This receptionist shuts him down, saying he cannot enter a dungeon as a solo party, because it is a safety rule that solo players can only fight monsters weaker than themselves. She explains the rule is to keep players from getting flattened by monsters their own level. And anything higher is basically a guaranteed trip to the morgue. Problem is, Tsukasa's officially level 4, but the beginner dungeon starts at level 5, and she flashes his id card to prove her point, saying there are no exceptions. Loki, ever the diplomat, offers to solve this bureaucratic issue with extreme violence, but he is trying to keep his massive level up a secret, which Loki finds hilarious. Just as he is about to give up, she gets a very mischievous look on her face, telling him to try using wordplay, a skill he copied from her back in the dungeon. He knows activating skills in the main office is a huge no-no, but with Loki egging him on, he decides to risk it anyway. He politely asks one more time to enter solo, and the wordplay skill kicks in, which causes the receptionist's brain to short-circuit as she happily agrees to his request. Tsukasa is shocked it actually worked, but Loki assures him the skill is completely undetectable. Because it is literally the power of a god. Our boy is just left speechless, realizing he really underestimated his new partner. She of course takes his surprise as a personal insult. With the paperwork sorted by a little mind control, they finally head towards the dungeon entrance. This massive gate connects to every dungeon in the world, a one-stop shop for adventure. So he scans his card and the system gives him the green light. As the portal swirls open, Tsukasa is ready to do whatever it takes to get stronger for Mayu, with his sister's life hanging in the balance. Tsukasa swears he is willing to kill a god to break her curse. They step into the Goblin's Den, the most basic of starter dungeons, and Loki immediately wants to know the plan. He just wants to test his new limits. Right on cue, their first opponent makes a very dramatic entrance, which turns out to be a completely standard level 5 goblin. Tsukasa draws his sword, ready for his first real test since leveling up. Though his level 25 status makes this a pretty one-sided fight, he blitzes forward without a moment of hesitation and cuts the goblin down in a single, effortless swing. Our boy lets out a sigh of relief, feeling pretty good about himself for a second, but Loki is completely unimpressed, pointing out it was hardly a challenge. He asks her to cut him some slack. It is the first goblin he has ever beaten alone. She just reminds him he is level 25, so victory was basically guaranteed. He knows the only reason he is this strong is because Loki juiced him up with mana, letting him finally overcome the same monsters that used to wipe the floor with him, and now he can take them down without even breaking a sweat. He gives Loki a genuine thank you, which she accepts with maximum smugness. With the warm-up over, she gets a glint in her eye and asks what is next. And Tsukasa declares they are just getting started, ready to push deeper. With his eyes glowing, Tsukasa declares their one goal is to reach the boss room, so they venture deeper into the gloomy corridors of the Goblin's Den. Loki, however, is already yawning, completely underwhelmed by the whole experience, and floats down the stairs complaining that this place is as boring as it gets. Turns out she was expecting a glorious, blood-pumping battle to get her excited. But since none of these monsters are a real challenge, she calls it a serious issue. Just as she is about to lose it from boredom, her eyes suddenly light up, because it seems the dungeon's main force has finally decided to make an appearance. A whole horde of goblins blocks their path, making Tsukasa wonder if the boss is nearby, and he immediately blitzes forward, cutting down the first monster in his way. His philosophy is simple: the one who makes the first move takes the win. He moves like a blur through their ranks, realizing he can easily handle this mob, and all his previous worries about fighting a large group just melt away. For his current level, this entire encounter is just a walk in the park. This remaining goblins let out a furious roar and charge him all at once, completely swarming him from every angle in a desperate final assault. Tsukasa just looks mildly annoyed, calling the whole thing a hassle. Then channels a massive amount of dark energy into his sword, which catches Loki by surprise, and she immediately screams for him to stop whatever he is planning. But it is too late as he unleashes a devastating attack called Vanargand. This resulting blast of dark energy absolutely obliterates the entire goblin horde, carving a massive, smoking trench straight through the dungeon floor. He is feeling pretty good about his new power until his body starts overloading. And he immediately collapses, racked with a sudden, intense pain. He calls out to Loki, who basically gives him a big fat "I told you so." Turns out that is the price a human pays for using divine power, but Tsukasa swears it was fine before. She reminds him that last time he was using heavenly authority to channel the skill safely. With that little lesson out of the way, she decides it is time to lay down some new rules, officially forbidding him from using heavenly authority or any other Fenrir skills for now. A system notification pops up, confirming his best skills are now sealed, much to his shock. She calls it a handicap, explaining that a trump card is useless if you blow it on small fry. Our boy can only groan on the floor, already hating his partnership with a trickster god. After clearing out the rest of the trash mobs, they finally reach the boss room's ridiculously fancy doors. This is it, the Goblin King, whose defeat is the ultimate test for any new adventurer. With his trump card sealed, Tsukasa steels himself and gets ready to open the gate. Inside, the Goblin King sits on his throne, looking way too confident for a level 15 monster. Tsukasa draws his sword, realizing he is supposed to be intimidated but feels absolutely nothing. This boss is only level 15, which is a complete joke to a level 25 player. This Goblin King finally gets up, trying to look imposing as he towers over our boy. But it turns out he brought a whole welcoming committee of his little goblin buddies. Tsukasa finds himself staring down not just a boss, but an entire army of his minions. He is weirdly calm though, figuring after facing a literal god, this is no big deal. But just as he thinks that, a sinister red aura fills the entire room, and the whole goblin squad, king included, enters a full-on berserk state. He immediately whips around to Loki, demanding to know what she just pulled. She just gives him a wicked little smile, calling it a special test just for him. Our boy is justifiably starting to sweat, realizing his easy win just vanished. He manages a strained grin, clearly not amused by this turn of events. With a sigh, he calls her a Spartan god for throwing him into this mess. As the newly buffed Goblin King roars, its status now officially berserk. Loki, enjoying this way too much, just tells him to do his best, and all he can do is mutter about her brutal training methods under his breath. With a collective shriek, the supercharged goblin horde rushes him all at once. Tsukasa grits his teeth and dashes forward to meet the onslaught head-on. Meanwhile, Loki watches stone-faced, thinking if he needs god-tier skills for this, he is useless. He dives right into the center of the mob, a blue aura flaring around him. This first berserk goblin swings its club, but he parries it with a glowing blade, its rage-filled eyes glaring at him from point-blank range. Tsukasa counters with a clean, powerful slash that cuts right through the monster, then unleashes a wave of energy that sends the surrounding goblins flying back. He unleashes a wide, sweeping arc with his sword, cutting into the berserk horde, and while several goblins fall, it is not the clean sweep he is used to. Tsukasa realizes Loki's buff means he cannot one-shot them anymore, which is a huge problem, and just then the Goblin King lets out a furious roar, crackling with dark energy, because it turns out the boss has a unique skill to summon endless reinforcements. This big guy leads the charge, ready to turn this into a war of pure attrition. Our boy quickly puts two and two together, realizing he is fighting an infinite army. As long as the king is standing, the goblin clown car is just going to keep unloading. To make matters worse, since the king is berserk, every single summon gets the same nasty buff. He knows he is stuck in a losing battle unless he takes out the source immediately. So the new plan is to seal the king's skills and shut down the goblin factory for good. He points right at the boss and uses wordplay, commanding it not to use any skills. This skill activates instantly, wrapping the Goblin King in glowing blue chains. Its hands are bound tight, completely locking it out of its summoning ability. All the boss can do is roar in frustration, now just a big angry purple brute. But being skillless does not stop it from charging forward with pure Ungabunga rage, and it swings its club with enough force to shatter stone, which Tsukasa barely blocks, gritting his teeth as the raw power of the blow rattles him to his core. This impact sends a shockwave through the room, his sword the only thing holding it back. He is completely stunned, realizing this thing is a monster even without its cheap tricks. Loki explains his plan was perfect, except for the part where she made the boss immune. She gives him a smug little grin, finding his predicament absolutely hilarious. Tsukasa's face drops as he realizes his skill-sealing ability completely failed. And Loki confirms the berserk status basically gave the king a big nope button. As if on cue, the Goblin King roars, proving the infinite summon factory is still open for business. She reminds him his ultimate goal is to kill a god, so this is just a warm-up. If he cannot figure out how to overcome a rigged fight, he is already lost. That thought brings him back to his sister, the whole reason he is even here. He knows that if he cannot even handle this buffed-up starter boss, saving her is a pipe dream. Seeing him stand back up, Loki asks if he is finally ready to get serious. Tsukasa takes a deep breath, his resolve hardening once again, and declares with glowing eyes that of course he can still fight. His new strategy is simple, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. He unleashes a flurry of blue energy slashes, cutting down any goblin in his path. Our boy then launches himself through the air, making a beeline straight for the king. This boss glares back, its entire body crackling with purple berserker rage. Tsukasa grits his teeth, his face a mask of pure bloody determination. This goblin king's eye twitches, absolutely infuriated by this kid's persistence. It lets out a furious shriek, deciding it has had enough of this little game, and unleashes a massive shockwave of dark energy to end the fight for good. Loki just smirks, realizing he is finally about to use his actual trump card, because he is not just fighting back, he is stealing the boss's summon underling skill. Surrounded by a vortex of blue energy, he declares he is making that power his own, and the system confirms it, his copycat skill snagging the ability without a hitch. With a grin, Tsukasa activates his newly acquired power to summon his own backup. A massive magic circle erupts from the ground, blasting the entire goblin army back. And he is pretty curious to see what kind of monster he is about to get. As a blinding flash of light fills the room while his new minion materializes, out of the light steps a tiny, adorable blue wolf pup. Tsukasa is just staring in absolute disbelief at his brand new pint-sized companion, which looks less like a monster and more like something you'd win at a carnival. This little guy just happily nuzzles against his leg like a lost puppy. While Loki is absolutely losing it, laughing her head off in the background, our boy can only sweat drop, completely baffled by this whole situation. But then he recognizes it, this is a Minifenrir just like the god beast he fought before. This goblin horde does not care though, and they let out a roar before charging again. So his little wolf pup barks and bravely dashes forward to meet the onslaught, suddenly erupting into a colossal shadow wolf that dwarfs the entire goblin army. This shadowy beast effortlessly tears through the berserk monsters, protecting its new master. Tsukasa can only laugh, completely floored that his cute summon is an absolute menace. With the trash cleared, his shadow beast shrinks back down to its adorable puppy form, and Tsukasa kneels down, finally getting a proper introduction to his new partner, asking if the little guy will fight with him and getting an enthusiastic bark in return. So with the Goblin King still raging, Tsukasa tells his new buddy to handle crowd control, and the two of them split off, a perfect pincer movement in the making. His tiny wolf companion leaps right into the fray, ready to take on the remaining horde, leaving Tsukasa to finally get the one-on-one showdown he's been waiting for. This Goblin King does not waste any time, bringing its massive club down with berserker strength, aiming to turn our boy into a permanent floor decoration. But Tsukasa manages to get his sword up just in time, barely holding against the raw power. He grits his teeth, pouring every ounce of his own strength into pushing back, and unleashes a burst of energy that sends the boss stumbling backward. In that brief opening, he analyzes the king's every move, looking for a weakness, then swiftly dodges another wild swing, slipping right past its guard. This boss smashes the ground in frustration, completely missing its target. Its eyes glowing with pure, unadulterated rage at being outmaneuvered. Meanwhile, his little Fenrir has already piled up the goblin minions like firewood. Tsukasa finally sees his chance, standing over the momentarily stunned boss, and channels all his power into his blade for one final decisive strike, driving his sword straight through the Goblin King's skull without a moment's hesitation. With the boss pinned, Tsukasa gives the signal for his little Fenrir to finish the job. And the shadow beast immediately chomps down on the king with overwhelming force. This gives Tsukasa the perfect opening to leap high into the air for the final blow, bringing his sword down and splitting the Goblin King's skull right down the middle. This boss explodes in a flash of light, leaving our boy standing alone in the aftermath. Loki strolls over, telling him not to get a big head over beating a beginner-rank boss. He can only sweat drop, knowing she's got a point about his epic victory, but he still clutches the boss core, vowing to keep getting stronger no matter what. It is all for his sister Mayu, and he silently promises she will not have to wait much longer. Loki, ever the pragmatist, immediately asks what he is going to name his new fluffy sidekick. After a moment of thought, Tsukasa decides on a name for the little guy, Lufin. This newly named Lufin seems absolutely thrilled with his new identity, practically sparkling. Though Tsukasa admits it is not exactly creative, just a simple play on the name Fenrir. With the battle won, he decides to cash in the magic stones and buy a treat for Mayu. Of course, Loki immediately demands her cut of the sweets, with Lufin barking in support. Later, at the exchange counter, the receptionist is floored to hear he cleared a dungeon solo. But he just casually drops the magic stones as proof, asking to trade them in for cash. She agrees to process the exchange, though she is clearly trying to wrap her head around it, and Tsukasa can practically read the question on her face, how a level 4 even got in alone. Deciding it is not his problem, he just stretches and gets ready to head home. Just as he is about to leave, Tsukasa's attention is caught by some commotion nearby, and he spots a group of delinquents cornering a girl in a school uniform. Their leader is trying to pressure her into joining his party, even calling her by name. But the girl Hashigane does not even flinch at their posturing, and Tsukasa instantly recognizes her as the Academy's #1 awakened student. Turns out she is Hashigane Rin, a big shot prodigy in his own school. She shuts the guy down cold, telling him she has zero interest in teaming up, which Tsukasa finds pretty amusing given how harsh the rejection was. But then Hashigane suddenly turns her attention away from the rejected goons, leaving them completely baffled as she looks right past them, and calls out directly to Tsukasa much to his surprise. She walks right over, asking him to wait a moment, and while she claims it is a coincidence, he knows better. She admits she was actually looking for him all along, which just confuses him more. Explaining she got a tip from a receptionist about a level 4 kid soloing a dungeon, Hashigane gives him a pointed look, asking if he has any idea who she is talking about, and this is the top student at his academy, after all, a total celebrity. She is already a media darling and a recruit for a top guild way out of his league. With a smirk, she puts him on the spot about the mysterious level 4 prodigy. And Tsukasa realizes the receptionist must have blabbed once his wordplay skill wore off. Loki smugly points out his cover was blown the second his little mind control skill wore off. Hashigane cuts to the chase, demanding to see his D-card as proof of his solo run. She gets a sly little grin, leaning in with a very pointed "unless." He's got something on there he is trying to hide from the Academy's #1 student, and Tsukasa stumbles back, completely thrown off by her sudden forwardness. Meanwhile, Loki internally roasts him for being so unbelievably easy to fluster. And he catches himself talking to thin air, trying to play off the weird outburst. He awkwardly agrees to show her the card since that is all she wants, right, as he reaches into his pocket to finally end the interrogation. A new voice cuts in, greeting him like an old, unwelcome friend, and it is none other than Tadu, the delinquent leader he saw just a minute ago. Tsukasa's eyes go wide, clearly recognizing this guy from a past he'd rather forget. Tadu smirks, glad to see that Tsukasa apparently survived whatever they went through together, and his lackeys even call our boy a former member of their party. Tsukasa can only grit his teeth, not exactly thrilled about this little reunion, but Tadu completely ignores him, turning his attention back to Hashigane for another pitch, promising her they will be the strongest party in the country if she just joins up. Hashigane, in a legendary power move, completely blanks the guy and just asks Tsukasa for his card again. Tadu is left absolutely speechless, his big recruitment speech crashing and burning midair. So Tsukasa just sighs and hands over his D-card, hoping this will make one of them go away. Hashigane studies the card, her expression unreadable for a moment, and it confirms everything, level 15, with a skill called Imitate and a solo dungeon clear. She hands it back with a smirk, admitting she had a hunch it was him all along. Tadu's crew is just gaping in the background as she casually notes his massive level jump. Tsukasa breathes a sigh of relief, glad he updated his fake D card in time, though Loki wants all the credit. Hashigane seems genuinely impressed, admitting she never pegged him for having so much hidden talent. Our boy just plays it cool, awkwardly giving all the credit to his invisible goddess. But Tadu is not buying a single word of it, yelling that there is no way a failure like Tsukasa did it alone. He gets right in Tsukasa's face, accusing him of cheating and demanding he fess up. Hashigane cuts him off with a look of pure disgust, asking if he is actually serious. She then schools the guy, pointing out that forging a D-card is impossible. Oh, the irony. Completely ignoring the fuming delinquent, she turns back to Tsukasa with a proposition. And straight up asks him to form a party with her, the Academy's #1 student. This bombshell leaves both Tsukasa and Tadu completely floored for very different reasons. Tadu absolutely loses it, demanding to know why she'd pick a nobody over him. He makes one last desperate pitch, promising they could clear high-rank dungeons together. Hashigane just gives him a dead-eyed stare, asking if he is finally done talking. She lays it out cold. Tsukasa's achievement is a fact, unlike Tadu's constant slacking. Then she steps right up next to Tsukasa, getting ready to deliver the final blow, and with a sickeningly sweet smile tells Tadu she has never liked guys like him anyway. But Hashigane is not done, adding one last little comment that leaves Tadu's crew sputtering. And she points right at him, letting him know she is well aware of all his dirty little secrets. This triggers a flashback to the day Tadu's party used Tsukasa as live bait in a dungeon, leaving him for dead on the cold stone floor as they casually walked away to save themselves. Back in the present, a furious Tadu grabs Tsukasa, accusing him of ratting him out. Tsukasa just calmly weighs his options, which only seems to make the guy even madder. So Tadu completely loses it and throws a wild punch right at our boy's head. Except the new and improved Tsukasa dodges it with almost zero effort, his eyes glowing blue. This delinquent is left stumbling, completely baffled that his attack missed so cleanly. Convinced he is being mocked, Tadu summons a fireball, ready to use a skill illegally. Tsukasa tries to tell him to calm down, but the guy is way past listening to reason. He screams and prepares to launch the attack right there in the middle of the lobby, only for Hashigane to intercept at the last second, effortlessly deflecting the blast. Tsukasa is completely caught off guard by her sudden intervention, and Tadu is just as stunned, his big illegal move shut down before it even started. Hashigane gives him an ice-cold stare, reminding him it is forbidden to use skills outside dungeons. He immediately tries to shift the blame, pointing at Tsukasa and calling him a liar. She just facepalms, genuinely amazed he has the nerve to say that with a straight face. Deciding this whole scene is a waste of her time, she grabs Tsukasa's hand to leave, and he is completely flustered as she drags him away, leaving the delinquents fuming in their dust. Back in the lobby, Tadu is absolutely fuming, vowing to expose whatever secret Tsukasa is hiding. And his rage is fueled by a seriously creepy obsession, declaring that Hashigane belongs to him. Meanwhile, Hashigane has dragged Tsukasa into a beginner-ranked dungeon called the Kobold Settlement, which is absolutely crawling with armored monsters despite its low-level recommendation. Tsukasa is just trying to keep up, wondering what exactly she is trying to prove by bringing him here, and he has to ask if she is seriously planning on fighting this entire horde by herself. She just gives him a confident smirk, telling him to watch and learn from her example. Without another word, Hashigane leaps into the mob of kobolds with blinding speed, and in a flash of golden light she effortlessly carves through half a dozen of them. Tsukasa is left speechless, watching the monsters dissolve into dust after her single attack. Loki chimes in, confirming that Hashigane's glowing sword is a seriously high-grade piece of gear. After clearing the way, she turns to Tsukasa and tells him it is his turn to fight. Challenging him to show her what the Academy's supposed hidden talent is really made of. He accepts, charging forward with his own sword glowing with a faint blue aura. But his first strike is immediately blocked by the kobold's shield, shocking them both. This monster retaliates instantly, leaping into the air for a powerful downward slash, forcing Tsukasa to dodge backward, showing off his newly improved agility. Hashigane calls out from the side, reminding him that kobolds are smarter than your average goblin. She starts explaining that there are two ways to deal with a shield-bearing enemy: brute force, or a smarter approach right as Tsukasa leaps into the air to try the brute force method. So instead of trying to break the shield, Tsukasa uses a feint to slip right past the guard, which is exactly what Hashigane was about to suggest, the smarter, tactical approach. With his eyes glowing blue, he lands a clean strike, taking the kobold down instantly. Hashigane is actually impressed, thinking he might be worth inviting to her party for real. She even gives him a little round of applause, which our boy just awkwardly accepts. As a reward for doing so well, she gets right in his face and offers him the big one, clarifying with a wink that she means the dungeon's miniboss, the last trial. And that miniboss turns out to be a hulking level 15 kobold general. Of course, it is not alone, bringing its entire armored entourage to the fight. Hashigane decides they will start by taking out all the followers first, a classic strategy. They both charge in, carving through the smaller kobolds like they are nothing. But the general brings its massive cleaver down, forcing them to scatter. Tsukasa quickly realizes that picking off the minions one by one is a total waste of time. Hashigane notes his quick thinking and asks him what his brilliant plan is then. He figures they should wipe out the small fry in one fell swoop, then focus on the boss. So they immediately launch a coordinated attack, a whirlwind of blue and gold energy. In the middle of the chaos, Tsukasa asks if her guild is okay with her slumming it with him, and she casually reveals that it is fine because she is planning on quitting anyway. This bombshell completely catches him off guard, but she tells him to focus on the fight. She then effortlessly parries a heavy blow from the general, ready to finish this. Tsukasa zips right past the general's guard, lining up a perfect counterattack, and he lands a deep slash across the miniboss's stomach, drawing first blood. With the general staggered, he calls for Hashigane to follow up on his opening. But a fresh wave of kobolds suddenly drops from the ceiling, forcing her to switch targets. This two of them become a blur of motion, wiping out the entire reinforcement squad in a flash. And in seconds, the battlefield is clear again, leaving only the wounded general standing. Hashigane lands with a huff, suddenly annoyed that they were so close to finishing it. But it turns out she is still fuming about to do, her rage finally boiling over mid-dungeon. She is internally screaming about what a jackass he was for even suggesting they team up. Ranting that she'd rather go solo for life than ever party with a guy like that. Tsukasa can only watch, completely baffled as she is engulfed in an aura of pure rage. He asks if she is serious about quitting her guild and she just glares back, confirming it. She explains that the guild's benefits just are not worth the mountain of stress it causes her. Deciding she needs to vent, she eyes the remaining enemies as perfect, disposable stress balls. She announces she is using a wide-range skill, weaker on one target but great for crowds. And raising her hands to the sky, she begins chanting, calling on the power of the stars. Her eyes glowing as she commands a celestial storm to rain down on the battlefield. A massive meteor shower of golden light completely obliterates everything in its path. Tsukasa is just left speechless, getting a first-hand look at the top student's true power. After her little temper tantrum, she feels refreshed and suggests a break before the final boss. Hashigane starts a little heart-to-heart, asking Tsukasa if he has ever heard of Japan's legendary great hero. And it turns out that legendary adventurer is actually her grandfather, who took her family's name. She even shows off the incredible golden sword he gave her, a priceless family heirloom. Her grandpa's stories were all about grand adventures with his comrades, exploring a brand new world. And now she wants to experience that same kind of epic fairytale journey for herself. Tsukasa just listens, seeing a completely different side of her he never expected. This is the real reason she is quitting her guild. She is planning to build her own from the ground up. So she officially asks him to join her when that day finally comes, a serious offer this time. Our boy gets all flustered but immediately agrees because of course he does. With the bonding moment over, Hashigane declares it is time to get back to business and face the boss. They step into the final chamber only to find someone else is already waiting for them. And of course it is Tadu and his crew sarcastically welcoming them to the party. This guy has the nerve to say he has been waiting for Hashigane, completely ignoring Tsukasa's existence. Then he turns his attention to our boy, calling him a worthless piece of trash, real charming. Hashigane steps between them, dryly asking what he is even doing in a beginner dungeon. Tadu puts on a hero act, claiming he is just here to help his irreplaceable friends. Tsukasa is internally fuming, knowing exactly how much that word means to a guy who uses people as bait. Hashigane is not buying a single word of it either, her expression dripping with pure contempt. But Tadu keeps digging his own grave, bragging that his dad even bought them all new gear. She just cuts him off, offering him first crack at the boss since he is so eager to play the hero. She agrees to his terms based on the adventurer's code. First to the boss room gets the kill. Tadu gets all smug, promising to show Hashigane his true glory in a totally not creepy way. So Tsukasa and Hashigane decide to just hang back and enjoy the free show for a bit. Meanwhile, in a dark room somewhere, someone is watching this whole encounter play out on a TV screen. And of course, it is Loki, the system admin, who is apparently live streaming this whole mess. She gets genuinely angry, her eyes glowing red as she calls Tsukasa brat for mocking her pawns. Back in the dungeon, the final boss makes its grand entrance, a hulking level 20 Kobold King. This thing can summon its own squad of armored underlings, making it a serious threat. On top of that, it has a nasty skill called Thundering Blade that crackles with dark energy. Tadu's crew charges in with all the confidence of people who have never been used as live bait. Tsukasa has to admit, for a bunch of scumbags, their coordinated fire magic is undeniably powerful. Their opening volley seems to completely overwhelm the Kobold King, making it look like an easy win. Tadu immediately starts posturing, trying to impress Hashigane with the big flashy explosion. But then a sinister chant fills the air, talking about madness and world-ending destruction. And Tsukasa feels a sudden, terrifying shift in the room's entire atmosphere. This Kobold King is engulfed in a dark aura, leaving even Tadu's crew completely stunned. It suddenly goes berserk, its level jumping by 5 as it roars with newfound power. Tadu tries to put it down with another volley of fireballs, a solid plan until it instantly fails. This enraged king just powers right through the attack without even flinching, and unleashes its thundering blade, blasting Tadu across the room in a flash of red lightning. This enraged king brings its cleaver down, absolutely demolishing the spot where Tadu was standing, leaving Hashigane completely stunned by the sudden, insane spike in the boss's power. But Tsukasa knows exactly who is pulling the strings, immediately blaming the system admin Loki. And right on cue, Loki confirms this is punishment for them daring to get in her way. Tadu gets launched across the room like a ragdoll, his true glory on full pathetic display. This powered-up king looms over him, ready to finish the job as the bully begs for his life. With its glowing red eyes fixed on its target, the monster raises its blade for the final strike. But Hashigane dives in at the last second, blocking the massive cleaver with her own sword. She is barely holding on, shocked by the ridiculous amount of strength behind the blow. Loki taunts Tsukasa from the sidelines, calling him horrible for just standing there while Hashigane's in danger. This Kobold King just grins, pouring even more power into its attack to crush her guard. That is the final straw for Tsukasa, who finally leaps into the fray himself, and he intercepts the attack with a powerful downward slash, saving Hashigane from being flattened. He tells one of Tadu's party members to get everyone, including Hashigane, to a safe distance. Tsukasa declares he is taking this ridiculously overpowered boss down all by himself. Of course, Tadu immediately starts screaming that a piece of trash like him cannot possibly win. Our boy just ignores the peanut gallery, focusing entirely on the enemy in front of him. Hashigane looks on with concern but ultimately trusts him, agreeing to fall back for now. She tells him not to overdo it as Tadu's crew drags their pathetic leader away from the fight. Tsukasa just sighs, muttering that he wishes the god pulling the strings would stop with the cheap tricks. With his eyes glowing blue, he decides it is time to call in some serious backup, summoning his spirit wolf, Lufin, who appears in a flash of arcane energy. Tadu naturally is completely losing his mind over this sudden development, while Hashigane is just delighted by how absolutely adorable the giant magical wolf is. As the Kobold King roars, Tsukasa and his new partner get ready to charge in, giving Lufin a simple job: take care of the small fry while he handles the boss. This wolf gives an enthusiastic bark, totally on board with the new division of labor. Tsukasa immediately clashes with the king, their blades meeting in a shower of sparks. But the boss's raw power is insane, sending him flying back from the sheer impact. He twists in the air, using the momentum to set up a devastating counterattack, and lands a clean, glowing slash right across the monster's chest. It is a solid hit, but he instantly knows the cut was not nearly deep enough to finish it. This enraged king just roars, its dark aura flaring up even more intensely than before, and that is when a system window confirms he has copied the boss's thundering blade skill. Tsukasa immediately activates it, his own body crackling with the same red lightning, and with his new power-up, he tells Lufin it is time for a coordinated assault. This Kobold King brings its own thundering blade down in a massive, sweeping arc, but Tsukasa meets the attack head-on, matching the boss's power with its own skill. This monster's eyes burn with pure rage, not expecting this kind of resistance at all. So getting tired of the one-on-one, it summons yet another wave of armored minions. Tsukasa raises his sword to the sky, channeling the very same power the boss just used. And the system confirms his version of the skill also stuns any target it hits. So with his eyes glowing blue, he launches himself forward for the final attack. This Kobold King can only watch in disbelief, its eyes burning with helpless rage. as Tsukasa gets right in its face, declaring that this is the end of the line, and unleashes a massive point-blank blast of pure lightning energy. When the dust settles, our boy is holding the boss core, casually telling Hashigane it is over. She just stares back, completely dumbfounded and trying to process who he really is. This next morning, Mayu tries to convince him to ditch school for more dungeon crawling, but Tsukasa explains that attending the academy is literally a requirement for adventurers. He is also hoping to find information there that could lead to a cure for her curse. Mayu seems to agree that getting stronger is the top priority, but her tone is a little off. That is because Loki is listening in from the shadows, intrigued by the drama at the academy. Speaking through Mayu, she promises to sit back and enjoy the show Tsukasa is about to star in. Cut to Tenjetsu Academy, where our boy makes his way to his classroom. 2A, he walks in only to find a welcoming committee of total scumbags waiting for him. These guys are whispering about how they thought he was dead, still calling him a failure. Tsukasa immediately figures out that Tadu must have been spreading some nasty rumors. Just then, Hashigane walks right up to his desk, ignoring all the background noise, and with a bright smile, she wishes him good morning and thanks him for everything yesterday. Tsukasa plays it cool, telling her the dungeon run was actually invaluable practice for him. Not missing a beat, she immediately suggests they tackle an intermediate rank dungeon next. Turns out she's just trying to gauge his true power, remembering that insane lightning attack. Our boy immediately picks up on her suspicion, realizing he might have been a little too flashy. Meanwhile, the peanut gallery cannot believe the school's top student is talking to a failure. Hashigane just ignores them, asking if he is free to go dungeon diving right after school. But just as things are getting friendly, someone makes a very dramatic entrance. And of course, it is Tadu and his entire entourage blocking the classroom door. This guy is practically radiating pure rage, clearly looking to start something. He marches right up to Tsukasa, accusing him of having the nerve to even show his face. Hashigane instantly steps in, firing back that Tadu is the one who has no right to speak. This two of them get locked in a tense stare-down, ready to throw down right there in class. Tsukasa just wishes everyone would calm down, already tired of the inevitable drama. Tadu points right at him, demanding a fight to expose all of his supposed lies. Our boy is completely baffled by this, but a quick flashback reveals Loki is pulling the strings. This bully accuses him of clearing the dungeon solo, daring him not to run away this time. Tsukasa starts to stammer out a denial, clearly not wanting any part of this confrontation. But a familiar voice in his head tells him to accept the challenge without hesitation. He is internally screaming about how he just wants to lay low and avoid this exact situation. And back in her lair, Loki admits this is all for her own amusement, ordering him to fight. Loki's voice in his head clarifies that this is all punishment for daring to get in her way. Tsukasa reluctantly agrees with the god in his head. It is better to settle this now. So he stands up and accepts the fight, much to Hashigane's complete shock. He even tells Tadu to bring his friends, promising to take on all three of them at once. Tadu is practically vibrating with rage that the school's biggest failure is talking down to him. Loki chimes in again, suggesting they raise the stakes with a little wager. Tsukasa sets his terms. If he wins, Hashigane gets to leave the guild, no strings attached. He is not about to let some entitled bully stand in the way of her dream. Hashigane is completely floored, blushing at his sudden and very public defense of her. This just makes Tadu even angrier, who starts screaming about how he is going to kill him. This scene shifts to the academy training grounds where Tsukasa faces off against the trio. He lays down the simple rules: first one to fall or surrender loses the match. Tadu just scoffs, completely convinced that Tsukasa does not stand a chance. These two stare each other down across the arena, ready for the fight to finally begin. One of Tadu's lackeys immediately launches a massive fireball to start things off, but Tsukasa just watches the attack fly towards him without even flinching. At the same time, another goon leaps in from above, trying for a pincer attack. Tsukasa effortlessly dodges both, sending the airborne attacker flying with a clean energy slash. He instantly closes the distance on the second guy, who yells at him to quit dodging. Meanwhile, the third goon recovers and unleashes his own purple lightning attack from afar. Tsukasa just casually swats the lightning aside like it is an annoying fly, which gives the fire user lackey a chance to start charging up his own attack, pouring every last bit of his power into a single glowing fist, and unleashes a massive pillar of fire right where Tsukasa is standing. Hashigane screams his name, absolutely terrified he has been incinerated, while the goon smirks, convinced he has just sent another failure to the afterlife. But our boy strolls out of the flames completely untouched, asking who said he was dead. Turns out his copycat skill has been working overtime, snagging both Herculean strength and thunderbolt. Loki is literally yawning with boredom as Tsukasa internally complains he'd be toast without his level advantage. She gives him a little push through their mental link, ordering him not to lose. And with that, Tsukasa decides he is done playing around, charging straight at the trio. This brawler goon throws a superpowered punch, aiming to end the fight right there. But Tsukasa catches the blow with one hand, activating the very same Herculean strength skill. Tadu and the entire audience can only stare, their jaws on the floor at this impossible feat. As our boy uses that copid power to deliver a devastating gut punch of his own, this sheer force of the blow sends the lackey flying backwards across the arena, slamming him into the wall so hard he is instantly knocked out of the fight. Tadu can only watch in pure rage, calling Tsukasa a bastard under his breath. With his eyes glowing an intense blue, Tsukasa locks onto his real target, telling the remaining two not to get ahead of themselves because this is far from over. This fire user goon screams at his fallen comrade, unleashing a desperate Wideria flame attack, sending a whole meteor shower of fireballs raining down on Tsukasa's position. He just casually bats them all away with a few precise, glowing blue sword slashes, leaving the entire audience wondering how the school's supposed weakling is this strong. Hashigane, however, just smiles, knowing this is barely even a warm-up for him. Tsukasa taunts Tadu from across the arena, asking if he is ready to give up yet, which naturally sends the bully into a full-blown tantrum, screaming bloody murder. Our boy just calmly tells him to watch his language, which only makes things worse. Tadu keeps yelling, accusing him of getting cocky after taking out just one of his guys, but Tsukasa is done with the talk, telling the remaining two to just bring it on. This lightning lackey obliges, launching a point-blank go-to-hell energy blast. But the attack stops dead in its tracks, much to the goon's complete shock. Tsukasa has simply grabbed his hand, neutralizing the entire spell before it could fire, and with glowing eyes he coldly suggests the lackey can go to hell in his place. He then activates the copied Thunderbolt skill, frying the kid with his own magic. With two minions down, Tsukasa turns his attention to the last man standing, Tadu. Tadu finally puts it all together, realizing Tsukasa's skill copies other people's abilities. He convinces himself it has a low success rate and can only be used once though, so with a smug grin he declares that Tsukasa's luck has officially run out. Back in her realm, Loki finds this entire display of misplaced confidence absolutely hilarious. Tsukasa's internal plan is simple: keep his evolved skill a secret since copied abilities are one and done. That is why he is not going to reuse Herculean Strength or Thunderbolt, trying to keep a low profile. But this fight is about more than just some schoolyard bully, it is about his painful past, and he has decided to sever those ties permanently right here and now. Tadu, of course, just calls him cocky, claiming the first two knockouts were nothing but a fluke. Our boy just fires back, asking if big talk is all he has got and offering him a chance to run. This naturally only makes the bully more furious, who scoffs at the very idea. And with a scream he charges forward, promising to cut Tsukasa's tongue right out of his mouth. His eyes are burning with a rage that is completely disconnected from the situation at hand, but Tsukasa blocks the clumsy sword strike without even breaking a sweat. So Tadu activates his own skill, a point-blank fire blast reflected in his eye, and unleashes a massive explosion right where Tsukasa is standing. Hashigane screams his name from the sidelines, absolutely horrified by the attack, while Tadu is already celebrating, convinced he just vaporized the failure for good. But when the smoke clears, our boy is just standing there, completely untouched. He casually asks if Tadu has any new tricks since that fire attack is getting a little old. Tadu is completely stunned, demanding to know how he is still standing, and Tsukasa calmly explains that the attack never even managed to touch him. This just sends Tadu into another spiral, screaming that it was a point-blank shot and impossible to dodge. Tsukasa then drops the bombshell. That explosion was not from Tadu's flames, it was his. Tadu's mind completely shatters as he realizes Tsukasa copied his fire skill, and he flashes back, trying to pinpoint when the copy even happened during their last encounter. This bully just cannot process it since Tsukasa's ability was supposed to be a total dud. But back in the present, our boy calmly steps forward, ready to finish this. And with glowing eyes, he declares that playtime is officially over. Refusing to accept reality, Tadu prepares to launch another attack from across the arena, unleashing a volley of fire blades while still screaming like a cornered animal. Tsukasa's sword simply cuts right through the spell with a flash of blue energy, and he casually weaves through the remaining flames, completely unfazed by the heat. Tadu tries a desperate sword swing, which Tsukasa ducks under with zero effort, leaving the bully's eyes wide with panic as he completely loses track of his target. That is because Tsukasa is already behind him, calling his attack pathetically slow, and a single precise slash sends Tadu stumbling forward, completely defenseless. Before he can even recover, Tsukasa's voice commands him not to move, and Tadu finds himself completely paralyzed, unable to understand what is happening. Turns out Tsukasa is now wreathed in flames, having copied his skill yet again. This bully's last shred of confidence evaporates, realizing the copy was not a one-time fluke, so he immediately tries to surrender, begging for mercy now that he is outmatched. But Tsukasa just holds up a finger, telling him not to worry about a thing, as he flicks a massive fireball right at him, promising it is probably not lethal. This fireball connects, and Tadu can only scream as he is completely engulfed in flames. And when the smoke clears, Tsukasa is standing over him, coolly declaring the match is over. Tadu collapses to his knees, utterly broken that he lost to the school's biggest failure. With a menacing glare, Tsukasa reminds the bully about the promise he made regarding Hashigane, and the terrified bully can only agree, knowing he has been completely and utterly beat. With that, Tadu is officially out for the count, leaving Tsukasa the undisputed winner. A few days later, Hashigane is able to leave her old guild without any issues, and just like that, the two of them officially decide to start their own guild together. Now that the bully problem is solved, Hashigane is ready for their first mission, pointing with a grin and announcing their next stop is of course a dungeon. Tsukasa seems a little underwhelmed, asking if it is just another beginner rank 1. But Hashigane has bigger plans, revealing they are hitting an intermediate rank abode of the dead. Our boy is understandably shocked by the sudden difficulty spike, much to her amusement. They arrive at the dungeon, a spooky forest crawling with undead and a level 25 recommendation. Tsukasa immediately gets serious, knowing one wrong move in a place like this could be fatal. But Hashigane just teases him for his long face, clearly not as worried as he is. He gets all flustered, trying to play it off like he was just being properly vigilant, and to prove his point, he immediately activates a summoning circle on the ground. Out pops Lufin, the spectral wolf from before, letting out a massive and intimidating howl. As Tsukasa gives his new companion a pat, telling the good boy they are counting on him, Hashigane is immediately obsessed with the wolf, calling him cute and precious. And she is so completely smitten she is practically vibrating with the need to hug him, asking Tsukasa for permission with the biggest, sparkliest eyes imaginable. She gets her wish, immediately smothering the poor wolf in a hug of pure, fluffy happiness. Tsukasa just watches on with a deadpan expression, silently apologizing to his familiar. Once the cuddle session is over, Hashigane gets back to business, asking for details on Lufin. So our boy explains he is a familiar summoned through one of his skills. This immediately piques her interest, and she asks exactly when and where he copied it from, prompting Loki to chime in mentally, impressed that a human noticed his skill had evolved. Tsukasa starts sweating, trying to figure out how to throw her off the trail, but Hashigane lets him off the hook, saying it is rude to pry into others' abilities anyway. Instead, she kneels down to pet Lufin, declaring that she trusts the both of them. She gives Tsukasa a confident wink, asking him if he's got her back in here. He just grins back, telling her to leave everything to him without a second thought. She teases him right back, joking that he will probably be the one needing protection. Their little moment is cut short by the sudden appearance of a massive skeleton horde. A system window identifies the mob as level 23 undead soldiers armed and ready. Hashigane immediately declares she will break through their ranks, but Tsukasa suggests playing it safe. She just brushes off his concern, explaining her golden sword is specially made for this. With a deadly serious look, she promises to show him exactly what her blade can do. Hashigane does not hesitate for a second, charging straight into the undead army, her golden blade carving a massive arc of light through the front ranks, instantly vaporizing any skeleton caught in the blast into nothing but dust. Tsukasa immediately recognizes it as a holy sword, basically an anti-undead cheat code. Even so, more skeletons keep crawling out of the ground and their numbers are a real problem. Deciding he cannot just watch, he orders Lufin to back her up and they both jump in. Our boy immediately stomps a skeleton's face into a fine powder, sending the bony remains flying clean through another one behind it. He catches up to Hashigane, chiding her for getting surrounded while she just thanks him for the support. But the skeletons he just shattered are already getting back up, their red eyes glowing, forcing Tsukasa to fend off a relentless assault with his own blade. Turns out they are powered by a glowing red core in their ribcage, reanimating them instantly. These things just do not know when to quit, getting up no matter how many times they are broken. This situation is getting grim, with Loki even chiming in that this is looking pretty bad. Hashigane notices Tsukasa is getting overwhelmed by the sheer numbers, and she offers to help him out, asking if he is planning to use one of his skills. She just smirks, telling him she will not need any skills for this little problem, because she is about to show him a fraction of what her holy sword can really do. This blade begins to radiate an overwhelming golden light as she prepares her ultimate attack. And with glowing eyes, she unleashes its full power with a single command: shine forth. This entire forest is engulfed in a blinding golden flash from Hashigane's sword, and Tsukasa can only watch in awe at the sheer power of a true holy weapon. She just shrugs it off, saying that was just a little radiance, plenty for small fries. Then she immediately uses Lufin as an excuse to get out of cleanup duty, and the wolf is completely won over, much to Tsukasa's deadpan resignation. After collecting the loot, they finally reach the massive skull gate of the boss room, with Hashigane declaring they are still fresh and ready for the main event. Tsukasa, ever the strategist, immediately asks how they should approach the fight, but she just tells him not to worry because she has already got an idea. She gives him a sly grin, promising to end the entire fight in a single hit. Inside, they are greeted by an entire army of undead kneeling before a throne, which is occupied by a level 38 undead lord with a nasty skill called Undead Creator. So Tsukasa asks for the plan again, and she just says she will wipe them all out. He thinks she is joking, but she is dead serious, explaining a long fight is suicide. Turns out the boss's Undead Creator skill is way more dangerous than simple summoning, allowing the lord to generate an endless supply of minions on the fly. Her ultimate skill can one-shot everything, but it needs a charge-up time. And without a moment's hesitation, Tsukasa agrees to buy her that time. He and Lufin step forward, ready to hold off an entire undead army by themselves, giving her a confident look and telling her she'd better not miss her shot. Hashigane just smirks, promising to end this whole fight without a single hitch. So Tsukasa and Lufin dive in, activating Flame Master to hold the line against the horde, and he quickly realizes these summoned minions will just disappear after taking enough damage. With the undead lord just chilling on his throne, our boy decides to keep things simple, activating his Thundering Blade skill and imbuing his sword with crackling blue lightning. He unleashes a massive electrical storm, frying dozens of the undead soldiers at once, sending charred bone fragments flying as he clears a path straight toward the boss. His blade clashes with the elite guard's swords as he finally reaches the throne, forcing him into a 2-on-1 fight against the boss's personal bodyguards. Just then, the undead lord leaps into the fray, launching a dark energy spear right at him, but Lufin intercepts the attack at the last second, taking the full force of the blow. This spear detonates in a massive explosion of dark magic, completely engulfing the wolf. And when the smoke clears, the guards are being reinforced with a sinister purple aura. This undead lord's eyes glow with malevolent power, clearly just getting warmed up, and Tsukasa can only watch as even more skeletons are summoned from the shadows. His two main opponents are now wreathed in dark energy, looking way more dangerous than before, prompting Loki to sarcastically note that the boss values quality over quantity for its minions. Tsukasa grimly tells his partner this is no laughing matter, admitting the situation is pretty bad. But Loki gets serious, telling him to stop focusing on the undead lord and find the real asterisk enemy. Her words hit home, and as he grips his sword, Tsukasa finally understands what he has to do. With a determined smirk, Tsukasa tells Loki to just watch him, promising he can handle this, and Loki just smirks back, telling him to go on and put on an entertaining show. Tsukasa's expression hardens as he gets completely serious, his focus now absolute. He realizes just spamming skills is useless, so he starts condensing his fire magic instead, forming a super dense orb of pure flame between his fingers with a single command, which he then fires off like a laser, blasting straight through one of the elite guards. Even Loki is impressed, noting that he is finally getting creative with his flame control. Tsukasa explains that a skill is only as good as its user as the guard's core is incinerated. This new tactic clearly spooks the remaining minions who hesitate for the first time, prompting Loki to mentally point out that even the monsters are shaking in their boots now. But Tsukasa knows their fear is just another weapon he can use against them. So he creates a massive ring of fire, trapping the last of the guards with the undead lord. He immediately shouts out to Hashigane, letting her know the stage is officially set. She gives him a nod of thanks, her eyes now glowing with power as she confirms she is ready. Raising her hands to the sky, she begins to gather an insane amount of holy energy, unleashing her ultimate skill with a single devastating name, Turna Nog. Turns out the skill's power is based on her mental image, a high-risk, high-reward nuke. Tsukasa can only stare in utter disbelief at the spectacle, and even Loki is impressed. This attack leaves a massive crater where the boss and his army used to be, as Hashigane declares victory. She casually hands him the boss core, saying it was a piece of cake thanks to his help. Hashigane immediately starts teasing him, saying all he really did was buy her some time. She is ready to ditch the dungeon, but Lufin suddenly starts barking at the empty crater. Loki chimes in with a warning, telling Tsukasa to stay on his toes because this is not over. Right on cue, a sinister purple energy erupts from the very spot the boss was vaporized, and Tsukasa can only watch in shock as the ground cracks open beneath them. A new, absolutely colossal skeletal monster rises from the fissure, towering over them both. Turns out the undead lord was just the appetizer for a level 50 archdemon with unknown skills. Even Hashigane is panicking, questioning what an advanced rank boss is doing in this dungeon. This archdemon does not waste time on introductions, raising its foot to stomp them flat. Thinking fast, Hashigane pulls out a glowing cube, yelling for Tsukasa to get to her now. He instantly recognizes it as a teleportation stone, their only emergency escape route. It is a get-out-of-jail-free card that zaps you straight back to the dungeon entrance. As the light envelops them, she admits that using such a valuable item is their only option. She activates the stone, attempting to warp them all to safety. But the teleportation fails spectacularly, leaving them trapped with the smirking archdemon. With the space around them sealed, Hashigane realizes their only option is to fight. Tsukasa immediately suspects his partner, mentally asking Loki if this is her twisted idea of a test. For once, she is actually offended, claiming she is a tough mentor, not a monster. Her eyes then glow with rage as she realizes someone else deliberately set this trap. Loki confirms they are completely on their own and have to figure out how to kill this thing themselves. Hashigane snaps Tsukasa out of his daze, asking if he is okay after that whole inescapable death trap reveal. He tries to play it off, saying he was just thinking, and she teases him for being so composed. Internally, though, our boy admits he is faking it because they are absolutely screwed. This archdemon just stands there, radiating an aura that screams, you are about to have a very bad day. Getting down to business, Hashigane asks for a plan and the cooldown on her ultimate nuke. She needs 5 minutes, so Tsukasa tells her to stay back while he buys that time. But she flatly refuses, making it clear she is not about to sit on the sidelines. He tries to argue about the risk, but she reminds him she is not exactly defenseless. She still has a holy sword, and she is more than ready to use it. Seeing her determination, he reluctantly agrees, just telling her not to do anything reckless. Right on cue, the archdemon decides playtime is over, raising its hand to swat them flat. Tsukasa just barely dodges the massive claw swipe, which crackles with dark energy. He tries to taunt the beast, telling it to calm down since they are obviously so much weaker. It is pretty clear the monster is not taking this seriously at all, just toying with its food. Deciding to show it what a cornered rat can do, he activates his Thundering Blade skill. He unleashes a massive arc of pure lightning, aiming to give the demon a serious jolt. Lufin even lets out a battle cry as the attack barrels toward its target, only for the archdemon to casually block the entire blast with one hand, completely unimpressed. With his big lightning attack proving useless, Tsukasa switches gears and activates Flame Master. He launches a super condensed fire blast, hoping a more focused attack will actually leave a mark. Unfortunately for him, the archdemon just stares back, completely unscratched by the blast. So Hashigane decides to test her luck, leaping in with a powerful slash from her holy sword. And what do you know, the blade actually bites deep, leaving a glowing wound on its leg. She immediately realizes her holy weapon is the key here, confident she can actually hurt this thing. But the archdemon is not a fan of being stabbed, unleashing a storm of dark energy spikes, which she just barely manages to deflect, spinning her sword in a desperate defense. Tsukasa sees the tide turning and screams for her to get back, but the monster closes the distance in a flash, grabbing her by the head. It then proceeds to introduce her face to its knee with extreme prejudice, sending her flying across the room like a ragdoll and slamming her into the ground. She is left coughing up blood, clearly taking some serious damage from that hit, and Tsukasa can only watch in horror as she crashes into a newly formed crater. But Hashigane gets back up, claiming she is fine and that this distance is exactly what she needed. She starts chanting, pouring all her holy energy into her sword for a big move. And with a final command, she unleashes the blade's true power in a blinding golden wave. Her eyes are practically glowing as she promises the demon it is about to have a bad time. She blitzes forward, unleashing a flurry of light-speed slashes that bombard the monster, and in the middle of her assault, she shouts out Tsukasa's name for a follow-up. This archdemon, finally getting serious, ignores her and prepares a massive energy wave for our boy. So Tsukasa calls for Luffy, who bravely leaps in to take the hit. Luffy bravely tanks the energy wave, which detonates in a massive, chaotic explosion, prompting Hashigane to ask if they did it, with Tsukasa praising their perfect teamwork. But as the smoke clears, the archdemon is just standing there, completely unfazed by the assault. And Loki chimes in, explaining that their attack's asterisk did have an effect despite appearances. Turns out high-ranking bosses just have insane regenerative abilities, healing the damage instantly. With that revelation, Tsukasa asks how they are even supposed to win against something like that, and Loki lays out the two grim options: overwhelm its healing or one-shot it. He realizes Hashigane's ultimate is their only hope for a one-shot, but the cooldown is too long. Desperate, Tsukasa asks Loki to undo the seal on his heavenly authority skill. But she just gives him a blank stare, having absolutely no idea what he is talking about. Turns out the seal she put on him wore off ages ago and his skills are locked for another reason entirely. Hashigane snaps him out of his shock, so he quickly tells her he has a new plan. Just then, the archdemon unleashes a massive web of crackling dark energy from above, leaving Hashigane staring up in total disbelief at the scale of the attack. This chaotic storm of energy barrels down on them, threatening to wipe them out completely, while the archdemon just cackles, clearly having the time of its life toying with them. But Tsukasa is suddenly wreathed in a brilliant blue aura, activating his heavenly authority skill. He glares at the boss, declaring that the real asterisk fight is only just getting started, and the system confirms it. His ultimate trump card is finally online and ready to go. Hashigane can only stare, completely baffled as to what kind of power he just unleashed. Tsukasa tells Hashigane to get ready with her ultimate, promising to give her the perfect opening, and with a 60-second timer on his new power, he zips around deflecting the demon's attacks, getting right in the monster's face to lock his blade against its massive armored claw. This sheer force of the blow sends him flying backwards, but he is far from finished. Yelling that even a cornered rat will bite back when it is pushed too far. Deciding to test that theory, he activates his Flame Master skill once again, summoning a whole swarm of fireballs for a massive magical bombardment, which he then unleashes in a single, concentrated volley at the archdemon. Unfortunately, the monster just tanks the hit, its dark aura snuffing out the flames, and Tsukasa realizes that even with his ultimate active, just spamming skills is useless. Finally getting annoyed, the archdemon's eyes glow red as it prepares a real attack, condensing a massive sphere of pure destructive energy between its hands, and Tsukasa barely dodges the blast as the demon mockingly compliments his speed. Loki chimes in with a grim warning: he has only got 1 minute before his body gives out, so he pulls out a new trick, activating a skill called Wordplay and ordering the beast not to move. And to everyone's surprise, the archdemon is actually frozen solid, completely immobilized. Taking his chance, Tsukasa calls down a massive thunderbolt, electrocuting the helpless boss, and he lands back on the ground, still wreathed in the brilliant blue aura of his skill. This archdemon is left screaming, engulfed in a storm of holy lightning and fire. But Tsukasa knows he cannot let the pressure off for a second, already preparing his next assault. He blitzes the monster with a combo of fire and lightning, vowing it will not get away, which detonates in a massive explosion that sends him flying clear across the room. But the archdemon just gets back on one knee, looking more annoyed than anything else. So Tsukasa zips behind it in a flash, taunting the beast for being too slow. This demon just grins, swinging around to meet Tsukasa's next massive energy slash. And from the sidelines, Hashigane and Luffy are cheering him on like it is a sports match. He unleashes a cage of light-speed slashes, trapping the boss in a whirlwind of blades. But internally, he knows this still is not enough to guarantee a kill, not even close. Right on cue, the archdemon lets out a roar, finally deciding to get serious, and it starts charging up a terrifying sphere of pure dark lightning for the finisher. Seeing his chance, Tsukasa channels all his power into his sword and yells for Hashigane's ultimate, but she hesitates for a second, realizing he will be caught right in the middle of her nuke. Our boy just screams at her to trust him and fire away no matter the cost. With no other choice, she agrees, warning him that this is absolutely going to hurt. Then begins her chant, summoning a cataclysmic shower of holy light from the heavens. Meanwhile, Tsukasa prepares to tank the demon's attack head-on to buy her that time. This two ultimate attacks barrel towards each other with our hero stuck in the crossfire, and everything erupts in a blinding flash as Hashigane screams out his name in panic, leaving her to wonder if they actually won and, more importantly, if he is even okay. Unfortunately for them, the archdemon is still standing, screaming in pure, unadulterated rage. Hashigane stares in absolute shock, realizing their combined ultimates still were not enough. But Tsukasa uses his wordplay skill, commanding the raging monster not to use its own abilities. And just like that, the archdemon is bound in glowing blue chains, completely immobilized. He then copies Hashigane's ultimate, Turn Na Nog, calling on the power of the stars, creating a vortex of cosmic energy as he prepares to unleash her power himself. Our boy realizes her area of effect attack needed to be focused into a single devastating strike. So with a final shout, he activates the copied skill, ready to end this once and for all, unleashing a concentrated beam of pure holy energy that tears across the chamber. Hashigane can only watch, stunned that he not only copied her ultimate but made it stronger, as the archdemon gets completely vaporized, screaming while it is erased from existence. After the dust settles, Tsukasa kneels by the boss drop, admitting that was way too close, and Hashigane is still processing how he actually defeated an archdemon to save them both. He just smiles it off, joking that if his last-ditch plan had failed, they'd both be goners. She looks at him with a completely new perspective, her admiration clearly growing, realizing that adventuring with him is the dream she has always been searching for. Back at the Adventurers Guild, they get confirmation that the dungeon has been cleared, and Tsukasa gets a cool 1.5 million yen reward, which has Loki already planning a feast. He checks his new stats, having leveled up to 36, though Loki reminds him he is not god tier yet. Hashigane asks if he will report the archdemon, but he knows nobody would ever believe their story. So she gets serious, asking him what his real skill actually is. Tsukasa decides he cannot keep his secret from Hashigane any longer, who flat out asks how he is so strong when everyone thinks he is a total failure. He agrees to tell her everything, setting up a private meeting on the school rooftop for tomorrow. Meanwhile, in a completely different dungeon, some other adventurer is having a terrible time, getting absolutely wrecked by monsters and screaming in pure frustration. Turns out he's got a massive grudge, blaming someone named Kisaragi for his problems. A mysterious voice chimes in from the shadows asking why he is so worked up, and the guy immediately threatens to kill this newcomer for daring to speak to him. His target, a fox-eared girl, just finds his tough guy act amusing, which only serves to make the hot-headed adventurer even more furious. He unleashes a massive fire tornado, vowing to burn her to a crisp for her insolence. But she effortlessly deflects the entire attack with a single, graceful motion, then proceeds to mock his flames as being too weak to even start a bonfire. She does see his potential, though, asking him the million-dollar question, does he want power? After he tells her to get on with it, she offers to grant him whatever strength he desires. We're talking world-shaking power enough to fulfill his every petty whim. This guy is immediately hooked, grinning as he asks if it is for real. And she promises him ultimate strength if he will just entrust his body to her. Back on the rooftop, Hashigane waits patiently for Tsukasa to start his explanation. Loki questions if he should really tell her, but our boy is confident he can trust her completely. Tsukasa kicks off his story with the time his old party tried to sacrifice him in a bonus room. He explains the trap sent him to a Mythocrank dungeon, where a certain someone granted him power. Hashigane completely loses it since no one has ever cleared a dungeon of that rank before, and she immediately demands to know what kind of insane power he could have possibly received. Figuring it is just easier to show her, Tsukasa pulls out his Adventure ID card instead. She takes a look, her eyes widening in total disbelief at what is written on it. Her first question is how this is possible, since his official skill is supposed to be imitate. Turns out his ID now lists his skill as copycat, a phenomenon she has never even heard of. At that exact moment, a swirling dark portal opens up as a voice claims responsibility for the upgrade. Out pops Loki, who formally introduces herself to a very confused Hashigane. Hashigane instantly goes on the defensive, but Loki just tells her to chill, claiming to be a god. This whole "I am a god" thing does not exactly help Hashigane relax, funnily enough. Loki casually clarifies that Mythocrank dungeons are literally the personal domains of gods. In fact, she is the mighty ruler of the very dungeon Tsukasa fell into, the one and only Trickstar. Both Tsukasa and Hashigane just give her a deadpan stare as she complains about being bored. So the deal was simple, she gave him power, and in exchange he is her tour guide to the outside world. Tsukasa confirms this is the reason his skill evolved, which seems to satisfy Hashigane's curiosity. But she gets serious, knowing the true source of his strength lies somewhere deeper than a skill, asking what keeps him fighting even after being betrayed and pushed to the absolute brink. He looks her dead in the eye, revealing he fights to save his little sister Mayu from a curse. Loki casually explains his sister was cursed by some other god with a truly awful personality. Tsukasa confirms this is his entire motivation. He has to keep fighting until he can find them. For Hashigane, that is all the proof she needs, cementing him as someone she can fully trust. So she makes a vow right then and there to help him on his quest to slay that very god. He is a little stunned by her commitment, but she explains it ties into a promise she made long ago. Turns out, she swore to her grandpa she'd clear a Mythocrank dungeon to fulfill his dream. With a friendly fist bump, she reminds him they are partners in this whole mess. And since they started a guild, they are going to hunt down that god together. Our boy is genuinely touched by her support, thanking her with a heartfelt smile. She tells him to drop the formalities and just call her Rin since they are a team now. He agrees and they seal their new pact with a firm handshake against the sunset. On that rooftop, their two very different quests have officially become one single mission. Later, Tsukasa brings Rin home, only to be met by his sister Mayu's intensely suspicious glare. Rin introduces herself politely, explaining that she and Tsukasa recently started a guild. Mayu just freezes up completely, staring blankly as her brother asks if she is feeling okay. Internally, of course, she is having a complete meltdown that he brought a beautiful girl home. As she starts panicking out loud, Tsukasa has to quickly clarify that Rin is not his girlfriend. Her excitement is cut short, though, as she is suddenly racked by a nasty coughing fit. Tsukasa immediately rushes to her side, worried as her condition worsens in a matter of seconds, and she coughs up blood, giving Rin a horrifying, first-hand look at the curse they just discussed. Mayu plays off her little meltdown as just getting too excited while Tsukasa tells her to get to bed, but she insists she is fine and still needs to make dinner, trying to act tough through the pain. Rin immediately steps in, telling Tsukasa to take care of his sister while she handles the cooking, and she confidently promises to whip up a meal that will have Mayu feeling better in no time. She then playfully corners Tsukasa, basically guilt-tripping him into accepting her homemade food, which has Mayu correctly pegging her brother as the type who can never say no to a pretty girl. This whole ordeal just steals Tsukasa's resolve. He has to get stronger and he has to do it fast. Several days later, we are back at the academy for another round of high school drama. Tsukasa notes that Tadu, the guy who betrayed him, has been absent from class for a while now. Just then, Rin shows up with a bento box she made, asking him to eat lunch with her. This little exchange immediately makes them the center of the entire classroom's gossip circuit, prompting Tsukasa to suggest they try being a little less of a public spectacle. Their conversation is cut short when a bunch of suits barge in, demanding to see Kisaragi Tsukasa, and our boy calmly identifies himself, asking what exactly they want with him. This leader simply states that he is coming with them, adding that refusal is not an option. Next thing he knows, Tsukasa is escorted to a massive, empty conference room, where he recognizes the man waiting for him as Tadu's father, a high-ranking JDMG director. This director, Tadu Rentaro, gets straight to the point, asking about his son's whereabouts. Tsukasa is completely blindsided, learning that Tadu has been officially missing for 7 days, and it clicks that the director suspects he has something to do with the disappearance. Tadu's father admits his son was a total jerk, which naturally puts Tsukasa on the suspect list, but he also acknowledges Tsukasa beat him fair and square, which should have been the end of it. Since Tsukasa has no record of entering that dungeon, the director has already cleared him, leaving our boy understandably confused about why he was dragged here in the first place. This director explains it is not that simple because of where his son was last seen, an intermediate rank dungeon called the Infernal Maw, just as Rin walks into the room. Tsukasa is completely thrown off, wondering what on earth she is doing here. And she just apologizes for being late, casually joining the very serious government meeting. Deciding it is easier to show than tell, Rentaro asks them to look at some evidence, having an aide pull up a video log from inside the dungeon taken just yesterday. This footage reveals a mysterious figure with glowing red eyes lurking in the shadows. Apparently this person was seen but has no official D-card entry scan, which should not be possible. Rentaro confirms it is a total paradox, but the evidence is undeniable. Rin cuts straight to the point, asking if the search team they dispatched found anything useful, but the director gives them the grim news: the entire first party was wiped out. Everyone is stunned by this revelation, learning a second team is currently searching the area. With that, Rentaro puts the pressure back on Tsukasa, asking if he noticed anything odd about Tadu. Tsukasa can only admit that he did not see anything out of the ordinary at the time. As the weight of the situation sinks in, Loki's voice suddenly cuts through his thoughts, warning him they have stumbled into a huge mess, prompting him to ask what she knows. Loki reveals she sensed a god's presence coming from the video footage of Tadu, and it is the exact same one who put that horrifying curse on his sister. This revelation hits Tsukasa like a ton of bricks, and Rin immediately picks up on his distress. Meanwhile, Tadu's father and his aide just stare, completely baffled by the kid's sudden reaction. Loki confirms it was faint but undeniable. Another deity is definitely involved in this mess. After a tense moment of processing, Tsukasa makes up his mind, immediately volunteering to join the official search effort for Tadu's son. Rentaro is completely blindsided by the sudden offer, and he flatly rejects him since the last team of high-level pros got totally wiped out. Tsukasa grits his teeth, clearly not about to take no for an answer. That is when Rin steps up, declaring she will go with him, which should settle any complaints. This director remains skeptical, even knowing Rin's history with the elite guild Bloodchain, so she reminds him of the time they encountered an archdemon in an intermediate dungeon, revealing that the one who actually defeated the beast was Tsukasa himself. Rentaro is floored since an advanced rank boss has no business appearing there in the first place. This evidence backs her up though, as the magic stone they brought back was confirmed to be authentic, He simply cannot wrap his head around a student pulling off such an impossible feat. With his objections completely dismantled, Rentaro finally gives them his permission to join the search. His aide immediately protests, thinking the director has completely lost his mind. But Rentaro just brushes him off, stating they need all the capable hands they can get. With his authority gone, Rentaro drops the act and just begs them to save his son. Tsukasa and Rin share a look of steely resolve. The mission is a go. Wasting no time, Tsukasa tells Rin they are heading straight for the dungeon. Arriving at the gate, Rin finally asks for the real story behind his sudden commitment. And he lays it all out. Loki suspects the god who cursed Mayu is involved in this mess. Rin is floored, realizing this rescue mission is now tied directly to their ultimate goal. Tsukasa admits he cannot be sure, but if there is a chance to find that god, he has to take it. Looking at the gate, he has a grim feeling the second search team is already dead. All they can do is pray he is wrong as they prepare to dive in before it is too late. And of course he was right, they step in to find the second party completely butchered. This last survivor cannot believe it, wondering how a simple rescue turned into a total bloodbath. Turns out the one responsible is Todo himself, now looking like a full-blown villain. This adventurer makes a last stand, launching a desperate wind-based attack, which Todo barely even acknowledges, raising a hand to casually swat it away. He summons a wall of fire that completely swallows the attack, no effort required. Then he taunts the poor guy, surrounding him with dark energy orbs for a little extra flair. With a simple command to get lost, he clenches his fist to end it. A massive pillar of flame erupts, completely incinerating the last of the search team. That is when a fox-like woman appears, egging Todo on to unleash all his festering hatred. She smirks down at him, confirming she is the one pulling the strings of his dark new power. Loki, for her part, is immediately having a full-blown panic attack over the dungeon's intense heat. This is the Infernal Maw, a high-end intermediate dungeon that is basically one giant angry volcano. Tsukasa realizes she can feel the temperature even without a physical body, which is just fantastic. As they venture deeper into the hellscape, Rin reminds him to keep his head on a swivel. He knows she is right, but the thought of that god being here has him completely on edge, and she warns him that one moment of recklessness will be his last in a place like this. Right on cue, their first welcome party arrives in the form of a level 33 lizardman. Rin tells him to be bold but smart, promising she's got his back no matter what. With that reassurance, Tsukasa decides there is absolutely no point in holding back. He immediately clashes with the monster, landing a solid first strike that sends it reeling. This lizardman retaliates with a heavy swing, but Tsukasa parries it perfectly, calling for backup, and Rin is already in position, her golden blade poised to finish the job. She slices clean through the creature's back while it is completely focused on our boy. Not done yet, Tsukasa activates his Flame Master skill to add a little overkill to the mix, blasting the already doomed monster with a volley of fireballs for good measure. After collecting the spoils, he admits this place definitely lives up to its near-advanced rank reputation. Unfortunately, there is no time for a breather as a fresh wave of monsters immediately spawns in. They are quickly surrounded by another lizardman and a red panther, putting them on the defensive. But Tsukasa just calmly issues a two-word command with a strange, dark aura, instantly paralyzing both beasts in their tracks with some kind of powerful intimidation skill. While Rin takes on the red panther with a flashy aerial strike, Tsukasa decides to get serious, activating his thundering blade skill, and immediately plunges the electrified weapon straight through the lizardman's chest, his eyes glowing an ominous blue as he prepares to unleash the stored energy, which promptly fries the monster from the inside out in a massive burst of lightning. With the welcoming committee handled, they waste no time pushing deeper into the dungeon. They soon arrive at the mini-boss room, a massive cavern absolutely swarming with wyverns. Turns out the mini-boss is not one creature but a whole flock of level 40 lesser wyverns. Tsukasa's opening move is to call down a massive bolt of lightning from the cavern ceiling, successfully zapping one of the beasts right out of the sky. But Loki quickly reminds him that even a lesser wyvern is still a wyvern, and a single shock is not nearly enough to stop the rest of the angry swarm. This forces them into a chaotic mid-air battle, dodging and weaving between diving monsters, and Rin cannot help but notice the creatures are using actual coordinated tactics against them. Fed up with fighting on their terms, Tsukasa uses his gravity skill to bring the fight down to him, causing the entire flock to lose their flight and plummet helplessly to the ground. With the playing field finally level, the two charge into the grounded and furious mob. Rin immediately clashes with one of the beasts, her blade holding back a torrent of fire, but the raw power of the attack is enough to send her stumbling backward for a moment, just as a massive blue wolf appears from nowhere, intercepting another wyvern's attack. With his new wolf summon covering Rin, Tsukasa focuses on the wyvern in front of him, plunging his glowing blade straight into the beast's neck with a furious battle cry. This monster shatters into nothing, leaving only its magic stone behind, but another one immediately takes its place, forcing him back on the defensive. He grits his teeth, realizing they will be overwhelmed if they do not end this soon. With a desperate roar, Tsukasa unleashes a wide, crackling slash to push them back, but he is still caught in the middle of the swarm, taking hits from every angle. Rin can only stare in disbelief at the absolute chaos unfolding. This remaining wyverns screech in unison, diving down for one last coordinated assault, so he counters with a massive firestorm, which Loki helpfully notes is mostly useless. But our boy's one step ahead, layering his Thunderbolt skill right over the flames. Rin is floored, realizing his copycat ability lets him stack skills in impossible ways. He unleashes a final massive wave of energy that completely scours the cavern. The sheer power leaves her speechless, admitting she is nowhere near his level. After the dust settles, Tsukasa wastes no time telling her they have to move. They race towards the boss room, now seriously worried about the search team. Loki's voice cuts in, warning Tsukasa that she has a very bad feeling about this. And she was right, they arrive to find the second party has been completely butchered. A small blue wolf is barking over a fallen knight, the apparent sole survivor. As Rin confirms the man is still breathing, a voice from the shadows calls out to them. This last surviving knight points a shaky finger, identifying the one who wiped out his team, and in the distance stands a lone, cloaked figure, the one responsible for the massacre. Tsukasa's eyes go wide with absolute disbelief as he recognizes the silhouette. This man just smirks back, dark veins crawling up his face like a classic villain in training. And the big reveal hits them both. It is none other than Tadu himself. They can barely process it since the kid they knew is gone, replaced by this ominous presence. Tsukasa notes the aura is completely wrong, as if he has been possessed or something. He tries to reason with him, saying everyone's worried and they should head back, though internally he is already planning the interrogation for once they are out of this hellhole. Tadu's only response is that same unsettling grin, which is never a good sign. Right on cue, a massive dragon screeches into existence right behind him, and both Tsukasa and Rin immediately tense up, realizing this rescue just got a final boss. As Tadu turns to leave, Tsukasa yells for him to wait, but he is completely ignored. With a simple gesture, Tadu commands the beast to attack them, and Tsukasa knows exactly what is coming next. This dragon dives straight for him, leaving our boy with absolutely no time to think. He draws his sword, bracing for an impact he might not survive, only for the beast to suddenly be lying dead at his feet, neutralized in a flash. Tsukasa stares, completely baffled that his former classmate just tried to kill him. Rin rushes over, checking to see if he is alright after that ridiculously sudden attack. Tsukasa brushes off his own injuries, confirming the search team is knocked out but still alive. Rin immediately pivots to the real problem. That was definitely Tadu they just saw. He agrees, but before he can wonder where the kid ran off to, Loki chimes in with the answer. Turns out the Tadu they fought was just a phantom. His real body has been in the boss room this whole time. This whole situation has Tsukasa completely baffled, leaving him at a total loss. He relays Loki's intel to Rin, asking her what their next move should be. She points out that Tadu somehow wiped out a team stronger than him, making a direct assault suicidal. So Tsukasa decides to go it alone, telling Rin to retreat and get reinforcements. Rin is having none of that, grabbing him and calling the plan way too dangerous. And he grits his teeth, fully admitting that he knows it is a reckless move. But with his eyes glowing, he declares this is a chance he absolutely cannot afford to waste. A quick flashback to Mayu's curse reminds Rin exactly why he is so desperate. Understanding his resolve, she declares that she is going with him, no arguments. She is not letting him walk into that mess by himself, but he worries about the downed adventurers. Rin assures him she can handle calling for backup while they are on the move. Just then, the surviving knight pipes up, telling them to focus on the enemy ahead. He even offers them a small, glowing cube to help them out on their mission. Tsukasa hesitates, unsure if he should accept such a valuable item from him. Rin just smiles, telling him not to worry since it is just a spare. This knight bows in gratitude, putting his team's fate entirely in their hands. This knight's gift activates, creating a shimmering blue portal to get the wounded to safety. Tsukasa questions her little white lie, but Rin just says he would not have accepted it otherwise. With the rescue team handled, they turn their full attention to the real problem ahead. They push open the massive doors to the boss room, stepping right into the heart of the volcano, and waiting for them is the dungeon boss, a level 45 salamander just bathing in lava. Tsukasa immediately confronts the hooded man, demanding Tadu finally show his face. All he gets in response is that same creepy, veiny smile from under the hood, and Tadu finally reveals his new look, complete with red hair and glowing pink eyes. Rin warns Tsukasa that this is not the same kid from their duel. He is completely changed. He tightens his grip on his sword, promising he will not hesitate to go all out. Rin quickly forms a plan. She will handle the salamander boss, leaving Tadu to Tsukasa. He agrees, vowing to end his fight quickly so he can come back her up. She reminds him one last time that this is not the Tadu they used to know. Tsukasa just sweats nervously while Rin facepalms, calling the kid a total troublemaker. With the pleasantries over, the salamander boss makes the first move, lunging to attack. Rin immediately intercepts the beast, meeting its powerful charge head-on with her blade. At the same time, Tsukasa clashes with Tadu, their electrified swords lighting up the cavern. Rin decides to try one last thing, her eyes glowing with a strange blue light. She asks Tadu if there is any chance he will just surrender and come with them quietly. His response is to summon a volley of fireballs, which she correctly interprets as a hard no. With negotiations officially off the table, Rin declares she is done holding back, vowing to beat the answers out of Tadu before dragging him back to the city. He responds with a volley of fireballs, forcing her to weave through the barrage. But Tsukasa's wolf summon creates the perfect opening, lunging right at the corrupted kid, which gives Rin just enough time to close the distance and land a clean slash. Tadu stumbles back, clutching his chest, but that unsettling grin never leaves his face. Instead of falling, he just unleashes a massive, uncontrolled burst of dark red energy, and the sheer force of it catches Rin completely off guard, sending her flying. This energy erupts outwards in a violent explosion, threatening to engulf her completely, until Tsukasa suddenly appears, shielding her from the blast at the very last second. She is stunned, asking if he somehow managed to finish off that giant lava lizard already, but he grimly admits that his own fight is actually far from over. Right on cue, the salamander lets out a furious roar, reminding them it is still very much a problem. That is when Loki's voice cuts in, telling Tsukasa her worst fears have just been confirmed. She drops the bombshell. Tadu's sinister new power is a perfect match for the one who cursed Mayu. This gravity of her words sinks in as Tsukasa stares at his former classmate, and the realization hits him that his true target has been right here this whole time. He desperately asks Loki if she is absolutely sure, but she confirms this is no joke. She warns him to forget holding back because his opponent will absolutely kill him otherwise. With a newfound determination burning in his eyes, Tsukasa agrees to unleash his full power. Rin asks for the game plan, suggesting they try to focus on both targets at once. Tsukasa immediately shuts that down, arguing it is way too risky to split their firepower. She is understandably confused since they are fighting a two-front war in a volcano. He then explains the salamander is radiating the exact same dark energy that cursed Mayu. Rin's face hardens with the realization they are not just fighting monsters, but servants of a god, which is precisely why Tsukasa is done holding back and she is right there with him. With a determined look, Rin declares she is getting serious, channeling a massive amount of power. She unleashes a devastating volley of light arrows straight down on the giant lava lizard, pushing her magic to its absolute maximum output for one overwhelming strike. This massive beam of holy light slams down, completely engulfing the dungeon boss's position. With the salamander pinned, Tsukasa tells his wolf Lufin it is their turn to handle Tadu. Tadu, for his part, just cackles like a maniac, completely unbothered by the light show. Tsukasa meets his charge head-on, their swords clashing in a storm of sparks and dark energy. But Tadu's corrupted power suddenly lashes out, impaling Lufin right in front of him. This little wolf bravely takes the hit, intercepting a fatal blow meant for its master. Its claws grind against Tadu's blade in a desperate final act of defiance. After kicking the summon aside, Tadu prepares another attack as Tsukasa begs him to snap out of it. His plea is answered with a massive thunderbolt skill aimed right at Rin, forcing Tsukasa to scream out her name in warning as the attack closes in. But Rin's eyes just glow with power as she prepares to release her own holy sword ability. Rin declares she has got this, promising to take down the boss in a single shot, but Tadu completely ignores her, launching his own attack from across the room, which leaves both Tsukasa and Rin stunned that he is targeting Asterisk her instead of him. She barely manages to block his strike, but he is just grinning like a total psycho. And he easily overpowers her, sending her flying with a brutal kick to the chest. Then the kid activates his Flame Master skill, summoning a swarm of dark projectiles, forcing Rin to desperately weave through the barrage of shadowy crosses, but the sheer volume of the attack is just too much for her to handle. Meanwhile, Tadu is just screaming like a classic villain, demanding she burn for him, and he lands a direct, point-blank blast right as she is trying to recover. This resulting explosion has Tsukasa screaming out her name in absolute panic. This attack leaves Rin kneeling on the ground, completely battered and bleeding, and she can only apologize for letting her guard down, clearly out of the fight. Tsukasa and his wolf immediately rush over to her side, seeing she is down, and she confirms she is alive but admits she is too injured to continue fighting. With his fist clenched, Tsukasa tells her to rest, promising to handle everything himself. He tasks Lufin with protecting her, declaring he only needs 1 minute to end this. Right on cue, our boy unleashes a massive torrent of swirling blue energy, his eyes glowing with pure focus as he announces his counterattack is about to begin, and he rockets straight for the salamander, knowing this power boost will not last long. Tsukasa activates his wordplay skill, literally commanding the giant lizard not to move. With the boss temporarily on pause, he clashes directly with Tadu, aiming to end this fast. And a massive wave of blue energy erupts from his blade, sending the corrupted kid flying. Tadu just laughs it off, summoning a storm of shadowy blades to counter him. So Tsukasa unleashes his own volley of light daggers, meeting the attack head-on. These two attacks collide in a spectacular explosion of red and blue energy, and our boy immediately charges through the smoke, not wasting a single second. Their swords meet again in a blinding flash of electrified power, shaking the entire cavern. Tsukasa screams his former classmate's name, but all he gets back is a psychotic grin. Tadu activates his own Thundering Blade skill, ready to overwhelm him with dark lightning, but Tsukasa unleashes a far more powerful version of the exact same attack. For the first time, Tadu actually looks shocked that he has been completely outmatched. Right before Tsukasa's blade punches a massive hole straight through his chest. Seeing the kid finally staggered, Tsukasa knows this is his one and only chance. But with his last bit of strength, Tadu activates one final desperate skill, Sleep. This corrupted kid then collapses to the ground, completely out of the fight for now. Unfortunately, that is when the salamander breaks free and his power-up only has 45 seconds left. With Lufin back by his side, Tsukasa declares it is time to go all out on the real boss. This lava lizard winds up a colossal punch, ready to smash him into a pulp. and Tsukasa charges forward to meet the attack, ready to bet everything on this final clash. This salamander lets out a furious roar, its body crackling with that same dark energy, but Tsukasa plants his feet, ready to unleash his final all-or-nothing attack. He channels every last bit of his power into a massive wave of celestial energy, leaping into the air to meet the beast head-on with his glowing blue blade. Tsukasa brings his sword down with the full force of his Van Argan skill, only for his weapon to completely shatter against the boss's ridiculously tough hide. Totally unfazed, the giant lizard just roars in his face, ready to retaliate, and with his sword gone, he tries to form a lightning attack, vowing this will be the end. But right on cue, his heavenly authority power-up conveniently expires. This salamander does not waste a second, swatting him across the cavern like a bug. Out of time and options, Tsukasa braces for the worst until Loki's voice cuts in, calling him hopeless. She suddenly appears on the battlefield, offering to help him out just this one time, holding a brand new sword that is practically overflowing with divine fiery power. With a serious look, she simply tells him to use it. Turns out this little trump card was her ace in the hole for a situation just like this. Tsukasa now stands before the legendary blade, its holy fire a stark contrast to the lava, and he stares at the weapon, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, remembering Loki's words about it being her ultimate secret weapon. With renewed hope, he grips the hilt of the flaming sword and thanks her for the save. Now properly equipped for the job, Tsukasa declares he is officially back in the fight. This colossal flaming sword slams into the ground, radiating an absolutely insane amount of power. And even from the sidelines, Rin can tell this weapon's power surpasses her own holy sword. Loki casually introduces it as Levitane, the mythical flame that consumes all of creation, telling Tsukasa to show the boss what a fire that burns even gods can really do. With a determined look in his eyes, our boy is more than ready to oblige, and he grabs the legendary blade, confident he can finally end this fight for good. Wreathed in divine flames, Tsukasa rockets forward to meet the salamander's charge, and the giant lizard lunges, ready to tear him apart with its massive jaws. But Tsukasa does not even flinch, his eyes glowing with pure, unyielding focus. He meets the beast's claw head-on, deflecting the blow with his new sword. Gripping the hilt tightly, he prepares to unleash the blade's true, overwhelming power, as the divine fire easily tears through the boss's tough, rocky hide. And Tsukasa follows through with a massive, sweeping slash. This attack sends the salamander stumbling back, its arm completely scorched, so he presses the advantage, landing another blow that makes the monster roar in agony. Even Tsukasa is stunned by the sheer destructive force of this new weapon, while Loki just laughs, proudly declaring it is her personal favorite of course. Pushed into a corner, the salamander starts charging up a massive breath attack, unleashing a colossal beam of concentrated fire and dark energy right at him. But Tsukasa just plants his feet, ready to counter the final attack with everything he has got. Tsukasa swings the legendary blade, unleashing a massive wave of divine fire, which collides directly with the salamander's dark energy beam in a spectacular clash. And this divine flame takes the form of a giant phoenix, completely swallowing the attack, effortlessly tearing through the boss's ultimate skill with overwhelming power. This resulting inferno engulfs the giant lizard, leaving it no room to escape. From the sidelines, Loki smugly notes he is only using a third of the sword's potential. This salamander lets out one last, agonizing roar from inside the pillar of fire, but Tsukasa just tells it to shut up, leaping in for the final blow, screaming at the top of his lungs for the monster to just die already. He channels every last bit of his focus into one final vertical slash, bringing the world-ending flame of Levitane down with absolute finality, and the dungeon boss is completely vaporized in a blinding explosion of light. When the smoke finally clears, the once mighty salamander is totally gone, leaving behind nothing but a single glowing monster core as proof of its defeat. A battered Rin can hardly believe he pulled it off, immediately asking if to do is okay. And thankfully, the corrupted kid is just knocked out cold on the ground but safe. Loki internally scoffs, thinking if he struggled this much, his dream of killing a god is a joke. Tsukasa approaches, admitting she is as harsh as ever but thanking her for the clutch save. She gets all flustered, telling him not to get used to it because she will not always be there. But their post-battle chat is cut short as all three of them look up in absolute shock. But their victory lap is cut short by a mysterious fox-eared woman appearing on a ledge, who looks down on Loki with pure contempt, disgusted she'd ally with a mere human. Loki just glares right back, spitting the name Vixen like it is a personal insult. Meanwhile, a battered Rin and a tiny wolf can only stare, completely out of their depth, and it clicks for her in an instant. This newcomer is not human, she is a monster. Tsukasa starts to put the pieces together, asking Loki if this is the one who. But the fox lady immediately shuts him down, telling the human to know his place. She then unleashes a wave of pure oppressive energy that slams into the entire party. Right as the pressure hits, Loki claps her hands together, preparing some kind of counter, and Tsukasa looks over to see her glowing with a new power, telling him not to be childish, because she is about to show him a real fight to the death between two actual gods. Our boy is just completely floored, having no idea what this new, more mature form even is. This Vixen notes that Loki's grown a bit but claims she is still nowhere near her full power. Loki just smirks, declaring this form is more than enough to end her right here. Her opponent just scoffs, mocking her for trying to fight while protecting two deadweights. Turns out that was the wrong thing to say, as the fox lady's aura absolutely explodes with rage. And she gets right in Loki's face, telling the wicked god to prepare to die. That is when it all clicks for Tsukasa. He realizes she's the one who cursed his sister. Loki confirms his fears, naming her as Tamamo no Mi, the lord of a mythocrank dungeon. With a smug grin, Tamamo reveals she is the mastermind behind everything, including his sister's curse. With the flaming sword in hand, Tsukasa finally puts it all together, and he absolutely loses it, screaming that she is the one who hurt his sister. Loki tries to talk some sense into him, pointing out he is way too weak to fight her right now. But our boy ignores this perfectly good advice and charges in like a madman. He leaps forward, ready to bring the full power of Levitane down on her head. But the fox lady just gives him a smug little smirk, completely unimpressed. Tsukasa follows through with a massive swing, unleashing a torrent of divine flame, only for her to stop the legendary blade with 2 fingers, mocking his pathetic strength. She casually flicks him away, breaking his stance with almost zero effort, and then lands a direct palm strike right into his chest. This sends a shockwave of dark energy blasting him across the cavern floor, leaving Loki to deliver a classic "I told you so" as Rin watches in horror. Not one to give up, Tsukasa activates his Flame Master skill, summoning a swarm of fire skulls. He immediately launches the entire volley straight at the dungeon lord, who seems to recognize it as one of Todu's old party tricks. She calls the attack nothing more than a cheap light show, pulling out a fan, and with a single elegant wave she takes control of every single fireball. These flames are now infused with her own sinister purple energy, which she promptly sends flying right back in Tsukasa's shocked face. His own attack slams into him full force, leaving him screaming in agony. This cavern erupts in a massive explosion as Tsukasa gets a taste of his own medicine, and Loki casually explains that her fan's ability is to reflect any skill thrown at her. Tamamo just smirks, gloating that it is basically impossible for a human to even touch her. Barely able to stand, Tsukasa pushes himself up, completely furious at the power gap, which seems to genuinely surprise the fox lady, who did not expect him to get up at all. She gives him the classic villain speech, admitting his spirit is impressive but ultimately useless. Despite the damage, our boy is still glaring at her with pure, unadulterated rage, and that is when Tamamo finally puts 2 and 2 together, realizing he is related to someone she killed. A wicked grin spreads across her face as she finds the whole situation incredibly amusing. Tsukasa is completely lost, demanding to know what the hell she is talking about, but she just taunts him, saying he will have to beat her if he wants any answers. That is all the motivation he needs, because he charges in again, screaming his head off, only for her to effortlessly counter by unleashing the full power of her 9 tails. He is immediately caught in a whirlwind of strikes, completely unable to defend himself, and gets blasted back by the sheer force of her overwhelming assault. This impact leaves him spitting up blood, clearly on his last legs, and Tamamo stands over him, mocking him for being softer than cotton candy. She then decides to add a little salt to the wound, preparing to curse him just like his sister, gathering a swirling orb of pure malicious energy right in her palm. But at the last second, Rin throws herself in front of Tsukasa to shield him from the blast. This curse slams into Rin full force, and she lets out a pain scream as the dark energy consumes her, sending her flying back onto the cavern floor completely unconscious. Tsukasa rushes to her side as a system window confirms she is now afflicted with the exact same curse, and Tamamo just yawns, calling their little display of friendship a total bore. Our boy absolutely snaps, screaming at the dungeon lord to shut her mouth. But she just finds his anger adorable, taunting him that Rin is on a very short timer. Before he can move, a new voice cuts through the tension, telling the vixen to be quiet, and suddenly glowing red chains erupt from the ground, binding Tamamo completely. Turns out Loki's had enough of this sideshow, dropping in from above to finally intervene, telling the fox lady she has been playing around for far too long. She follows up with a devastating kick that sends Tamamo rocketing into the cavern wall, landing gracefully in front of a stunned Tsukasa, ready to take over the fight. She calls him a fool for mistaking recklessness for bravery, ordering him to stay back. Tamamo gets up, calling Loki a coward for relying on a cheap surprise attack, but Loki just fires right back, calling her a toilet insect who only schemes from the shadows. These two gods just start laughing maniacally, their mutual hatred reaching a fever pitch, and with pure murder in their eyes, they both declare that the other one is dead meat. Their auras explode, shattering the ground around them as they prepare for an all-out brawl, and Loki closes the distance in an instant, throwing a punch right at Tamamo's face. But the fox lady blocks with her fan, preparing a vicious counterslash of her own. Loki's chains erupt to bind Tamamo mid-swing, but the fox lady just calls her predictable, and she immediately tells Tsukasa to grab Rin and run while she has got her pinned. But our boy is still stuck on revenge, so Loki has to scream the obvious: he cannot win. From above, Tamamo smugly agrees, basically telling Loki she is babysitting a lost cause. With a single flex of her power, she shatters the divine chains like they were made of glass, immediately firing a massive energy beam right back at her opponent. But Loki dodges with a smirk, admitting that was a little too close for comfort. Tamamo calls her weak for running, so Loki just dares her to finish the job already. This dungeon lord just scoffs, calling it a cheap attempt to get under her skin, and then turns to leave, prompting Loki to ask if the big bad is actually running away. Tamamo gives a classic villain invitation, telling them to follow her if they want to die. Tsukasa, of course, is having none of that and tries to charge after her again, forcing Loki to physically restrain him while calling him a complete and utter fool. That is when Tamamo dangles the bait, an invitation to her dungeon to lift the curses. She formally invites him to the Mythocrank Nine Tales of Purity dungeon, dropping the letter as she warns him the clock is ticking for both Rin and his sister. Tsukasa is still fighting Loki's grip, screaming that he'd rather die than let her escape. So having had enough of this heroic nonsense, Loki just puts him to sleep with a spell. As he passes out, Tsukasa swears on his life that he will never ever forgive her. With our boy finally unconscious, Loki just sighs, knowing Tamamo made a huge mistake not killing them. Loki is absolutely seething, promising Tamamo is going to regret this little stunt. This Fox Lady's parting shot is a stark reminder that the clock is ticking for both girls. Even as he is losing consciousness, Tsukasa is still screaming pure defiance. Next thing he knows, our boy wakes up alone in a sterile-looking hospital room. He is completely disoriented, trying to piece together how he got here from the dungeon, when he sees Loki just chilling in a chair, waiting for him to come to. Tsukasa immediately grabs her, demanding to know why she stopped him, and she hits him with the obvious: he would have died. After he calms down a bit, she tells him there are two important things he needs to know. And of course, she offers him the classic good news or bad news ultimatum. This bad news is lying right there in the next bed, with Rin still completely out cold. Loki confirms she took the curse that was meant for him when she jumped in the way. This hits Tsukasa like a truck, the guilt of his reckless charge finally sinking in. She adds that his sister's condition has not changed, meaning they are both on a very tight schedule. Our boy is about to fly off the handle again, but Loki tells him to hold his horses. She reminds him he still has not heard the good news she mentioned earlier. That gets his attention, and he asks what could possibly be good about this mess. Loki drops the bombshell: there actually is a way to defeat that nine-tailed monster. Hope flares right back up in his eyes, and he desperately asks her to tell him how. She lays out the one very steep condition: he will have to give up being human. With a dead serious look, she asks if he is truly prepared to go that far for revenge. Without a second of hesitation, Tsukasa tells her he will do whatever it takes to win. Loki accepts his resolve, satisfied that he is finally ready to get serious. With a snap of her fingers, she summons a massive glowing golden gate right in the hospital room, and our boy can only stare, asking where the hell they are supposed to be going. She gives him a sly look, revealing their destination is Valhalla, a hall reserved for gods. This divine sanctuary, she explains, is about to become his personal training ground. They step through the portal into a breathtaking heavenly realm floating high above the clouds. As they walk across the pristine courtyard, Tsukasa is completely awestruck by the scale of the place, but he immediately collapses to the ground, crushed by an overwhelming spiritual pressure. A new pink-haired woman appears, casually commenting on how pathetic he looks already. Just then, a towering knight in full armor arrives, addressing the woman as Hildur. This imposing Valkyrie seems relieved to see that her master, Loki, has returned safely. Loki and Hildur exchange pleasantries, both glad to see the other is doing well. That is when the Valkyrie finally notices the human gasping on the floor, asking who he is. Loki introduces Tsukasa as her partner, quickly clarifying it is nothing more than that. She then orders Hildur to train him until he is strong enough to fend for himself against them. Both Tsukasa and the Valkyrie are completely stunned by this sudden, insane request. Loki just waves off their shock, telling Hildur to treat it as an amusing little diversion. While Hildur agrees to the task, Tsukasa protests, asking if this is what she meant by training. She confirms it is a place for training, but smugly adds that his results are entirely his problem. Loki lays it out cold: if he wants to save them, he'd better train like his life depends on it. Hildur is shocked he is trying to fight a god, but Loki explains the curse means he has no choice. Fired up, Tsukasa declares he is here to get stronger for everyone's sake, not just his own. This Valkyrie accepts his resolve, and Loki officially hands him over for his special training. With a massive surge of power, Hildur promises to train him properly to slay the Nine Tails. Turns out his new trainer is a level 80 Einherjar who politely asks him to please not die. Tsukasa just glares back with pure determination, telling her to bring it on. Their stage is set in the heavenly sanctuary of Valhalla, a private training ground. Hildur activates her martial mastery skill, explaining the training will be brutally simple. His one and only task is to somehow find a way to defeat her in combat. Our boy accepts the terms without hesitation, summoning his sword for round 1. This Valkyrie asks Loki for a starting signal, but the goddess just calls the whole thing tedious. She complains about warriors being so formal, telling them to just get on with it already. Despite her whining, Loki gives the signal anyway, officially starting the lesson. Tsukasa immediately charges in, his flaming sword clashing against Hildur's massive blade. He is instantly overpowered, with the Valkyrie mocking his pathetic attempt to challenge a god. She breaks his guard with ease and lands a devastating punch right in his stomach. Calling his effort absurd, Hildur raises her sword for a decisive overhead strike, and our boy can only watch as a massive energy slash comes right for him. This attack connects, sending him flying across the ground, completely helpless. Hildur tells him to get up since this pathetic display was just the warm-up, but Tsukasa takes a moment to reassure his little wolf companion that he is totally fine. He asks the wolf, Lufin, to lend him its strength for the next round. And seeing their bond, Hildur agrees to train them both, demanding they actually try this time. With the faces of Rin and his sister Mayu burning in his mind, Tsukasa's resolve hardens. He gets back to his feet, declaring he has no time to waste and will absolutely defeat her. This second round begins with Tsukasa desperately weaving through a storm of sword slashes, barely dodging the flurry of attacks while looking for any possible opening in her defense. Finally finding a gap, he rushes in, his flaming sword clashing against her massive blade. And at the same time, Lufin lunges from below, creating a perfect pincer attack. Hildur actually complements their teamwork right before her martial mastery skill kicks in, and she effortlessly blocks both of them, calling their combined effort not nearly good enough. A single burst of energy sends the duo flying back, their coordinated assault completely shut down. Not giving up, Tsukasa activates his Flame Master skill, erupting pillars of fire all around her. But the Valkyrie is completely unimpressed by the light show, letting out a dismissive scoff. She just raises a golden energy shield, neutralizing his entire attack without even moving. Turns out it was a feint. Tsukasa appears right behind her while she is distracted by the flames. He winds up for a full-power flaming punch, aiming right for her unguarded back. But unfortunately for him, she catches his fist without even looking, stopping him dead. Even with his attack caught, Tsukasa screams with defiance, trying to force his way through her grip. Hildur casually parries his flaming sword, the sheer force of the impact shaking the entire arena. Our boy gets blown back, realizing he cannot even scratch her as she mocks his pathetic attempt. Watching from afar, Loki admits he has grown enough to make it a fight, though Hildur is not even trying. She quickly decides that is enough of a beating for one day and prepares to intervene. With a single command, she tells Tsukasa to put his sword away, ending the session right there. A quick scene change takes them from the battlefield to somewhere much more comfortable, and it turns out training's over means it is time for a 5-star meal in a grand dining hall. He tries to ask a serious question, but Loki immediately assumes he is after her food priorities. Tsukasa questions the logic of a feast when they are on a tight schedule to save everyone. His trainer, now playing waitress, just tells him not to be in such a rush to get back to it. She explains that rest is a crucial part of training, but Tsukasa is still stressing about the clock. Loki casually drops a bombshell while munching on a drumstick. A year here is just a day back home. This, of course, sends Tsukasa into a panic, yelling that this was need-to-know information. Hildur just shuts him down, telling him to quit whining and get ready for the next session. Defeated, our boy just agrees to the new schedule, finally accepting the situation. Meanwhile, Loki just watches him with a sigh, thinking what a handful this human is. Later that night, Loki asks for Hildur's assessment, and the Valkyrie bluntly states he does not know his place. Loki just laughs at the harsh critique, but Hildur points out many humans have tried to challenge the gods. In her experience, they are all just fools chasing their own selfish dreams and ambitions. But this kid, she admits, is different. He is willing to risk it all to save someone else. Hildur admits she does not mind his type, and Loki agrees he is at least entertaining. A time skip of 3 years brings us to Hildur asking Tsukasa about their running score. He calmly states it is 999 battles, with him losing every single one of them. For 3 long years, he has done nothing but clash with this impossibly strong Valkyrie, and every single time he has been the one left tasting the divine pavement. Hildur declares this their final battle, warning that if he cannot win now, he is hopeless. She even gives him permission to use heavenly authority, letting him go all out. And with a final challenge, she tells him to bring everything he has got for this last round. Tsukasa just grips his sword, accepting the terms without a word of protest. He immediately activates heavenly authority, his body erupting with a swirling blue aura. With his eyes glowing, our boy declares that he is finally ready to face her. This arena explodes in a flurry of blue energy slashes as he unleashes his new power, but Hildur just blocks the onslaught, telling him it is still not good enough. Tsukasa screams back that he is only just getting started with this fight, and activates another skill, Vanargandi, taking his power to the next level. A massive, shadowy beast manifests behind him, roaring with pure, untamed energy. In response, Hildur activates her own pseudo-divine armament, preparing a counterattack. She unleashes a massive golden sigil, a defensive move called Aegis Tina. This Valkyrie smirks, having completely predicted his trump card was coming. His shadowy form is instantly engulfed by the golden light, his attack completely neutralized. But Tsukasa has one more trick up his sleeve, calling on Lufin for a final push. And his wolf companion dives in from above, creating a pincer attack that stuns Hildur, as their combined shadowy forms slam into her shield from 2 directions at once. The sheer force of the coordinated assault is so immense it completely shatters her helmet. And for the first time in 1,000 battles, his attack finally connects with explosive force. When the smoke clears, Hildur stands with her armor cracked, offering a simple well done. She praises his conviction, admitting that with a strike like that, he is ready to face a god. After 3 long years of getting his face pounded into the floor, our boy has finally won. Hildur formally concedes defeat, acknowledging just how strong he has become. Tsukasa bows deeply, thanking her for the brutal training that made it all possible. Loki appears out of nowhere, immediately teasing him about being captivated by Hildur's face. He gets completely flustered, denying it and claiming he was just surprised to see her without a helmet. Hildur just laughs it off, saying she can understand but her own beauty pales next to Loki's. Loki suggests she ditch the armor more often, but Hildur insists it is her duty as a knight. With the training officially complete, Loki claps her hands together, announcing it is time for the fox hunt. Before they go, however, she instructs Hildur to give Tsukasa a little parting gift. This Valkyrie places a hand on his head, preparing to bestow a portion of her power. His copycat skill kicks in, successfully duplicating her legendary Einherjar ability. She explains this new power will allow him to temporarily transcend his human limits, but it puts a massive strain on his body, so he will have to use it wisely. Hildur also gives Lufin a parting gift, a special item to use if Tsukasa is ever in danger, and the little wolf happily accepts the new responsibility with a loud bark. Loki then reminds Tsukasa that this whole ordeal was the answer to her question about his humanity. She looks at him with a newfound respect, her expression completely serious. And Hildur, too, shares a look of solemn acknowledgement with her student. Tsukasa bows his head, thanking them both for giving him the strength to finally fight back. For a moment, even the goddess of mischief seems genuinely moved by his gratitude. Hildur compliments Loki on her choice of champion, and the goddess just smugly agrees. With all the pleasantries out of the way, Loki asks for the plan, a direct assault on the fox, but Tsukasa wants to see Rin and his sister Mayu first, knowing this could be goodbye. Back in the real world, he visits Rin's bedside, apologizing for what happened to her. He swears on his life that he will defeat the Nine Tails and end this curse for good. Arriving home, his sister Mayu immediately runs to him, frantic with worry. She is the first to notice the change. He seems older, asking if he somehow aged. Tsukasa just laughs it off, not quite appreciating being called old by his little sister. Getting serious, he tells her there is something she needs to know before he leaves again. He drops the bombshell that he is heading to a mythic dungeon to save them both. Our boy explains this is all his fault since he started this to cure her illness anyway. With his mind made up, he tells her he has no other choice but to see this through. Instead of arguing, Mayu just takes his hand, asking him to make her a promise. Mayu grabs his hand, making him promise that he will come back no matter what. And Tsukasa just gives her a calm, confident smile, his resolve now absolute. He pats her head, swearing he will defeat the god and definitely return to her side. Through her tears, Mayu agrees to believe in him and wait for his return. With his goodbyes finally said, he pulls out the sealed invitation from the Nine Tails. This letter rips open a swirling purple portal, with Loki's voice taunting him for showing up. Tsukasa just smirks, saying it is only natural since he is the one who issued the challenge. Mayu gives him one last tearful farewell, telling her brother to take care. He gives a final determined look, completely prepared for what is to come. Without another word, Tsukasa steps directly into the ominous dimensional rift. He and Loki emerge on the other side, fully geared up for the final battle. Inside a grand hall, the fox spirit mockingly congratulates him for not running away. Tsukasa is completely done with the speeches, his flaming sword already drawn, and with glowing eyes he declares he is here to kill her, telling her to bring it on. This fox spirit just gives him a condescending smirk, completely unfazed by the threat. She asks if he is really dumb enough to fight her one-on-one without his wolf companion. He confirms it without hesitation, vowing to cut her down all by himself. This fox just sighs dramatically, as if dealing with a particularly annoying child. Calling him as reckless as ever, her own eyes begin to glow with dark power, as her nine tails erupt behind her, telling the human to learn his place. This fox spirit promises to make him suffer until he begs her to end it all. Tsukasa just throws her words right back at her, sword already blazing, and with glowing eyes he swears there will be absolutely no forgiveness for her. After the mandatory pre-fight stare-down, they finally decide to get on with it. Tsukasa immediately closes the distance, unleashing a flurry of fiery sword strikes. Swinging with all the power he gained from 3 years of brutal training, he brings his blade down in what should be a decisive overhead blow, but she blocks it with a fan, of all things, looking completely unimpressed. She mockingly asks if he has abandoned his humanity to get this strong, and he confirms it with a swift kick, yelling he will do anything to kill a god. This fox spirit gets sent flying back across the hall from the unexpected physical attack, giving Tsukasa an opening to launch a volley of fireballs right at her. She lands perfectly, calling him insolent for daring to kick a divine being. With a flick of her fan, she prepares a counterattack of her own, unleashing a storm of purple energy blades to put him back in his place. Tsukasa braces himself as the two opposing barrages head straight for each other. And the entire hall erupts in a massive explosion of light and energy. When the smoke clears, our boy is fine and Loki has conveniently appeared to spectate. She explains the fox's fan is a divine item that reflects all skill-based attacks, leaving Tsukasa to realize her weapon is an even bigger problem than her own powers. This fox spirit mocks him for spacing out, conjuring a ball of purple energy in her hand, and with a condescending smirk, she activates a new skill called sorcery, unleashing a 1,000-blade petal dance to completely overwhelm him. But Tsukasa tries to burn them away with a wide swing of his flaming sword, only to realize these are not just petals, they are razor-sharp blades, forcing him to spin wildly just to deflect the incoming storm, which then detonate on impact, filling the entire hall with explosions. She just calls him naive for even trying to fight back, explaining her sorcery-forged blades cannot be destroyed by his normal fire. Realizing he is outmatched, Tsukasa decides it is time to stop holding back, and with his blue aura flaring, he calls her out by name for round 2. Tamamonomi is clearly not amused, calling him an irritating human, and with a flick of her fan, she sends the petal blades straight for him. Tsukasa meets the attack head-on, his own blue energy clashing with her purple storm. Moving so fast, he becomes a blur of light cutting through the chaos. And for the first time, the fox spirit looks genuinely shocked by his speed. Furious, she screams that a human should know his place, pouring more power into her attack. But Tsukasa just slams his hand on the ground, preparing a counter of his own, unleashing a massive vortex of energy that tears right through her assault, leaving her completely stunned that he managed to cut through her divine sorcery. She mocks him for thinking mid-battle, still reeling from him shattering her divine attack. But he is not thinking, he is moving, catching her completely by surprise with his speed, and closing the distance in an instant, his blue aura clashing with her own power. This fox spirit finally realizes his power level is absolutely absurd for a mere human, correctly guessing there has to be a catch, probably a time limit on this ridiculous power-up. Tsukasa does not even bother denying it, confirming her suspicions with a confident smirk, and instead declares he is giving up on being human entirely to see this through. With a roar, he unleashes the full might of the power Hildur gave him, activating his Einherjar skill which lets him wield divine power at a heavy cost. He bets his entire life on this single moment, vowing to end her right here and now. Tamamonomi is floored, realizing he has overcome a fundamental divine law and blames Loki. Loki just appears on the sidelines, explaining this is exactly what Tsukasa wanted. This fox spirit loses her cool, screaming that helping a human is completely unacceptable. But Loki just shrugs, asking who exactly made that rule in the first place. She claims it is her call whether humanity lives or dies, so deal with it, and even threatens to personally end Tamamonomi if she has a problem with it. But she clarifies that she is not the one who will be passing judgment today, turning the spotlight back to Tsukasa, telling him to show the fox what he is made of. Our boy prepares a new attack, dark energy swirling in his empowered hand, and Tamamonomi grits her teeth, promising to shatter that resolve into a million pieces. Tamamonomi absolutely loses it, screaming she will tear him to pieces, and unleashes a massive wave of purple energy straight from her fan. But our boy just raises a hand, his own blue aura flaring to life, ready to meet her divine power with his own borrowed might. And the two attacks collide, filling the entire hall with a blinding flash of light. Tsukasa tears right through the explosion, closing the distance in an instant, slamming his flaming sword right into her guard and forcing her back. He does not give her a second to breathe, following up with a brutal kick, which sends her flying just in time to get blasted by a volley of fireballs. This fox spirit is furious, screaming at him not to underestimate a goddess, and just barely manages to deflect the flames, calling his power nothing special. She tells him he should have learned his lesson by now, clearly rattled by his persistence. Tsukasa, however, is done with lessons and is already swinging again, gripping his sword with both hands as dark energy begins to swirl around the blade. He unleashes a new skill, a massive arc of pure black slashes, which slams directly into her, erupting in a devastating explosion. She somehow manages to block the worst of it, but she is definitely feeling that one, and now she is bruised and bleeding, telling the human not to get cocky. Too bad for her, Tsukasa is already in her face, his fist ready to fly, and he lands a clean right hook, sending the goddess spiraling through the air. She crashes to the ground, the impact rattling the entire hall. And absolutely livid, she screams at him for daring to lay a hand on a god. With a vow of no forgiveness, her divine aura explodes in a pillar of raw power, and she unleashes her 9 tails in a furious, sweeping attack. Tsukasa meets the onslaught head-on, his blue energy clashing with her divine rage, weaving through the storm of attacks with his blade blazing. While clutching her wounds, she curses him, trying to heal through the damage. But our boy gives her no time to recover, already charging up another massive fire attack. He begins chanting a new, complex skill, layering multiple incantations for his ultimate move, and the spell culminates in a massive pillar of celestial blue energy erupting from the ground, completely engulfing the fox spirit in a blinding vortex of light. When the light fades, Loki appears, reminding Tsukasa that the fight is far from over. She smirks, warning him that even a cornered rat will bite back viciously. And from the smoke, Tamamonomi is absolutely seething at the insult. She screams that a mere mortal has forced her to get serious, her power flaring uncontrollably. Just then, Loki yanks Tsukasa out of the way of an unseen danger. She tells him to watch closely because the fox is finally showing her true form. A skill activates and her body begins to shift into a massive celestial beast, revealing a monstrous 9-tailed fox who promises him a fate worse than death. Loki confirms this is her full power, telling Tsukasa to get ready for the real final battle. Tsukasa squares up against the giant 9-tailed fox, who unleashes a flurry of attacks, and with his sword burning bright, our boy prepares to meet her full power head-on. He unleashes a massive vortex of dark energy, spinning it into a concentrated blast, but the giant beast just counters with a massive energy beam from its mouth. She mocks him for being too slow as her tail slams down with overwhelming force, and the sheer impact of the blow sends Tsukasa flying back across the hall. This fox seems pretty confident that one hit was enough to put him down for good, but Tsukasa is already back on his feet, finally getting a taste of a god's true strength. Tamamonomi roars, clearly not planning to make this an easy win for him, and immediately fires another devastating beam of pure destructive energy. Tsukasa throws up a massive shield of dark power, but she just scoffs at the attempt, as her divine attack begins to shatter his defense, pushing him to his absolute limit. He somehow manages to slice through the beam with a desperate swing of his flaming sword, landing on the ground just as the colossal fox looms over him once more. Our boy is clearly exhausted, the strain of using divine power finally catching up to him, and the fox mocks him for struggling, pointing out his borrowed power is already fading away. Tsukasa just smirks back, asking if she is blind while conjuring flames in his hand. Declaring the real fight is just getting started as he unleashes a storm of fire, and charges straight through the inferno to get right in the giant beast's face. A brilliant plan right up until he gets swatted away like an absolute gnat, but her attack gets intercepted by a flash of white fur and pure rage, while she mocks Tsukasa's flickering aura, promising to make his end slow. At that exact moment, a magic circle erupts at his feet, summoning a tiny blue wolf. And our boy is just as shocked as anyone to see his little buddy here. Tamamonomi scoffs at the backup, asking what a lowly creature could possibly do, but the little wolf strains with every ounce of its being glowing with power, before launching itself straight at the colossal nine-tailed beast. Tsukasa finally recognizes the collar around its neck as the one from Hildur, and the fox spirit realizes she is looking at the legendary god-eating silver wolf. In a blinding flash, the tiny pup transforms into a monstrous celestial beast, landing with a thud to challenge the goddess to a proper kaiju battle. These two divine animals roar, ready to tear each other to absolute shreds, leaving Tsukasa on the sidelines wondering what in the world is even happening anymore. This wolf gets immediately caught in a storm of dark red slashes, completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the fox's attacks. Tamamonomi unleashes her full aura, asserting her dominance in this fight, screaming that a mere wolf should have known better than to challenge her. She blasts it with a massive wave of concentrated divine energy, sending the giant wolf tumbling through the air like a chew toy. Loki casually explains this is the wolf's true form Fenrir, but it is still nowhere near its full potential. Turns out the collar is a one-time use item, letting the wolf temporarily become its future self. And Tsukasa is completely stunned, wondering what kind of insane gift Hildur gave his pet Roof. As the fox shrieks, Loki adds that this forced transformation is on a very tight time limit, putting the pressure back on Tsukasa by telling him he has to land the final blow. Our boy gets the message loud and clear, his flaming sword flaring up for the fight. These two divine beasts immediately clash, Fenrir's blue aura pushing back against the fox's power. And for a moment, it actually seems like the wolf has the upper hand in this kaiju brawl, dodging her attacks and lunging forward with lightning speed, ready to strike. Tamamonomi is absolutely furious, screaming about his so-called cheap tricks, and unleashes a massive counterattack of pure purple energy from her tails. She conjures a vortex of inextinguishable divine curse flames to end this once and for all, which immediately engulfs Fenrir, the dark energy eating away at its form. This wolf struggles against the curse, its massive body being pushed back by the onslaught, before the whole thing erupts in an explosion of absolutely insane divine power. When the smoke clears, Roof is down for the count, bleeding out on the floor. Tsukasa screams his name, but Loki notes his own body is failing under the strain of his power-up. This fox just gloats over the fallen wolf, calling both master and pet utterly foolish for defying her. That is the last straw for Tsukasa, who charges forward in a blaze of blue fury. And despite Loki's warning, he grips his sword, ready to go all out. He unleashes a massive firestorm, which the fox meets with a scowl, annoyed by his persistence. Tsukasa rushes to his partner's side, but Roof is already growling, not even close to done. Despite being told to rest, the giant wolf forces himself back onto his feet, ready for more. For a split second, all the wolf can see is his master, reflecting in his determined eyes. Tsukasa gets the message loud and clear, they are going to finish this fight together. With a shared battle cry, the two of them charge the nine-tailed goddess head-on, but she just unleashes another storm of her signature dark red slashes, and complains that her opponents are being incredibly repetitive with their tactics. She decides to end the boredom by activating her ultimate skill, a vortex of deadly magic petals. Tsukasa and Roof agree on the only logical plan, charge straight through the death storm. These two get absolutely swallowed by the goddess's overwhelming attack, a whirlwind of destruction, and their combined power erupts in a massive explosion that rocks the entire hall. Tamamonomi cannot believe they are actually pushing through her ultimate magic. Tsukasa knows they are on a timer, debating if he can risk a point-blank finisher, but he cannot even get close with her tails whipping around, leaving him totally stuck. That is when Roof makes a break for it, using his body as a living battering ram, tanking every single hit from the petal storm just to carve a path forward. He leaps through the chaos, aiming for the one opening Tsukasa desperately needed, and with a savage roar, the wolf sinks his fangs right into the goddess's throat. Tsukasa gets a little choked up, realizing his pet is the best partner he could ask for. With the fox pinned, he prepares to unleash his own final move, Divine Catastrophe. He unleashes his ultimate technique, Fangs of Heaven, pouring every last ounce of his borrowed power into a single maximum output strike, and launches a Godspeed slash that tears through the entire hall, which detonates in a blinding explosion of divine energy. When the smoke clears, Roof has reverted to his tiny form, both of them completely spent. This backlash hits Tsukasa like a truck, the strain finally catching up to him, but he forces himself to hold on, knowing he cannot let his power fade yet. Meanwhile, Tamamonomi is back in her humanoid form, furious at the disrespect, and with a face full of rage, she vows to send him straight to the underworld. But Tsukasa uses her monologue as the perfect opening to charge right at her. She is completely stunned by the sneak attack, unable to react in time, As he closes the distance, reminding her that he is here to cut her down, she scoffs at his arrogance, blasting him with her own power, and unleashes what she calls the curse of the gods to end him for good. Except Tsukasa grabs her arm mid-cast, telling her not to move an inch. He somehow binds her with celestial chains, turning her own attack back on her. And the divine curse immediately engulfs its own master in a storm of dark energy. Our boy just coldly asks how it feels to be burned by her own power. Suddenly, she is begging, promising to lift the curses on everyone if he just lets her go. Tsukasa's response is ice cold, his only thought being of his tormented sister, Mayu. Tsukasa absolutely snaps, screaming that he'd never listen to a monster like her. But the fox just gives him a blood-soaked grin, ready to play her trump card. She dangles the truth about his parents' deaths right in front of his face, and our boy is completely thrown, asking what she is even talking about. Tamamonomi just laughs, mocking him for being so hopelessly out of the loop, while Tsukasa struggles to process the sudden and bizarre change in topic. That is when she reveals his parents were actually adventurers just like him. This news hits him hard as she calls his entire family infuriating. And when he asks how she knew them, she drops the real bombshell: she killed them. Turns out she cursed a loved one and told them to sacrifice their friends to lift it, absolutely relishing the sight of them suffering through that impossible choice. But his parents defied her, choosing to fight to protect their unborn child instead. Tsukasa finally puts it all together: the curse was placed on his sister, Mayu. This fox confirms it, admitting she cursed Mayu in the womb but never expected a second child. She calls their sacrifice foolish, claiming they should have just given one up to save themselves. Our boy is just shattered, realizing his parents lied about everything, including Mayu's illness. He asks why she killed them, and she just continues her twisted monologue, comparing their defiance to nothing more than annoying flies buzzing in her face. That is the final straw, and Tsukasa roars her name with every ounce of rage he has, vowing to kill her with his own two hands as he charges forward in a blaze of fury. He slams into her with the force of a freight train, rage fueling his every move, but she just laughs it off, claiming a little scratch like this is nothing to a goddess. Tsukasa reminds her that even if she heals, her divine power is still draining away, so she launches a volley of fiery projectiles straight at him in annoyance, calling him a dead man walking for daring to lecture her on her own power. The sheer force of the attack has him gritting his teeth, struggling to hold his ground, but he pushes through anyway, landing another solid blow right in her gut. Now she is genuinely furious, calling him impudent for actually managing to hurt her. Deciding to stop playing around, she summons her 5 Shikigami fox spirits, a pack of colorful magic beasts meant to pass judgment on this arrogant human. Tsukasa immediately finds himself on the defensive, dodging the pack's coordinated assault. But these things are relentless, swarming him from every possible angle. He decides to counter with some over-the-top theatrics of his own, invoking the stars, and unleashes a massive meteor shower of pure blue energy to wipe them out. This entire hall erupts in a blinding explosion from his all-out attack, leaving Tsukasa completely winded from the sheer power output. Unfortunately for him, the 5 fox spirits emerge from the smoke totally unscathed. In fact, all he managed to do was make them even angrier than before, and they immediately retaliate, blasting him with a combined wave of raw energy. This pack circles in for the kill, ready to tear him apart with their next coordinated strike. This fox goddess gloats about her unbeatable Shikigami, practically begging for a comeback. Because of course, Tsukasa just copied her entire skill set right in front of her face. She completely loses it, screaming about how a mere human could dare to mimic a god's power, while his own blue fox spirits charge forward to give her a taste of her own magic. Tsukasa, now armed with a flaming sword and a new summon, decides it is time to wrap this up. And she could not agree more, admitting she is tired of looking at his detestable face. This two of them face off, their divine auras flaring for one final all-out clash. As Tsukasa makes the first move, leaping across the hall with his blade ready to strike, and starts chanting a laundry list of epic-sounding skill names for his final attack. Not to be outdone, she prepares her own ultimate move, demanding he tremble before her divine judgment, delivering the final, simple verdict with a look of pure contempt: he is going to die. But our boy is fueled by the memory of Mayu and Rin, vowing to end it all right here, pouring every last bit of power into his sword for one world-ending technique, unleashing a storm of pure black divine slashes at maximum possible output. She meets his attack with her own 1,000-blade cherry blossom storm, and the two ultimate skills hurtle towards each other, ready to tear the entire dimension apart. Both combatants scream as they push their power to the absolute breaking point. Their attacks colliding in a blinding flash, a cataclysmic explosion of pure divine energy. As the smoke begins to clear, a single silhouette stands in the wreckage of the hall, revealing a mysterious woman who declares the fight over, but Tsukasa is clearly not done yet. Tsukasa realizes that after that world-ending attack, the fox goddess is somehow still alive, and though she is beaten and bloodied on the floor, she is definitely not out of the fight, because she is already kneeling and regenerating her wounds right before his very eyes. But the mysterious woman tells him not to worry, assuring him the battle is already over. So with Tamamonomi defeated, Tsukasa demands she finally lift the curses on Mayu and Rin. This fox just gives a smug little smile, casually remembering that little promise she made, and her hands start glowing with purple energy as she prepares to fulfill her end of the deal, announcing with a flash of light that all her curses have been lifted, calling it his victory. Tsukasa just watches on stoically as her divine power finally begins to fade away. As a parting gift, she warns him that he will one day come to regret killing a god, but he could not care less, vowing to show no mercy to anyone who threatens his loved ones. Her spirit just laughs as it dissipates, promising to watch his resolve from the great beyond. At that moment, the mysterious woman embraces him, congratulating the new godslayer, revealing her name as Loki and thanking him for finally avenging her own parents. With the fight finally over, she tells him he has earned a chance to finally rest, and he can only agree, admitting that he has pushed himself well past his absolute limit. Just as he is about to relax, shadowy forms suddenly begin descending from the ceiling. And he immediately puts two and two together, realizing you can never, ever trust a fox. This entire grand hall begins to destabilize, revealing it was just a goblin's den all along. So Loki grabs him, yelling that the entire dungeon is collapsing and they have to get out now. Loki holds him close, telling him to heal up before their next big adventure. Our boy is just completely flustered by the sudden and very close quarters comfort. And she just smiles, suggesting they go explore the rest of the world together. But his mind flashes back to the fox goddess's final, ominous warning. He remembers his own cold response, vowing to crush any god for his loved ones. Her spirit had promised to watch his journey with great interest as it faded away. Suddenly, Tsukasa wakes up in a familiar hospital bed, completely disoriented, where a cheerful voice greets him, calling him a total sleepyhead. It is Loki, looking much younger, asking if he remembers this place from before. She even teases him about getting a little taller since they last met. Tsukasa just smiles, chalking it up to some very strict training from a certain god. And of course, Loki proudly takes all the credit because she is just that humble. Meanwhile, Mayu and Rin are rushing down the hall with flowers in hand, having just heard the news that he is finally conscious again. Loki greets them with a smug grin, announcing that their favorite guy is awake. Both of them burst into the room, shouting his name in total disbelief, and Tsukasa just gives a casual wave, apologizing for all the trouble. That earns him a flying tackle from Mayu, who calls him an absolute idiot. She hugs him tight, crying that she was terrified he would never wake up. He just pats her on the head, reassuring his sister that he is okay now. Rin joins the hug, crying that she is just so happy he is back with them. She quietly welcomes him back, thanking him for saving her life yet again. All she can see is the reflection of the guy who risked it all for her. With a radiant smile, she finally gets to thank Tsukasa properly for everything. She even apologizes for dragging him into danger, but he just brushes it off. Rin then winks, reminding him there is something else he needs to check on. So he turns to Mayu, asking if she is feeling any pain now that the curse is gone. She is practically glowing, announcing she feels better than she ever has in her life. Tsukasa is just flooded with relief, finally seeing his sister healthy and happy. Even Loki cannot help but smile, genuinely pleased with how things turned out. Mayu looks up at him with tears in her eyes, thanking her big brother for saving her. This whole group just soaks in the moment, a quiet victory after a brutal fight. But Rin decides it is time to get to the point, nudging Mayu to tell him her big news. He asks what is up, but his sister suddenly gets all shy and hesitant, before blurting out that she wants to become an adventurer, much to his shock. She wants to explore dungeons right alongside him, but he points out she needs skills for that. That is when Loki chimes in, smugly telling him not to worry about the little details. Turns out, being cursed by a goddess for years has some interesting side effects. Because Loki theorizes that Tamamonomi's power might have imprinted on Mayu, and Rin confirms it, announcing that Mayu was examined and has officially acquired a skill. Tsukasa is having a full-blown meltdown over the idea, but Rin tells him to calm down. She gently suggests letting his sister do what she wants, even offering to help out. After a moment, he has to agree, realizing she is finally free to make her own choices. This gives Mayu a brilliant and incredibly mischievous idea. Asking point-blank if Tsukasa and Rin are dating, which catches everyone off guard. He gets completely flustered, desperately trying to deny it while looking to Rin for backup. But she just winks, adding that they are not in that kind of relationship yet. Mayu pouts, admitting it is a shame since she'd love for Rin to be her new big sister. Loki immediately eggs him on to make it happen, then offers to be his sister instead. An offer Tsukasa shuts down immediately, saying he'd never let a mischievous god into his family. Rin is a blushing mess while Mayu just calls her brother's move incredibly bold. Tsukasa just laughs, enjoying the chaotic but happy reunion with everyone. From the side, Loki just smiles, finding his entire situation endlessly amusing. Meanwhile, in a high-level conference room, the mood is anything but cheerful. This guild masters of the top three guilds, Koksu, Saren, and Banrai, are all present, and one of them looks particularly grim, having never imagined this could happen. An official concludes his report on the sudden disappearance of the Goblin's Nest dungeon, leaving the other leaders at the table completely stunned by the news. For 50 years, dungeons have been a constant, so one just vanishing is unheard of. One master calls it a good thing, but another questions calling any dungeon a mere hellhole. This Saren master brings up the oddity of the Goblin's Nest boss constantly reviving, but the Banrai guild master just sees it as a cause for celebration regardless. His colleague argues that is exactly why they need to investigate this historic achievement. So Director To Do, the Banrai master, asks if anyone was inside when it vanished. An aide quickly confirms the dungeon was completely empty at the time of the event, which has everyone at the table breathing a collective sigh of relief. While the Koksu master is stumped, To-Do hints that he might have a lead after all, revealing there are two individuals who recently ran into some major dungeon anomalies. He stares down the other masters, letting his point sink in with a grim look, and the entire room falls silent as the weight of his words hangs in the air. Realizing he is dealing with something big, To-Do orders his aide to pull up their files. Rin's face flashes onto the screen, immediately raising questions from the other leaders. As the aide explains, she and a partner encountered an archdemon in a mid-level dungeon. This Saren master is impressed, chalking it up to Rin's promising future as an adventurer, but To-Do just smirks, telling him he has got the wrong person in mind. Turns out the one who actually defeated the archdemon was a guy named Kisaragi Tsukasa, a fact To-Do confirms while silently apologizing for what he is about to do to the kid. He has clearly got Tsukasa on his mind, seeing him as a key player now, and decides it is time the top guilds had a little chat with this mysterious boy. Meanwhile, Tsukasa is already on the move, completely unaware he is now a person of interest. Tsukasa heads down a spiral staircase, already questioning the intel he was given about this dungeon. But he just shrugs it off with a smirk, not too bothered by a little faulty intelligence. Before him stands a massive door, confirming the official reports were hilariously wrong about the boss's location. Turns out the boss is an archdemon, a familiar skeletal face he has already fought once before. That does not faze him in the slightest. His plan is simply to defeat whatever's in his way. With that simple goal in mind, he pushes open the heavy doors to face the dungeon's master. Spotting a lone figure standing atop a massive pile of rubble at the far end of the chamber, he casually calls out, asking if that is the big boss he is supposed to be fighting here. And in response, a brilliant pillar of golden light slams down right where the figure was standing. This resulting explosion of pure energy is enough to shake the entire boss room. From the light emerges a massive armored demon radiating some serious final boss energy, and its glowing eyes lock onto him, demanding to know who has been rampaging through its castle. Tsukasa is not dropping his guard, cheekily pointing out he had to rampage because it was hiding. He then flips the script, coolly telling the demon not to blame others for its own decisions. That little comment, of course, absolutely infuriates the demon, which begins crackling with power, immediately launching an attack by slamming its fist into the ground with incredible force. Without wasting a second, the beast leaps into the air, diving straight for our boy, even finding time for some mid-air trash talk about why Tsukasa has not drawn his sword. Before he can even react, the demon's massive hand is already clamped around his collar, and it looks like our boy got a little too cocky because a fist is coming in hot. Tsukasa gets absolutely blasted into a wall, barely managing to block the heavy blow, and he realizes this thing is fast, strong, and not even using its full power yet. This demon charges up a nasty-looking green energy attack ready to end this quickly, which promptly detonates with enough force to rattle the entire boss chamber. Its glowing eyes narrow, confident that its little light show was more than enough. But Tsukasa just activates a skill, looking completely unimpressed by the whole display. With his blade finally drawn, he is ready to get serious about this fight, and their clash erupts in a blinding flash, confirming this boss is a different breed. He even notes its close-quarters combat might surpass the fox goddess he fought before. Tsukasa counters with a flurry of slashes, his own sword now wreathed in flames, leaving the demon genuinely shocked, realizing this human is far stronger than it expected. A menacing blue aura flares to life around our boy, his eyes glowing with killing intent. This boss starts having an existential crisis, wondering if he is even human at all. He easily parries another devastating blow, the power gap between them starting to show. Tsukasa compliments its strength, noting it feels way too powerful for a regular dungeon boss. Before dropping the ultimate flex, calmly stating that he has some relevant experience, because he has fought actual gods who are way stronger than this overgrown lizard. With that, he launches himself forward, meeting the demon in a cataclysmic mid-air clash. It is time to end this, so he activates his trump card, the Divine Flames skill, unleashing a vortex of holy fire and telling the boss to enjoy burning to death. This demon throws up a desperate shield, trying to block the holy firestorm coming its way. It cannot believe a mere human could possibly wield this kind of overwhelming power, and its defenses are completely shattered by the sheer force of Tsukasa's attack, sending the boss flying across the room in a shower of embers and defeat. On its knees, the demon demands to know who he is, refusing to accept this outcome. Tsukasa calmly walks forward, simply stating that he is just a human, nothing more. You know, just your average, everyday human who happens to have a history of killing gods. That is when it clicks for the demon. This was not human power, it was divine authority. Finally accepting the massive gap in their strength, it tells Tsukasa to just end it. But our boy has a much better idea, informing the beast it is about to become a test subject. Before the demon can even process that, Tsukasa gives it a simple one-word command: submit. He activates his subjugation skill, unleashing a storm of magical chains from a glowing glyph. These ethereal restraints immediately begin wrapping around the demon's entire body, completely immobilizing it in a tangled, glowing prison of pure energy. Tsukasa casually asks how it feels to be on the receiving end of absolute domination. This chains then shatter, not freeing the demon but sealing the contract between them. Leaving it kneeling before him, now bound to his will as a shadowy servant, he asks it one last time who it is, prompting it to declare its new allegiance. This genocide king demon is officially subjugated, pledging to be his sword and shield, So not only did he beat the boss, he just added a high-tier demon to his personal army. Tsukasa cashes in his dungeon clear reward, the receptionist shocked he is already level 64. And his new id confirms it all, copycat skill and one advanced dungeon conquered. He catches her staring and asks if there is something else she needs, but she just gets flustered, stammering out an apology for her behavior, before leaning in with a serious warning, telling him to be careful of what is coming. He is obviously confused, but she just whispers that she cannot give him any details, leaving him with one final, ominous "be careful" to chew on. Shaking it off for now, Tsukasa finally arrives back at his apartment, where he is immediately greeted by both Mayu and Rin waiting for him in aprons. After confirming his dungeon run was a success, he asks Rin what she is doing there, and she happily explains they are throwing a party to celebrate Mayu's adventure debut. That is when he spots a familiar freeloader, asking why Loki is just chilling on his couch. So the goddess pops up, demanding praise for all the hard work she put into training Mayu. Tsukasa's half-hearted thanks is met with immediate comical displeasure from the tiny god, but Mayu quickly jumps to Loki's defense, telling her brother she was a huge help. She then gives Loki a big hug, which the goddess absolutely milks for all it is worth, proudly boasting that she taught Mayu everything she knows about fighting monsters. His sister confirms it, saying Loki's lessons helped her overcome her fears in the dungeon, leaving Tsukasa to sigh, thinking his sister and the god are getting along way too well. Rin just pats his shoulder sympathetically, but he is not having any of her pity. Mayu cuts through the chaos, announcing dinner's ready and ordering everyone to help set the table. And Tsukasa just goes with it, looking a little tired but mostly amused by the whole situation. At the table, he asks how her first dungeon went, only for Mayu to casually mention she beat the boss, which completely floors him, but Rin explains his sister's skill control is just that incredible. Turns out Mayu inherited the powers of a legendary fox spirit, and her summons are only getting stronger. Loki smugly tells Tsukasa he'd better not get left in the dust by his little sister's talent. All while Mayu feeds her like a pet, completely shattering any remaining shred of divine dignity. Still, Tsukasa offers the goddess a quiet, genuine thanks for actually helping his sister out. Later, he is walking with Rin, apologizing for dragging her into his family's weird drama, but she brushes it off, suggesting they should probably figure out their next move as a team. Rin's goal is nothing short of ambitious. She wants to conquer the next mythical class dungeon. Her plan involves grinding levels, clearing dungeons, and maybe recruiting more guild members. Which is when Tsukasa realizes his sister is already an official part of their crew. He smirks, telling Rin he might have a better solution to their manpower problem, revealing that his summon underling skill got a major upgrade after his last fight. Now he can turn any defeated monster into a loyal servant, like that demon king he just subjugated. This means they do not have to waste time recruiting anyone else for their guild. Though Tsukasa wants to keep his new power and Loki's true identity under wraps for now, with a new strategy set, they decide to be selective with their new recruits while dungeon diving. But as they walk, Tsukasa suddenly stops, getting the distinct feeling they are being watched. Tsukasa gets an unexpected call from a man named Tadu Rentaro, who warns our boy that the masters of the three great guilds have taken an interest in him. These are the top dogs of the adventuring world, each strong enough to solo hero-level dungeons. Tadu then brings up a beginner dungeon that mysteriously vanished off the map recently, which Tsukasa immediately suspects might have something to do with his own actions. This man on the phone connects this to Tsukasa's recent run-in with that out-of-place archdemon, and now the big guilds suspect he and Rin are somehow involved in both strange incidents. Tsukasa admits this is definitely going to be a problem, but his train of thought is cut short by a new arrival standing in the street. Tadu can tell something's up, asking what is wrong on the other end of the line, but Tsukasa just hangs up, promising to call him back later. He and Rin step out to confront the stranger, who immediately calls him by name. This guy just smirks, clearly enjoying Tsukasa's surprise at being recognized. Revealing himself to be Utori Kayoshiro, master of the Myriad Thunder Guild, turns out one of the world's strongest adventurers has come for a personal house call. Tsukasa asks what he wants, and Kayoshiro just says he finds him interesting. He suggests they have a little chat, all while radiating some serious pressure. So Tsukasa steps in front of Rin, asking him to dial back the killing intent first. Kayoshiro plays it off as a bad habit he just cannot seem to shake. Before launching himself forward, yelling that it is an impossible request anyway, he immediately throws a punch, his eyes glowing with the thrill of a good fight, which transforms into a massive beam of energy that tears down the street toward Tsukasa. Our boy just crosses his arms, digging in his heels as the blast slams into him, and he is pushed back a few feet, looking more annoyed than actually hurt. Kayoshiro is genuinely impressed, admitting that taking down an archdemon was not just a rumor. Tsukasa cuts right to the point, demanding to know what this guild master's goal is. This guy just scoffs, acting like his intentions should be completely obvious. He came all this way just to test Tsukasa's abilities for himself. Rin tries to intervene, pointing out that using skills in the middle of the city is super illegal. But Kayoshiro casually explains that guild masters get special privileges, like being above the law. He is technically allowed to use his powers for riot suppression, but figures it is a waste not to abuse it. With a smug grin, he gives Tsukasa full permission to go all out as well. Tsukasa just lets out a tired sigh, realizing there is no talking his way out of this one. So he powers up, blue lightning crackling around him as he closes the distance in a flash. And for the first time, Kayoshiro's cocky expression is replaced by genuine shock. Their fists collide in a blinding explosion of pure, unrestrained energy, and the resulting shockwave absolutely obliterates the street beneath them. Tsukasa lands, calmly stating that he understands what this is all about now. With his eyes glowing dangerously, he promises to entertain the guild master until he is satisfied. Kayoshiro's manic grin returns, absolutely thrilled to have found a worthy opponent. Kayoshiro powers up, absolutely ecstatic to finally have a real fight on his hands, and he warns Tsukasa not to disappoint him by falling too quickly, his aura flaring. Tsukasa just throws the same warning right back at him, his own power surging to match. In a flash of blue and yellow, the two powerhouses collide in the middle of the street, with Kayoshiro leading the charge, throwing a lightning-fast punch meant to end this early. But Tsukasa meets the blow head-on, his own blue energy easily neutralizing the attack. Their fists connect in a stalemate, neither one giving an inch of ground, and the sheer force of their clash sends a shockwave tearing through the pavement around them. Both are pushed back by the explosion, leaving Kayoshiro looking genuinely impressed for a change. He lands with a grin, announcing that the warm-up is officially over now. And without another word, the guild master vanishes in a streak of golden lightning, only for Tsukasa to appear right in his path, effortlessly catching his fist. For the first time, Kayoshiro is completely stunned, unable to believe Tsukasa's speed just jumped. Tsukasa just holds him there, his expression completely unreadable as he counters the assault. So Kayoshiro unleashes a massive point-blank energy beam, trying to overwhelm him with raw power. But our boy dodges at the last second, letting the blast carve a trench in the street behind him. Tsukasa lands with a minor scratch, forced to admit this guildmaster is the real deal. From the sidelines, Rin cannot believe what she is seeing while Kayoshiro processes how much he underestimated Tsukasa. This guildmaster's battle lust suddenly fades, replaced by a look of genuine admiration, and he drops a bombshell, offering Tsukasa a spot in the Myriad Thunder Guild. Both Tsukasa and Rin are completely floored by the sudden job offer from the guildmaster. Kayoshiro boasts that few can match him, offering Tsukasa special treatment for being interesting. But Tsukasa immediately declines, stating he is already committed to clearing the mythical dungeon with Rin. This guildmaster just bursts out laughing, finding the idea of a two-person team conquering it completely absurd. His amusement quickly fades, replaced by a surge of raw, destructive energy. And with a murderous glare, he decides if Tsukasa will not be recruited, he will just be eliminated. Tsukasa just dares him to try, calling the powerhouse a barbarian without a hint of fear. In an instant, their blue and yellow auras clash again in a massive, street-shattering explosion. Kayoshiro powers up his signature move, the Thunder Roar Cannon, ready to end this. He unleashes a colossal beam of golden lightning, aiming to vaporize Tsukasa on the spot. Our boy just watches the world-ending attack descend, his expression eerily calm. This blast engulfs him completely, leaving Rin to scream his name in terror. But Kayoshiro's attack is suddenly being pushed back by an intense, unfamiliar crimson energy. Tsukasa emerges from the smoke, asking if the guild master has any concept of restraint at all. Impressed, Kayoshiro admits he cannot hold back anymore and asks if Tsukasa is ready for more. With a sigh, Tsukasa summons a flaming sword, accepting that the fun is just getting started. This two face off in a ruined courtyard, their auras flaring for the next round. Tsukasa charges in, his fire sword clashing directly with Kayoshiro's lightning-clad fist. Then he reveals another new trick, ice magic, which finally seems to shock his opponent. And it turns out they have an audience, as a new figure watches the elemental showdown from the shadows. Rin is just frozen in place, completely unable to process the absolute madness unfolding in front of her. And just to make things worse, the other two guild masters show up, the heads of Azure Storm and Crimson Blood. Kayoshiro immediately confronts them, but the red-haired master just throws the accusation right back in his face. Meanwhile, the purple-haired woman sizes up Tsukasa, recognizing his power while casually forming a massive ice crystal. This red-haired master intercepts Kayoshiro's next move, calling him a musclehead and telling him to behave. With the fight paused, the woman turns to Tsukasa with a smirk, apologizing for ruining his date. Tsukasa just deadpans that they were on a walk, asking if she should not maybe stop the city-wide property damage. She waves it off, saying it is far more entertaining to just watch a dog and a monkey fight it out. Our boy and Rin can only sweat drop at that, clearly not on the same wavelength as these lunatics. With their brawl interrupted, Kayoshiro and the other master just stand there fuming at each other. This woman finally steps in, scolding them for acting like children instead of the guild leaders they are. Of course, they immediately start bickering, each blaming the other for starting the whole mess. She lets out an exhausted sigh, promising to report their little rampage before finally getting to the real point. Her attention snaps to Tsukasa, addressing him by his full name with a dead serious expression. She cuts right to the chase, asking him what he knows about the dungeon that recently vanished. This guild master presses him for any information at all, no matter how insignificant it might seem. Tsukasa plays it cool, asking why on earth they'd think he has any answers to their problem. But Kayoshiro is not buying it, pointing out that Tsukasa and Rin have been at the center of two major incidents. He lays it out plain and simple, being present for both anomalies makes them the prime suspects. Then the red-haired master turns his gaze to Rin, asking if she has anything to add to the story. Rin insists she was a little too busy trying to survive to notice any dungeon anomalies, so Kayoshiro turns his attention to Tsukasa, who just stonewalls him completely. This two of them lock into a tense stare-down, neither one willing to back down an inch, until the guild master cracks a smile, once again offering Tsukasa a spot in his guild. Our boy just sighs, reminding the musclehead that he already gave him an answer. Trying a new tactic, Kayoshiro offers to let Rin join too, as if that is the main issue here. But the other two guild masters immediately step in, not about to let him poach their target. Turns out all three of them are here to recruit Tsukasa, and none are willing to share. Kayoshiro, ever the diplomat, suggests they just fight it out for the right to claim him. This purple-haired master proposes a much more civilized solution, a game of rock, paper, scissors, and so the fate of the world's newest powerhouse is decided by a children's game. A few days later, Tsukasa and Rin arrive at the massive headquarters of the Azure Storm Guild. Elsewhere, a small girl with white hair watches a monitor, impressed by Tsukasa's recent achievements. Our boy tries to play it cool, thinking it is no big deal to be summoned by a guild master. They are greeted at the entrance by the purple-haired woman herself, flanked by her subordinates. She formally welcomes them both, extending a hand to Tsukasa with a warm smile. He politely shakes her hand, thanking her for the invitation to their guild. Her smile seems to hide a much deeper, more calculating intention, however. A tiny chibi version of the white-haired girl teases him about his newfound popularity, before the guild master cuts to the chase, demanding he show her his true strength. She drops the polite act, admitting she just wants to see him fight for her own amusement. Rin realizes this was never about a simple recruitment offer but a full-blown power assessment. Tsukasa calls her out on her true intentions, but she just plays it coy while sipping her tea. Then she dangles the perfect bait, a chance for him to see how he stacks up against the best. From afar, the white-haired girl is impressed, realizing this guild master knows exactly how to push Tsukasa's buttons, and it works perfectly as our boy cracks a confident smile and agrees to the test. With his battle aura flaring, he declares that he will gladly accept her little request. Rin is completely baffled by how quickly he agreed to a fight he could have easily avoided. Tsukasa calmly asks who he is supposed to fight, correctly guessing it will not be the guild master herself. This casual attitude immediately pisses off the huge guy standing behind Shizuka's couch, but she stops her subordinate, explaining a fight with her would be fatal before pointing to him as the opponent. Turns out this is Kangauji, the ace of her guild's elite force, who gets all flustered by her attention. Shizuka gives him a death glare, basically daring him to complain about the matchup. Tsukasa, completely unbothered, just finishes his tea and accepts the terms without a word. He is ready to get started, leaving Rin to wonder what she has gotten herself into this time. In the training room, the white-haired girl notes how unusually eager Tsukasa is for this fight. He has already changed into his combat gear, and she wonders what has sparked this sudden change in him. Tsukasa explains that to beat a mythical dungeon, he needs experience fighting powerful humans, not just monsters. This girl immediately changes the subject, roasting his shabby-looking uniform instead. She facepalms, complaining that the guy who took down a god has absolutely zero fashion sense. She then decides to give him a little reward for slaying that fox spirit a while back, sending a stream of blue energy into Tsukasa while telling him to be grateful for it. He recognizes it as new equipment and promises to put the upgrade to good use. And just like that, our boy is decked out in a slick new combat coat, looking ready for a fight. With a confident smirk, he announces that it is time to get this show on the road. In the training room, he and Kangauji face off in a ridiculously large, empty arena. This guild's ace immediately starts talking big, claiming this victory is already his. From the observation deck, Shizuka warns her subordinate not to let his guard down for a second. Kangauji just scoffs, promising to teach the new kid a harsh lesson about the real world. Tsukasa agrees not to hold back, while Kangauji is clearly just trying to impress his boss. With the audience in place and the stage set, the test is officially underway. This match begins, and Kangauji immediately leaps into the air for a massive axe swing, which smashes into the ground with incredible force, completely missing its target. Tsukasa just casually sidesteps the blow, his own sword still firmly in its sheath. This, of course, pisses Kangauji off, who demands to know why he will not even draw his weapon. Our boy just smirks, explaining he wants to test how far he can go without it. He then adds that it is not like he is allowed to actually kill him, so what is the rush? That little comment sends Kangauji into a rage, who tells the little brat not to get cocky. He activates his Warstorm Strike skill, screaming that he is going to smash Tsukasa to pieces. Tsukasa just calmly notes that is some pretty violent language for a simple test of skill. Kangauji roars as he unleashes his Warstorm Strike, his axe glowing with furious green energy. And the attack shatters the arena floor in a massive explosion of light and debris. But Tsukasa easily leaps clear, correctly assessing that blocking would be a very bad idea. In fact, he's got a simple plan for this whole fight, just do not get hit. This casual attitude sends Kangauji into another rage, who swings his axe down again. But instead of dodging this time, Tsukasa just throws a casual punch forward, and stops the massive axe dead in its tracks with nothing but his bare fist. Our boy just smirks, clearly enjoying putting the guild's ace in his place. Suddenly, he realizes his opponent is a lot closer than he expected. Kangauji grins, confident that from this range his next attack is a guaranteed hit, Another huge blast of green energy erupts from his axe, aiming to obliterate Tsukasa, but he is already gone, floating in the air and calling the guy a predictable musclehead. Kangoji can only stare in disbelief, completely unable to process how he dodged that. With a crackle of golden lightning, Tsukasa decides it is time to stop playing around. He unleashes his own aura, wrapping himself in the same lightning Kyoshiro uses. This resulting blast sends Kangoji flying across the entire training arena, and while Tsukasa compliments his speed, the ace is forced to admit this kid is the real deal. A wide shot shows just how far the lightning attack sent the poor guy tumbling, which only makes Kangoji even angrier, demanding to know if this is all just a game to him. He tightens his grip on his weapon, clearly done with being humiliated like this. Kangoji unleashes another massive wave of green energy, tearing up the arena floor. So Tsukasa finally puts his hand on his sword, calling that a pretty bold accusation. He draws his blade, now wreathed in flames, and slices the energy wave clean in two. Before telling the guild's ace that he has been taking this seriously the entire time, Kangoji scoffs from a distance, pointing out that Tsukasa's lightning attacks are completely useless. From the stands, Rin can only watch in horror as the arena erupts in another explosion. Undeterred, the big guy winds up for yet another full-power swing with his axe, putting every last bit of his strength into a furious downward slash. Only for Tsukasa to block it effortlessly with his flaming sword, much to Kangoji's shock. Our boy just casually remarks that the attack was far too light to even register, and with a single push he sends the guild's ace stumbling backward across the floor. Tsukasa follows up with a brutal downward strike, slamming Kangoji into the ground. This ace barely manages to recover, sliding back to create some distance for another attack. But he can only grit his teeth as Tsukasa's fiery blade completely overpowers his own weapon. Kangoji is absolutely seething, realizing Tsukasa has just been toying with him this whole time. Meanwhile, Tsukasa's fist crackles with that same golden lightning from before, completely calm. This stray sparks on the floor finally fizzle out as he decides it is time to end this. Across the arena, Kangoji demands to know what is going on, yelling that the fight is not over yet. Tsukasa just gives him a dead-eyed smile, calmly informing him that it very much is, because it turns out those useless lightning attacks have trapped Kangoji right where he stands. With a snap of his fingers, Tsukasa announces that this little match is officially over, unleashing a skill called Divine Thunder right where the guild's ace is standing. Kangoji finally realizes those useless attacks were deliberately charging the entire arena floor. A massive pillar of golden lightning erupts from the ground, engulfing him completely, and the poor guy can only scream out his surrender before getting knocked out cold. Tsukasa casually holds his flaming sword to the guy's throat just to be sure, before asking with a completely straight face if this means he is the winner. Later, as medics wheel the defeated ace away, Shizuka admits she is impressed by the beatdown. She thanks Tsukasa for the spectacular show, calling his performance truly amazing to watch. But our boy just plays it cool, saying he learned a lot from the experience too. Her smile turns a little sly as she admits this was not on her original agenda for the day, before once again formally asking him to join the Azure Storm Guild. Tsukasa just sighs, clearly tired of having this exact same conversation on repeat. She tells him he does not understand his own worth, claiming almost no one can fight him properly. He points out that Kangoji was not trying to kill him, so it was not a real fight, but Shizuka counters that even within her own guild, very few can actually defeat their ace. This point is he is valuable enough that she is willing to ask him again right now. She lists his achievements, surviving dungeon anomalies and having power rivaling a guild master's. It would be crazy not to want him as an ally, and she promises him the best deal possible. So with a confident smile, she asks him one last time for his final answer. Tsukasa lays it out plain and simple, no matter the conditions, his answer is still no. He clarifies he has zero intention of joining any guild unless Rin herself decides to. Shizuka's gaze immediately shifts to Rin, realizing she is the unexpected key to this whole deal. But Rin backs him up completely, explaining she also wants a life of freedom without being tied down. This guild master just smirks, acknowledging that their resolve is surprisingly firm. But she warns him that she is not the only one who will not take no for an answer. Turns out the other two major guild leaders are just as interested in getting him on their side. Tsukasa starts to sweat, finally grasping the massive scale of the problem he has just walked into. Shizuka thanks them for the entertaining day, effectively ending the meeting on her own terms. And with a sweet smile, she says she looks forward to working with him, prompting a blunt "I refuse." As the two walk away, the guild master vows that she will make him hers eventually, her eyes glowing with a seriously possessive look as she claims they both belong to her. Later on, Rin admits this whole situation just got way more complicated than she expected. Tsukasa just checks his phone, already getting a bad feeling about what is coming next. She asks if he is really okay with all this, and he just admits his gut has been screaming. At that exact moment, his phone starts buzzing, catching Rin completely off guard. This call is from the red-haired leader of another major guild who is contacting Rin directly. She answers, clearly a little flustered by the sudden contact from such a big shot. Our boy realizes this is turning into a complete mess that he needs to handle fast. Back in his room, he wonders how in the world he is supposed to silence all three great guilds at once. He realizes that at this rate, he will have to deal with the Crimson Blood and Thunderstrike guilds too. figuring the only way to shut them all down is to go over their heads to the JDMO. And just like that, a perfect, slightly insane solution clicks into place. He grins, realizing the ideal contact was hiding in plain sight this whole time. A quick phone call later, he is asking for a moment to discuss something urgent, which leads to the leaders of the three great guilds being summoned to JDMO headquarters. This blonde leader immediately starts complaining, wondering what their director, Taodu, is thinking, while the red-haired leader of Crimson Blood questions why Taodu is not even there to meet them. But the purple-haired leader of Thunderstrike already knows, this is obviously about Tsukasa. This three groups stand awkwardly in a massive conference room, the tension practically visible. Right before director Taodu himself walks in with Tsukasa and Rin in tow, this blonde guild master immediately gets in his face, demanding to know why they were dragged here. Taodu just calmly explains that he is busy too, thanks to the mess they all caused. He then reveals he has already heard the whole story straight from Tsukasa himself, reminding them with a stern look that even the great guilds have their limits. This leaders finally get it, with the blonde one admitting a talent like Tsukasa cannot be ignored. Shifting focus, the purple-haired leader asks for Tsukasa's opinion on how to settle this. Our boy steps up with a simple proposal, a match to decide everything, and he will join the winner. While the blonde leader calls him cocky, the others are clearly interested in the terms. Taodu lays out the challenge, a four-way dungeon speedrun between Tsukasa and the three guilds. Tsukasa lays out the terms, the first guild to clear the dungeon gets him, but if he wins, they all back off. Shizuka finds his straightforwardness amusing and accepts the challenge on the spot. Crimson Blood's leader agrees too, promising to teach the kid a lesson for his arrogance. Taodu sets the stage, 1 week in the Black Ant Hell dungeon and the guilds can bring anyone they want. This sends the blonde guild master into a rage, slamming his hand down on the table, and he vows to make Tsukasa regret every last ounce of his so-called confidence. Taodu adds one final condition: the guild masters themselves are forbidden from participating. Tsukasa points right at the three of them, officially throwing down the gauntlet, declaring this a contest to see who is stronger, him or their entire organizations combined. Elsewhere, a mysterious blindfolded girl watches this broadcast as a shadowy figure accuses her of betrayal. She plays dumb, reminding him that he is the one who gave a human godlike power in the first place. He brings up their unspoken rule against helping mortals, but she could not care less about his laws. In fact, she openly defies any rules made by those who want to destroy humanity. So the figure Heimdall declares her an enemy and threatens to kill her favorite new toy, Tsukasa. She just smirks, completely unbothered and absolutely confident in our boy's strength. She even warns Heimdall that he is the one who is more likely to end up dead in this little conflict. Back in the room, Rin and the white-haired girl are understandably a little worried about their chances. Rin lays out the math. It is basically Tsukasa against 30 of the best adventurers in the world. She is panicking about the consequences of losing, but Tsukasa just tells her to relax. He calmly assures them he's got a plan, admitting it is going to be a serious race against the clock. This white-haired girl is understandably sweating over the impossible odds they are facing, asking for the actual plan, which is apparently to dive in and recruit more allies. Tsukasa just smirks, sarcastically pointing out how unfair it is that they are so outnumbered. He gets up, deciding it is time to get going, and start gathering the forces they will need for this fight. 1 week later, the competition officially kicks off at the Black Ant Hell dungeon, where a JDMO official lays down a rule: everyone must carry a GPS tracker for safety. He also adds that if any anomalies pop up, the guild masters are allowed to intervene. Tsukasa and the guild reps all line up, looking way too confident for their own good. And the official sends the participants off toward the dungeon gate to begin the race. His white-haired ally gives him a final word of encouragement, putting all her faith in him, but our boy just gives her a confident look, telling her to leave it all to him. This dungeon itself is a massive, dark cavern with a glowing blue portal waiting inside. Tsukasa steps forward, his only strategy being a straight shot right for the boss room. But that plan hits a snag almost immediately, because it turns out the guilds have already sent a welcoming party to block his path. These guys declare the area restricted, telling him he will have to fight his way through. So Tsukasa just sighs, feigning disappointment at the guilds for using such petty tricks. He then reveals this little ambush was all part of his plan, which completely stuns them. With a casual gesture, he basically dares the entire group to come at him. He activates his follower summon skill, basically inviting them to try their luck. A massive summoning circle erupts beneath him, flooding the entire cavern with blue light, and out pop a massive white tiger and a lizard warrior, his personal welcoming committee. This guild members can only stare in absolute slack-jawed disbelief, because he has also brought along a full-blown, armored dungeon boss for good measure. These guys are completely blindsided, realizing no one warned them he could pull this off. Tsukasa just tells his new pets to handle the trash but to keep the killing to a minimum, and just like that, his 3 summons dive right into the crowd of terrified adventurers, while he does not even stick around to watch, already moving on as the screaming starts. This guild members start crying foul, realizing these are not just fodder monsters, they are way too strong. One of them finally puts it together that the armored summon is literally a dungeon boss. While his summons keep the welcoming party busy, Tsukasa makes a break for it deeper inside, leaving them with a simple order to hold the line, completely trusting them to handle it. Further in, he runs into yet another ambush, this time a massive fire beast. After dealing with some fodder, he sighs, wondering if he might have pushed the guilds a little too hard. A skeletal summon checks in on him, but Tsukasa just brushes it off like it is nothing. He effortlessly slices a massive fireball in half with his own flaming sword, before smirking that taking him down is not even the real victory condition here. His opponents are horrified, realizing he just nullified a skill that only a guild master should be able to counter. He then confronts the next group of blockers, asking if they are serious, and they just confirm it is their job. He calmly acknowledges their little roadblock, as if he was expecting it all along. His opponents are completely floored when he summons a literal dungeon boss to the party, but their leader scoffs, convinced a mid-tier summon is no match for their elite team. Tsukasa responds by imbuing his own sword with a massive wave of fire, and promptly tells his skeletal minion to take out the trash while he moves on. As his summons engage, the guild members are still shouting about how it is not enough to stop them. Meanwhile, Tsukasa admits he underestimated their interference, a miscalculation he cannot afford. With the clock ticking, he seriously starts to wonder if he can even make it in time. Unfortunately for him, another welcoming committee is already blocking the next passageway. But this time, his other followers step up, telling him to leave this fight to them. They form a defensive line, urging their master to hurry ahead to the boss room. This new batch of adventurers has no idea what they are looking at, having never seen monsters like these. Before they can even react, a tiny, insect-like summon zips right past their defenses, unleashing a wave of dark energy that makes it very clear no one is getting through. This summon, Genocide, vows that no one will interfere with its master any longer. With his path cleared, Tsukasa finally arrives at the massive doors to the boss room, but the sight that greets him inside leaves him completely speechless, because one of the guild teams is already in there looking up in absolute terror. They are face to face with the dungeon's actual boss, a monstrous red insectoid creature. This adventurer starts screaming, realizing this thing is myth class and they have zero chance of winning. Back in the boss room, the guild members are getting absolutely demolished, which triggers a massive magical anomaly alert back at JDMO headquarters. This technician cannot believe the readings he is seeing, realizing the energy signature is dangerously close to myth class. Without a second thought, the blonde guild master makes a break for the exit, shouting that only they have the power to handle a threat this big. Shizuka agrees, pointing out they cannot afford to lose their best adventurers in there. Crimson Blood's leader just scoffs at the whole situation, before calmly adjusting his tie and declaring he is going too. Turns out, conquering a myth-class dungeon has been a long-term goal for him anyway. He marches off, basically daring anyone to get in his way. Meanwhile, Shizuka tells the white-haired girl to stay put, and she agrees she'd just be a liability. But then she adds that by the time they get there, it'll all be over, because Tsukasa is already on the scene and she has total faith he will handle it. Inside the dungeon, Tsukasa narrowly dodges a devastating energy blast, completely shocked by the raw power he is witnessing. He spots one of the guild adventurers he knows, Kangauji, beaten and slumped against a wall. This injured guy can barely believe his eyes, recognizing Tsukasa in the chaos. All around them, the other adventurers are screaming to run for their lives, as the true boss reveals itself, a monster even stronger than the original Dungeon King. Kangauji tries to warn him about the danger, but Tsukasa just tells him to save his breath. He powers up, declaring he is going to take out all his pent-up stress on this new monster. Tsukasa glares at the boss, personally offended that it ruined his perfectly good competition. This insectoid creature lunges forward, a blur of red and black fury, but our boy meets the charge head-on with a massive flaming sword swing. He unleashes a powerful arc of fire, aiming to cleave the thing in two. His attack connects, sending the monster skidding across the entire boss room. It lands perfectly fine though, and the two just stare each other down for a moment. This gash on its arm begins to bubble and reform almost instantly. Tsukasa just calmly notes its impressive regeneration ability as if he expected it. In response, the boss fires a volley of razor-sharp projectiles right at him. Tsukasa effortlessly dodges the onslaught, weaving between the deadly spikes. He then counters with a flurry of his own fiery sword slashes, closing the distance. This monster gets caught in a whirlwind of attacks, unable to find an opening. It finally manages to catch his blade with its bare hand, stopping him cold. They are locked in a tense standoff, neither one giving an inch of ground. Suddenly, Tsukasa's sword begins to glow with an intense golden light, which seems to genuinely surprise the myth-class creature for the first time. He unleashes a rapid-fire series of explosive energy blasts from his blade, before mocking the monster for thinking a mere mantis could ever stand up to him. Tsukasa just smirks, promising to show this thing who the real hunter is here. In response, the monster unleashes a furious high-speed slash of its own, but our boy activates a skill that basically makes him a god's personal knight. This creature's massive energy blade cuts through the air, aiming to slice him in half, yet Tsukasa just floats above it, calling the myth-class attack too slow. With his own sword glowing gold, he prepares to end this little tantrum, driving his blade straight through the monster's chest in a blinding flash. This thing is completely stunned, realizing this human is on a whole different level. Tsukasa does not even break a sweat, giving it a single, simple command, kneel. This dungeon boss can only stare in utter disbelief at the sheer audacity. As Tsukasa clarifies he is not a god, just the servant of one, which is somehow even scarier. He then binds it in glowing chains, demanding to know who is pulling its strings. This monster tries to fight back, telling him not to get cocky, a truly terrible idea. Tsukasa effortlessly blocks its desperate swing with his own flaming sword, before blasting it with a cross-shaped attack that leaves it screaming in agony. He then offers it a choice since he is in a good mood: swear loyalty or get erased. With a final chilling glare, he simply tells the creature to submit. His subjugation skill activates, wrapping the boss in heart-shaped magical chains. And just like that, the skill works, turning the myth-class monster into his newest follower. This newly tamed beast kneels, apologizing for its rudeness and pledging its undying loyalty. Tsukasa is not done yet, demanding his new pet spill the beans on who is really in charge. This insectoid starts to answer, its eyes glowing a sinister green, but it is cut off by a massive tear in the very fabric of the boss room. Out steps a new challenger who seems genuinely surprised Tsukasa tamed the myth-class beast. He gives a slow clap, admitting the Godslayer title is well earned if Loki himself is interested. Tsukasa immediately puts two and two together, realizing this is the guy causing all the chaos. This newcomer floats down, acting like this is just a casual meet and greet. He introduces himself as Heimdall, here to personally execute the blasphemer who defies the gods. Before the god-tier smackdown can begin, a little girl appears out of nowhere, questioning his motives. Tsukasa recognizes her, coldly stating they are just old acquaintances who have long since parted ways. Heimdall is not having it, calling her a traitor and telling her to shut her arrogant mouth. He then promises to silence her permanently by taking out Tsukasa right here and now. Without another word, the two clash in a blinding explosion of golden light and raw power. Heimdall smirks mid-clash, calling our boy impatient for jumping right into the fight. Tsukasa just fires back that he is hardly one to talk, given the grand entrance. Their blades are locked in a dead-even power struggle, neither one able to gain an inch. Heimdall starts taunting him, asking if this is really the full extent of the Godslayer's power. Meanwhile, the little girl seems to be casting some kind of dark magic from the sidelines. Heimdall breaks away and launches a massive downward slash, aiming to end it quickly. But Tsukasa dodges with ease, leaving Heimdall to mock his assumption that it would be a one-hit KO. Heimdall smugly tells Tsukasa he should feel honored just for dodging a god's attack, but the little girl clarifies that she and Loki are definitely not friends, more like mortal enemies. Turns out, Loki is an extremist who wants to wipe out humanity, which is a bit of a deal-breaker. Tsukasa is understandably thrown by the whole pro-genocide revelation. Before Heimdall cuts in, grandstanding about his duty to eliminate insolent god defiers. He poses dramatically, acting like this is some noble crusade and not just a glorified hit job. Tsukasa has clearly had enough of the monologue, powering up with a surge of blue energy, and in a flash of light, he begins to summon some serious backup of his own. Bringing out two absolutely monstrous familiars to properly crash the party. These are not just any summons, but the legendary genocide King Demon and Diabolentes. Our boy casually asks Diabolentes if it is ready for a fight, and it is more than willing. This massive creature warns its partner to stay sharp, since they are up against an actual god. Heimdall just scoffs at the display, calling them an impressive but ultimately useless rabble. To prove his point, he summons his own legion of shadowy monsters to the field. With a single stomp, he unleashes a devastating attack of his own, sending a massive wave of jagged ice spikes hurtling across the battlefield. This ice wave crashes right into Diabolentes, who seems completely caught off guard by the assault. Heimdall taunts them for being foolish enough to betray the very gods who blessed them. But Genocide intercepts his follow-up strike, blocking the god's blade with its own arm. Now it is a 2-on-1 with Tsukasa's top-tier summons ready to throw down. Heimdall unleashes a storm of crisscrossing energy blades, absolutely shredding the battlefield, and even Tsukasa's legendary summons can only apologize as they are overwhelmed by a god's true power. Our boy realizes his familiars are just cannon fodder here, resummoning them would be pointless. So he powers up his own aura, deciding to handle this glorified messenger personally. But Heimdall just gives him a bored look, completely unimpressed by the display. Then he just turns around and opens a portal as if he has got better things to do, prompting Tsukasa to call him out on trying to make a tactical retreat. This god just scoffs at the cheap provocation, declaring their little chat is over for now. He promises to come back later to deliver justice, a threat that sounds suspiciously like a rain check. Tsukasa just tells him to bring it on whenever he is ready for a real fight. With one last smug look, Heimdall vanishes, leaving Tsukasa to clean up his mess. Sometime later, the chaos has settled and the white-haired girl finds Tsukasa in the aftermath. But their quiet moment is interrupted by someone new at the boss room entrance. It is the blonde guildmaster, finally showing up fashionably late to the party. He demands to know what happened, and Tsukasa just deadpans that he took care of the boss. Right behind him, the Crimson Blood leader and Shizuka arrive, looking equally baffled by the scene. Shizuka cannot even process the idea that Tsukasa single-handedly defeated a myth-class threat, while the blonde guildmaster gets right in his face, threatening to detain him if he does not start talking. Yeah, the other guild leaders are not looking too friendly either, demanding some serious answers. Tsukasa's just trying to figure out how to explain a god showed up without getting locked in a padded room. This blonde guildmaster powers up, demanding to know why Tsukasa is being so suspiciously quiet. Our boy just explains that an irregular boss popped up, a classic dungeon curveball. This guildmaster says he figured that much, but he wants to know what happened to it. Tsukasa just repeats that he took care of the problem as if it was just another Tuesday. Shizuka presses him, revealing they detected a massive power signature on par with a myth-class threat. This Crimson Blood leader cannot believe his ears, asking if he really took down something that powerful. Tsukasa tries to sell them a story about Kongoji softening it up first, making it an easy fight. And yeah, nobody's buying that for a second. The collective disbelief is practically a physical force. Changing tactics, the guild master asks for the magic stone, but Tsukasa claims it vanished with the body. He seems to accept this excuse since irregulars can be weird like that, but the suspicion is still there. This others point out that since no one's ever fought a myth class, there is no way to prove his story. So the three of them just stare, trying to figure out what to make of this whole situation. Tsukasa, ever the opportunist, smirks and reminds them this was a competition and he won. Oh, that was absolutely the wrong thing to say, judging by their murderous glares. Meanwhile, Heimdall zips through some kind of celestial highway, heading back to HQ. He arrives at a grand hall where a mysterious voice welcomes him, asking for a report on the Godslayer. Heimdall casually dismisses Tsukasa, claiming he is not a significant threat to them at the moment. His superior then asks about the other top-tier humans he encountered down there. Again, Heimdall writes them off as nothing to be concerned about, a truly impressive level of arrogance. He does add a little warning, though humans evolve and underestimating them could get them all killed. His superior gives Heimdall a simple order: eliminate any and all unstable elements. And while he is at it, he is also supposed to deal with the traitor Loki. Heimdall just accepts his mission without a single word of protest, as you do. Back with our crew, Tsukasa is debriefing a new face on the whole gods are attacking situation, who immediately identifies Heimdall as the boss of a myth-class dungeon, the Watcher of the Apocalypse. This little girl confirms that gods can indeed leave their dungeons, but it costs a fortune in magic, which means their new enemy can pop up pretty much anywhere he wants, a massive problem. But his companion clarifies the god is not all-powerful and has a cooldown on his teleporting. And that tiny window of opportunity is all Tsukasa needs to hear to start plotting. This blonde woman understands this gives them a much-needed period to prepare for the next encounter. Though Tsukasa admits that in their brief clash he was completely outmatched by the god's power, he tells her it is frustrating, but the only answer is for them to get a whole lot stronger. To make matters worse, the white-haired girl adds that Heimdall is a perfect warrior with no weaknesses, leaving the blonde woman to grimly accept that they have no choice but to level up. Or rather, she corrects herself, asterisk she is the one who needs to get stronger, a moment of pure resolve. Breaking the tension, the little girl seems to be praying for their success or maybe just for dinner, before warning Tsukasa that things are about to get a lot more chaotic from here on out. Our boy just gives a determined look, fully aware of what is at stake. And just like that, the war council is interrupted by a call for dinner from a girl named Mayu. Tsukasa just watches them head off, remarking that the two of them are just like sisters. Tsukasa answers a call from an unknown number demanding to know who is on the line, and the voice belongs to a woman named Mizukagami who has apparently been waiting for him. She cuts right to the chase, telling him she has a little proposal to share. Next thing you know, they are all standing at the entrance of a hero-class dungeon. Mizukagami casually thanks Tsukasa and the blonde woman for accepting her sudden invitation, and when he asks what a guild master is doing here, she claims it is just to stay in shape. Apparently, she also just gets lonely, a totally believable excuse for a dungeon crawl. This blonde woman, however, is just excited to see the legendary guild master in action. So Mizukagami promises a good show and confidently leads the way into the dungeon's depths. His companion is getting a seriously bad feeling about this whole field trip, though. Right on cue, skeletal monsters descend and Mizukagami tells them to just hang back and watch. She channels a massive amount of icy energy into her blade, preparing to unleash a devastating attack on the incoming horde. This blonde woman is completely starstruck, seeing the famous Mizukagami's power firsthand, and explains her sword is another hero-class weapon, just like her own holy sword. Mizukagami activates her weapon's unique ability, channeling the White World's wind, and with a single word she unleashes a wave of absolute zero on the lead monster, instantly flash-freezing it in a massive ice crystal, a move she calls Snow White. She proudly calls the sword her precious partner, clearly enjoying the flex. Even the little white-haired girl has to admit that wiping them out in one hit is impressive. Tsukasa figures a guild master of her caliber has to be packing some serious heat, so when she asks why he is staring, he just plays it off as admiring her skill. Mizukagami gives him a smug little smile, clearly enjoying the attention. Just then, another wave of skeletons shows up, prompting her to suggest they team up. This blonde woman immediately agrees, gripping her massive holy sword for the fight. Tsukasa asks his companion Rin if she is ready to go, his own blade igniting with fire. She gives a confident yes, so our boy decides it is time to get this party started. With that, the two of them charge headfirst into the skeletal horde, unleashing a whirlwind of fiery slashes that carves a path through the undead. Rin follows up with a heavy strike, but the skeleton just casually blocks her hero-class weapon. She is completely stunned as another monster closes in from behind, trapping her between them. Looks like her first hero-class dungeon run is about to end very, very badly. But Tsukasa yells do not move, activating a binding skill that freezes the skeletons in place. Then he summons a handful of fireballs, preparing a much more explosive solution. A massive fiery blast erupts around Rin, incinerating the monsters that had her cornered. She breathes a sigh of relief, thanking Tsukasa for the last-second save. He just brushes it off while she promises to be more careful next time. Our boy reassures her she is doing great just as Mizukagami decides to finally step in. This guild master zips through the remaining enemies, flash freezing them all with absolute ease. Both Tsukasa and Rin are just floored, realizing just how powerful a top-tier human can actually be. Mizukagami leads the way, announcing they are about to hit the boss room. Before they charge in, she decides it is time for a quick strategy session on the boss. The Piper. Turns out this boss is a musician with a seriously deadly taste in music, whose flute summons an infinite horde of ghost-type monsters to overwhelm them. On top of that, it uses spatial teleportation to ambush them, especially after it takes damage. Rin quickly gets the picture. Their top priority is to shut down the music permanently. Tsukasa can already tell this is going to be a massive headache, even for a hero-class dungeon. But he knows if he cannot handle this, he stands zero chance against an actual god. Rin notices his grim expression, though he just brushes off her concern, claiming he is fine. This two of them stand ready, waiting for Mizukagami to give the signal. With a confident smirk, she tells them she is counting on them to hold the line. Inside the boss room, the Piper is already playing, its ghostly audience floating in wait. And there he is, the level 60 hero-class boss, looking like a rejected jazz musician. Mizukagami calls the shots, declaring she will take the boss while they handle the minions. Tsukasa and Rin immediately agree, readying their weapons for the incoming swarm. She is clearly pleased with their obedience, promising a quick and clean clear. As she zips past them in a blur of blue energy, the real fight begins. Mizukagami charges straight for the Piper, closing the distance in an instant. Meanwhile, the ghostly minions descend on Tsukasa and Rin, drawn by the melody. Tsukasa gives Rin a quick tip: do not get surrounded, just focus on survival. Rin promises Tsukasa she will not be a burden, her resolve absolutely crystal clear. Our boy just accepts her determination, knowing they have to trust each other. With that settled, the two of them launch themselves into the ghostly horde. Mizukagami, meanwhile, is already dancing around the Piper's attacks with zero effort, as the boss unleashes a wave of sonic energy that she just weaves right through. She even has time for a smug little smirk, completely unimpressed by this performance. Back with the B-team, Tsukasa is busy incinerating ghosts with a wall of fire. Even Mizukagami is impressed, noting that her temporary allies are surprisingly capable. Seeing her opening, she leaps high above the boss, readying her ice blade, and unleashes a massive crescent wave of freezing energy straight at him. She screams for them to hit it all at once, signaling the final push. Tsukasa calls out to Rin, who is swarmed but tells him she is fine, a total lie. Trusting her, Tsukasa activates a new skill: Locust Thunder, crackling with blue lightning. He instantly appears before the Piper, his blade charged with overwhelming power. This boss cannot believe his speed, but Tsukasa just calls him pathetically slow. He unleashes a devastating fusion of fire and lightning straight at the boss, and skewers the Piper right through the chest in a flash of raw power. But the boss is not done, using his teleport to escape while cursing Mizukagami's name. Mizukagami calmly compliments Tsukasa on the solid hit as the minions freeze over. With a cold glare, she declares that the wounded boss is not getting away. She unleashes a vortex of freezing energy, trapping the Piper in midair, and encases him in a massive ice prison crystal, a pretty effective timeout corner. Inside his new icy home, the boss admits Mizukagami is strong, but his real focus is on Tsukasa, realizing our boy is the one he needs to take out. As Rin stares up at the frozen boss, the Piper makes his move, teleporting right behind her for a cheap shot, but Tsukasa already predicted this exact play. This Piper's face is pure shock, his brilliant hostage plan falling apart in seconds. Tsukasa is already dropping in from above, the boss screaming about how he could possibly know, to which our boy coldly informs him that his predictable little brain is an open book. He calls the boss out for targeting Rin just to throw him off his game, and then slams him into the ground with a brutal fusion of fire and lightning. Tsukasa does not let up, unleashing a storm of elemental attacks on the downed boss, who gets absolutely shredded by a barrage of flaming projectiles, ending with Tsukasa's sword running him straight through the chest. Even with a blade in his gut, the boss cannot believe what is happening, and can only wonder what the hell Tsukasa is as our boy holds him down with raw power. Tsukasa just twists the blade, pouring even more energy into the final blow. From a distance, Rin and Mizukagami can only watch the massive explosion of power, as he activates his divine piercing skill, declaring the fight officially over, and the Piper is completely annihilated in a storm of dark, crackling energy. This Piper gets absolutely vaporized in a storm of crackling blue power, and with its last breath, the boss realizes Tsukasa is not just strong, he is a god slayer. Our boy just smirks, noting that his little secret is getting pretty famous. Mizukagami can only stare, completely stunned by the sheer overwhelming force he just displayed. After the dust settles, Tsukasa casually picks up the boss's crystal drop from the floor, and with the dungeon officially cleared, he suggests it is time to call it a day. While Mizukagami agrees, Rin is unusually quiet, lost in her own thoughts. She is having a full-blown crisis, realizing she was nothing but a burden to Tsukasa. This memory of her near-fatal mistake hits her hard, knowing she cannot keep relying on others, so she makes a silent vow to get stronger no matter what it takes. Back outside, Mizukagami cheerfully thanks them for a successful if slightly overkill dungeon run, and Tsukasa plays it cool, calling the whole thing a valuable experience, which is one way to put it. She then brings up a new topic, asking if they have picked a name for their guild yet. Turns out they have been a little too busy fighting for their lives to think about branding. So Tsukasa agrees it is a good idea, promising to talk it over with Rin later. Rin, however, is still stuck in her own head, brooding over her performance. Noticing her silence, Tsukasa asks if she is okay, and she quickly snaps out of it. But she just brushes off his concern, trying to steer the conversation back to the guild name. He seems to buy it, adding that Mayu should get a say in the name too since she is a member. Mizukagami just smiles, excited to see what kind of epic name they will come up with. With the dungeon cleared, Mizukagami gives a casual farewell and heads out. So Tsukasa suggests they head back too, to which Rin quietly agrees. But as she takes a step, her world suddenly goes sideways. Finding herself pulled into some kind of dark, ethereal space, a mysterious voice from a throne notes that she seems pretty troubled, revealing a white-haired goddess who offers to give her some divine guidance. Rin is stunned to see Loki in her true form for the very first time, who just brushes off the dramatic reveal, wanting to get straight to business. Loki already knows Rin is desperate to find a way to get stronger, and Rin can only admit the goddess sees right through her. She is sick of being protected by Tsukasa and feeling like a total burden, a resolve that Loki finds amusingly gutsy, so she makes a surprising offer to personally train Rin herself. Turns out she already trained Tsukasa and Mayu, so it is only fair to complete the set. Loki gives her a fair warning though, promising to be even harsher on her than Tsukasa. With a look of pure determination, Rin accepts the brutal terms without hesitation. Loki then sends her back, telling her to work on her weaknesses until she is ready. And in the real world, Rin snaps back to the present, completely dazed. Tsukasa immediately calls her out for spacing out, asking what is wrong, but she just jumps, startled, and quickly plays it off like she was lost in thought. Rin quickly puts her hands up, insisting she is fine and that Tsukasa should not worry, before grabbing his shirt with a newfound fire in her eyes, telling him they both have work to do. And with a confident smile, she promises to catch up to his level soon enough. Tsukasa just accepts her declaration, a warm smile spreading across his face. Watching her walk off, he realizes he also needs to get stronger, but first he has a question for a certain goddess. Back in his room, he summons Loki, who is a little surprised he is the one initiating contact for once. Tsukasa gets right to business, telling the sleepy goddess he needs some answers. He brings up her old warning about the god Heimdall wanting to exterminate humanity, and now he needs to know exactly what that means, no more cryptic hints. Loki admits she was a bit vague, then drops the bombshell that Heimdall's faction sees humanity as a cancer. Our boy is understandably a little taken aback by this level of cosmic bigotry. She elaborates that their ideology is simple. There are too many humans, so they must be eradicated for the world's survival. Loki tells him he does not have to understand or accept it right away, but she gives him a grim reminder that the fate of countless lives now rests on his shoulders. Tsukasa just grins, declaring that if that is the price for killing a god, he will gladly bear the burden. Elsewhere, Rin is meditating in her room, trying to pinpoint exactly what she is lacking. She knows she is behind Tsukasa in level, swordsmanship, and raw power. But her biggest flaw is having almost no experience fighting opponents who are actually stronger than her. She has to fix this before her training with Loki can even begin, but she is not sure how. Until a sudden thought seems to strike her as she gazes out into the night. Rin realizes she knows the perfect person to call for some brutal, hands-on training, and she immediately dials up Mizukagami, who confirms she is free to talk. Fresh out of the shower, Mizukagami is not even surprised by the sudden call, admitting she saw the same desperate look on Rin's face that she once had herself. She flashes back to her own past, feeling useless and desperate to not be a burden. Mizukagami explains this feeling is a rite of passage for anyone who is not a born genius. Getting right to it, Rin asks the Ice Queen to train her personally. Her one goal is to become strong enough to stand by Tsukasa as an equal. Mizukagami agrees to take her on, but she has one very important condition. Rin has to come at her with everything she has got, a challenge she eagerly accepts. With the deal sealed, she hangs up the phone, her new path now set. A new fire burns in her eyes as she vows to catch up to Tsukasa soon. Meanwhile, Tsukasa and Mayu are at a special training ground, much to his confusion. Mayu explains this is prep work so he will not have to rely on skills, summoning two familiars. He knows his summons are useless against gods, and even his trump card is risky. So first, he needs to get fundamentally stronger, asking his familiars for a little help. These two shadowy beasts bow their heads, ready to obey his command. Igniting his blade, Tsukasa tells them to come at him with actual lethal intent, and his familiars tower over him, preparing to unleash a full-power assault. Back at another training ground, Mizukagami arrives to find Rin waiting, ready to begin. Mizukagami gives Rin a simple training goal: come at her with killing intent and try not to die. Rin, radiating golden light, eagerly accepts her mentor's brutal terms. 10 days later, we jump to Tsukasa's own training regimen in a heroic class dungeon, where he is already carving his way through monsters with a flaming sword, no warm-up needed. His solo run continues as he casually lops the head off another armored foe. And when his familiars offer to help, Tsukasa is not having any of it. He makes it clear that to fight gods, he has to be the one getting stronger, not his summons, so he orders them to stand down while he takes on the entire mob by himself. unleashing a massive inferno that completely scours the battlefield clean. This aftermath is just a shower of loot drops from the vaporized enemies, and with the small fry cleared, Tsukasa calmly proceeds to the main event. He arrives in the boss room, where a voice notes it has been a while since they had a visitor. Turns out the judge of the dead is King Enma, who seems more curious than threatened. Tsukasa does not waste time with pleasantries, making it obvious he is here for a fight. She just smirks, finding his straightforwardness amusing as she agrees to get started. Her idea of a greeting is a cheerful invitation to a deathmatch, and she immediately fires off a concentrated blast of energy to test him. But she is genuinely impressed when he blocks the attack so effortlessly. Tsukasa parries the blast with his flaming blade, earning a compliment on his skill. Our boy just analyzes her power, already getting a read on his new opponent. Enma throws the first punch with a massive fireball, but Tsukasa meets it with his own flaming blade, and their powers collide, sending a shockwave of fire through the entire boss room. She is not just throwing fire though, she is going for a straight-up physical beatdown. But Tsukasa easily sidesteps the blow and cleanly lops off her entire arm in one smooth motion. She just grins through the blood, reminding him that she already warned him this would not be easy. And in that instant, Tsukasa realizes exactly what kind of opponent he is dealing with. Her arm regenerates in a flash, and she follows up with a kick that he barely dodges, prompting a dry compliment from Tsukasa about her heroic class reflexes. Enma cannot believe he has already analyzed her abilities after just one exchange. As he correctly identifies her spacetime skill that lets her teleport to marked targets, that is when it clicks for Enma. His power is not just strong, it is completely unnatural. She finally puts the pieces together, calling him the Godslayer, much to his annoyance. With his secret out, she decides the warm-up is over and promises to fight at full power. She unleashes her own inferno, completely baffled by the nature of his flames. But Tsukasa casually reveals he has already sealed her annoying regeneration ability. Enma is stunned, unable to heal, while our boy just taunts her to give it a try. He gives her zero time to recover, closing the distance for a finishing blow, and runs her through with his sword, reminding her he already figured out her gimmick. Turns out he used his mimicry skill the moment the fight began, successfully copying her teleportation ability and sealing her fate from the very first move. Enma spits out her last words, calling him an absolute monster, but Tsukasa just scoffs, retorting that the real monsters are the gods themselves. He then incinerates what is left of her, ending the fight for good, leaving behind nothing but the dungeon's glowing boss core. His familiar praises the clean victory, wondering why he did not make Enma his servant. But Tsukasa explains he only wanted her teleportation skill, since she is weaker than them anyway. Besides, he has already got his sights set on his next big recruit. Sometime later, Tsukasa shows up at the Dungeon Management Organization headquarters, where a staff member immediately notices how worn out he looks, asking if he is alright. She points out his non-stop solo grinding and tells him he seriously needs to rest. But our boy just brushes it off, already eager to jump into another dungeon. He asks her to prep the paperwork, completely ignoring her very valid concerns, and with a sudden intensity, he just tells her he absolutely has to get stronger. That look in his eyes is enough to convince her, so she asks where he is headed next. He reveals his next destination is the heroic class dungeon, Knights of the Round Table. Without wasting a moment, he steps through the portal into the hallowed halls, taking a moment to survey his new, rather opulent surroundings, and immediately finds a boss room door right at the entrance, thinking he has hit the jackpot. His familiar warns him not to get cocky, questioning why he chose such a dangerous place. So Tsukasa explains this dungeon was first cleared by the guild that almost killed a god. Tsukasa smirks, figuring this is the perfect warm-up before taking on an actual god, and he strides through the massive golden doors without a hint of hesitation. Meanwhile, we flash back to Rin's brutal training with Mizukagami at the Valhalla Sky Temple, where her new mentor is already questioning if Rin's resolve is all talk and no action. But Rin grabs her weapon, refusing to let those words stand. And with a surge of power, she gets back on her feet, insisting she can keep going. That is exactly the answer Mizukagami wanted to hear, a small smile gracing her lips. So with the test passed, the two square off to continue the grueling session. Their sparring is absolutely relentless, with Rin clearly on the losing end of the exchange, prompting Mizukagami to stop the fight and point out a critical flaw in her approach. She explains Rin lacks the raw thirst for victory and the simple will to survive, not to mention the relentless desire for strength that defines a true warrior. But her biggest problem, as she looms over the fallen Rin, is a complete lack of danger sense. And Mizukagami casually tosses her aside, declaring that break time is officially over. As Rin gets up, she questions this, but her mentor just looks on, completely unimpressed, getting right in her face to explain Rin does not actually believe she is about to die. This lesson finally clicks as Mizukagami reveals she is fighting with genuine killing intent, which she explains is the key to unlocking the true power of her holy sword. Back in the present, Tsukasa enters the throne room where a voice says he was expected, and sitting on the throne is the dungeon boss, Star Lion King Arthur, who greets him by name. Tsukasa demands to know how this boss knows his name, but Arthur just scoffs from his throne. His familiars immediately start panicking, earning a sharp command from Tsukasa to stay out of it. Arthur, now in full armor, finds the loyalty amusing and dares him to summon help, boasting it will not matter. Our boy is actually impressed the king can hear his telepathic chat. This is a true top-tier threat. This Lion King then lays down the law, declaring he is stronger than anyone Tsukasa has ever faced. With a dramatic flourish, he reaches out to summon his personal weapon, materializing a massive holy sword that radiates overwhelming power. He plants the blade into the floor, officially inviting the Godslayer to their fight. Arthur holds his ground, challenging Tsukasa to come at him with everything he has got. Tsukasa simply ignites his own sword, ready to throw down with the Lion King. This two lock eyes for a tense moment, the air practically buzzing with energy. In a flash, their blades collide with a deafening crash and a shower of sparks, sending a massive shockwave of fire and light tearing through the entire throne room. Both are stunned by the other's speed, with Arthur even wondering if he is fighting a god. Tsukasa just smirks, confirming he is already reading Arthur's every single move. Done playing around, Arthur unleashes a rain of countless glowing swords from above. This deadly barrage comes hurtling down toward Tsukasa with blinding speed, forcing him to parry the relentless assault with his own flaming blade. Arthur warns him to stop holding back or die, unleashing his ultimate skill, Judgment of the Stars. But as the attack manifests, Tsukasa is completely floored. It is the exact same power Rin uses. Tsukasa weaves through the storm of holy swords as Arthur dares him to face the full force of his ultimate magic. This entire barrage converges into a single blinding explosion, and the Lion King just laughs, absolutely sure of his victory. But Tsukasa emerges from the blast, now cloaked in a sinister new aura, glad the warm-up is over. With his eyes glowing, he confirms this is exactly the challenge he was hoping for, and he lunges forward, promising to finally fight for real. Their blades meet again, but this time Tsukasa's power surges, pushing back against the king's holy light. Arthur notes that he can now see right through Tsukasa's movements, so he leaps back to create some distance for his next move. Our boy is genuinely starting to wonder if this guy is just a dungeon boss at all. This Lion King mocks him for freezing up, summoning a new set of ethereal blue blades. Tsukasa effortlessly dodges the incoming assault, thinking the attacks are far too slow. But that is when Arthur gives the command for his blades to shatter, unleashing a massive shockwave of pure destructive energy. He then reveals his trump card, a skill called Star Reading that lets him see the future. Arthur taunts him, saying if he cannot even beat this, his god-slaying dream is a total joke. In response, Tsukasa's dark energy erupts, shattering the king's holy light completely. This Lion King is stunned as his ultimate attack gets completely nullified, and Tsukasa calmly confirms he has figured out the future sight gimmick. Arthur keeps taunting him, asking if the so-called Godslayer will tuck tail and run, or if he has just given up and chosen to die right here and now. But our boy just smirks, confirming that is not even an option. Tsukasa reignites his blade, declaring he has absolutely no intention of dying, not until he has wiped out every single god threatening his world. He tells the king that even with future sight this fight is still happening, and with a surge of power he rockets straight toward his opponent. Arthur seems almost delighted by the head-on charge, ready for the impact. As the two stare each other down, their auras clashing intensely. They leap into the air for what looks like the final decisive strike, and Tsukasa gets sliced across the chest, the future sight seemingly giving Arthur the win. But the king is completely stunned, realizing Tsukasa somehow moved faster than the future he saw. His helmet shatters, revealing that King Arthur is actually a woman, and she is incredibly impressed. Wounded but smiling, she acknowledges his true power as Tsukasa asks if he passed her test. She says he more than met her expectations and officially agrees to join his side. Tsukasa calls her out, asking if this whole elaborate fight was just part of her plan from the start. She just explains she needed to confirm the future she foresaw was the real deal. And with that settled, she holds out her hand, asking for the subordination skill to join him. He shakes on it, calling her a troublesome king as the pact is sealed. In response, a massive web of glowing chains materializes to bind her to his service. Arthur, now bound by the subordination skill, admits this new power does not feel half bad. So Tsukasa starts to call her by her formal title, but she quickly cuts him off, telling him to just use Arthur, since Star Lion King is a bit much for an ally. With a confident smirk, she officially addresses him as her new master. Sometime later, Mayu finds Tsukasa looking completely exhausted on the couch, telling him he is pushing himself way too hard by clearing dungeons every single day. But our boy just insists it is still not enough to defeat the gods he is after. His sister's worry only grows, pointing out that Rin still has not come back either. Tsukasa just pats her head, trying to play it cool by asking if he looks worried, and he promises to protect everyone, telling her not to worry about a thing. She seems to accept it but begs him not to push himself so hard or go anywhere. A promise he readily makes, telling her to just trust him completely. Of course, that is the exact moment his phone rings and he answers with pure annoyance. On the other end, someone is absolutely screaming, demanding to know what he has done now. It is the DMO agent, yelling about another dungeon anomaly and ordering him to HQ immediately. Tsukasa arrives at the meeting, where he is immediately called out for being late. And a staff member is surprised to see him show up completely alone without Rin. He explains they have been moving separately lately, then demands to know what happened. This agent reveals they have detected abnormal magic in multiple dungeons, just like Black Ant Hell. Another official confirms they have found 4 anomalous dungeons and are waiting on a field report. Tsukasa immediately realizes this is not a coincidence. It is a coordinated trap to lure him out. A blonde guild master suggests the 4 of them split up to tackle the dungeons individually. Our boy is a little confused by the urgency, questioning what could possibly be too late, and the agent spells it out for him. They are on the verge of a full-blown dungeon break. This whole room is stunned, realizing monsters could soon be flooding the city streets. This DMO official is in total denial, insisting the odds of this are basically zero. But the blonde hunter points out that impossible has been happening a lot lately. Another guild master with silver hair agrees, telling the director they have to move now. Tsukasa chimes in, backing their plan to confront the dungeons head-on. This director hesitates, knowing that unchecked monsters will lead to massive casualties. With no other options on the table, he finally caves and agrees to the high-risk operation. He officially tasks the three major guilds with clearing the anomalous dungeons immediately. This blonde hunter smirks, glad the director finally saw things his way and prepares to mobilize. Of course, the DMO needs Tsukasa's help too, and he confirms he is all in. This silver-haired woman asks if he is going solo, but he just smiles, saying he has allies. In his mind, he is just hoping Rin gets back from her training soon. Meanwhile, a mysterious woman announces that with Heimdall on the move, their final phase begins, and we cut to Rin, who looks more than ready for whatever comes next. Her new mentor, Loki, lays out the final test, land a single blow with all her power. Rin ignites her holy sword, telling Loki to cut the chatter and just begin. Loki is all smiles, loving Rin's new fighting spirit as she prepares to come at her. She immediately summons a whole barrage of sinister-looking red swords from portals above. And as the deadly rain comes hurtling down, Rin just readies her own holy sword to counter. She unleashes her ultimate skill, Way Anchor, pouring all her power into the blade, and her golden light smashes directly into Loki's storm of blades with incredible force, resulting in a massive explosion that completely engulfs the entire training ground. With a tiny scratch on her cheek, Loki calmly announces that Rin has passed the test. Rin thanks her for the training, but Loki just wants to know if she is heading to Tsukasa's side. With a newfound resolve, Rin confirms she's going to stand by him and watch his back. Before she leaves, though, Loki has one last little favor to ask of her student. Rin is ready to hear it, but her mentor just plays it off like it is no big deal. And just like that, Rin is teleported right to Tsukasa, who is waiting at a dungeon gate. Now back in her school uniform, she coolly apologizes for the delay, looking more confident than ever. Tsukasa just smirks, seeing that her intense training has clearly paid off in a big way. This two stand ready to enter the gate, with Rin vowing to fight alongside him from now on. She gets a little nostalgic, realizing this is the very first dungeon they ever cleared together. But the beginner, Kobold Village, looks anything but normal, and Rin wonders who is responsible. That is when Loki appears in a new childlike form, declaring they will make Heimdall pay. Her eyes glow ominously as she says there is something more important to deal with first, and she suddenly apologizes to a stunned Rin, admitting she has made a terrible mistake. With a snap of her fingers, Loki says she forgot to give Rin a proper combat outfit. And in a flash of light, Rin is suddenly geared up in a brand new set of holy armor. Loki, ever so humble, compliments her own excellent taste as Rin thanks her for the upgrade. She then encourages Rin to go all out and show Tsukasa what her training accomplished. Turns out, Loki's already up to speed on the 4 anomalous dungeons popping up. Tsukasa confirms the plan is to split up, holding a small communication device from the DMO. It is a new model that lets them talk across dimensions, with a planned check-in at the boss rooms. Rin immediately questions the strategy, pointing out how insanely risky a 4-way split is. Then it clicks they are hunting a god, and this whole operation is just bait. Tsukasa admits he is hoping to hit the jackpot and find Heimdall himself, but first, they have got a welcoming committee of some seriously nasty-looking werewolf monsters. He is ready to dive in, but it seems someone else has other plans. Rin steps forward, telling Tsukasa to save his strength and let her handle the warm-up. Our boy just smirks, happy to let her take the lead for a change. She does not waste a second, rocketing toward the pack with blinding speed, and effortlessly parries a claw swipe from the biggest beast in the bunch. Using its own arm as a ramp, she slides right up its body, closing the distance instantly. She winds up for a devastating counterattack, moving far too fast for it to react, and her holy sword slices clean through the monster's neck in a single, perfect arc. She lands gracefully, ready for the next one before the first has even hit the ground. She carves through another werewolf with a massive fluid swing of her holy sword, and as the next beast lunges at her from behind, fangs bared, she is already spinning into a counter, wiping it out just as fast. Tsukasa is completely floored, asking Loki what kind of training turned Rin into a killing machine. Loki just smirks, casually mentioning they had a little death match, which sounds less than ideal. She reminds him that extreme growth requires extreme measures, something he knows all too well. Turns out Rin always had this potential, Loki just gave her the push she needed to unlock it. After the fight, Rin picks up a high-purity magic stone, wondering if this is Heimdall's doing. Loki confirms the monsters were supercharged by a god's aura, warning them to stay on their toes. Her expression darkens as she reveals Heimdall is dead set on killing them and the other guild masters. Tsukasa has faith the other hunters can handle themselves, but agrees they cannot afford any mistakes. At that moment, the DMO agent screams through his earpiece, demanding to know why he is not at the boss room. He asks for a status update, and the agent's response is simple. The situation is an absolute disaster. Elsewhere, the blonde guild master admits he has never seen a dungeon this out of control before. He is standing before the boss door of Devil's Mansion, sensing an unprecedented level of power inside. In another dungeon, the silver-haired woman is just glad they managed to seal the gates in time. This third guild master agrees, realizing the city would have been overrun if they had not acted so fast. With the agent still yelling in his ear, Tsukasa promises to be at his boss room in 3 minutes flat. He tells the team on the other end that he is on his way, getting an all right in response. That is when Rin puts it all together. Every single anomalous dungeon is one Tsukasa has cleared before. Tsukasa tells Rin they are ditching caution and going all out from the very start. And she is immediately on board, the two of them blasting off toward the boss room. They arrive in what feels like seconds, leaving the DMO agent completely stunned on the comms. He gives the order for all 4 teams to enter their respective boss rooms simultaneously. This blonde guild master scoffs at the idea of needing backup, promising to end his fight quickly. Meanwhile, the silver-haired woman warns Tsukasa to call for help, since his dungeon is the most dangerous. This agent chimes in, begging our boy not to overdo it in a high-level anomaly. But the blonde hunter just smirks, saying he might even have time to come save asterisk them, capping it off with a charming "so do not die," which is just peak team spirit. Rin quietly observes Tsukasa, realizing he is already prepared for the worst-case scenario. He knows he is the real target and is ready to use a last resort to protect everyone else. With the pre-battle chatter over, the blonde hunter finally tells everyone it is time to go. On cue, all 4 massive boss doors begin to swing open at the exact same moment, and Tsukasa and Rin step through into a blinding flash of light. On the other side, they are greeted by a hulking demonic warrior ready for a fight, while the silver-haired master faces a massive, fire-breathing lizard beast. This third guild master finds himself staring down a classic, superpowered Lich King. And the ever-confident blonde hunter gets to fight a giant armored demon all by himself. Elsewhere, a mysterious figure watches all 4 battles unfold through magical portals, and this purple-haired villain declares the hunt has begun, already predicting who will die first. This boss waiting for them is a massively powered-up version of the Kobold King, and while Rin points out the obvious, Tsukasa just jokes about its new workout plan. Wasting no time, the monster raises its giant blade to bring it crashing down on them. But Tsukasa realizes Heimdall is not here, meaning another guild master is the real target. This beast lunges forward with a furious roar, ready to flatten them both. So Tsukasa tells Rin they are ending this now, preparing a spell of his own. She yells back that she will handle support, already moving into position. And by support, she apparently means charging headfirst at the giant monster alone. Her holy sword meets its massive blade in a brilliant flash of golden light, and she holds her ground with a look of pure, unshakable focus. Despite the size difference, she is actually managing to push the Kobold King back, their clash sending a massive shockwave of energy through the boss room. She expertly dodges its follow-up swing, using the momentum to reposition herself. This boss's blade glows with a sinister aura as it prepares another devastating attack. But Rin is already back on the offensive, closing the distance in an instant. Their weapons collide again, lighting up the entire chamber with raw power. For the first time, the monster actually looks surprised by her incredible strength. She unleashes another massive swing, pouring holy energy into her attack, which slams into the ground and erupts in a pillar of blinding light. Now she just stands there, unflinching, as the enraged boss prepares to charge again. Rin launches herself like a golden comet, aiming her holy sword straight for the boss's head, and she is wearing a grin that is 1 part confidence and 2 parts pure battlelust. This Kobold King brings its massive, corrupted blade down to intercept her attack, which is the exact opening Tsukasa was waiting for, his fire magic already primed. A whole barrage of fireballs suddenly appears right in the monster's face, stunning it, and with one simple command, our boy decides to wrap this up. This resulting explosion completely obliterates the boss in a glorious display of teamwork. Rin cheekily asks if he went a little overboard, but Tsukasa was not about to risk it. They stand over the smoldering crater, their part of the mission officially complete. He immediately gets on the comms, reporting their success and asking for a status update. This silver-haired master chimes in, confirming she is also finished with her target. In another dungeon, the red-haired master agrees, then asks about the blonde hunter Utori. Tsukasa's expression darkens as he calls out for him, getting only dead air in response. Turns out Utori found the real prize, the purple-haired villain who started this whole mess. This blonde guild master wastes no time demanding to know who he is and what his goal is. This villain just calls him the strongest human, whose death will make everyone else easy to kill. Utori scoffs, telling him that is not arrogance talking, it is just plain confidence in humanity. He cracks his neck, clearly done with the villain monologue and ready for the main event. Golden lightning crackles around him as he unleashes his full power against the enemy, and as their auras clash, Tsukasa feels the terrifying surge of energy from miles away. Tsukasa realizes Utori is in deep trouble, yelling that they have to go save him now. But the silver-haired master cuts in, asking if he even knows who Utori is fighting. This red-haired master agrees, shouting that there is absolutely no time to waste. Suddenly, a new voice cuts them all off, asking if they really think he will let them go. And a ball of sinister energy materializes as the villain announces a change of plans. He has decided it is more fun to kill them one by one and slowly crush their will to resist. Rin just scoffs at the textbook god-tier arrogance, comparing him to another enemy. Flaring with his own power, Tsukasa warns the villain not to underestimate humans. Rin immediately steps forward, telling Tsukasa to go help Utori while she handles this guy. Loki's voice pops in, confirming that Rin's plan is the correct one. She reveals this enemy is just an avatar. The real goal is taking down Heimdall's main body. This avatar smirks, admitting it is true but claiming he is still more than a match for her. His monologue is cut short by a massive golden slash of holy energy flying his way, and he barely manages to block the attack, which explodes on impact with blinding force. Rin stands her ground, telling Tsukasa to go and insisting she will be perfectly fine. After a tense moment, our boy closes his eyes and puts his complete faith in her. He powers up his own aura, telling both Rin and Loki that he is counting on them. With the plan set, the battlefield is split, Rin versus the Avatar with Loki watching. Heimdall's Avatar just looks annoyed, promising to make her pay for the disrespect. She responds by unleashing an even bigger holy attack, ready to shut him up for good. This Avatar smirks, recognizing she has finally unleashed the full power of her holy sword. And she fires a massive golden beam right back, vowing that she will not be going down easily. Meanwhile, in the dwelling of the undead, the red-haired master is on his knees, totally defeated. His opponent, a smug-looking demon, just calls him pathetic for even trying to fight. Just as the demon moves in for the kill, a massive explosion interrupts the execution, and Tsukasa appears in a flash of red energy, much to the other master's complete shock. This demon recognizes him as the god killer, but Tsukasa clarifies he will not be the opponent. Instead, he summons a team of shadowy underlings who are more than happy to take his place. That smug look on the demon's face vanishes as he realizes who Tsukasa really is. Our boy just returns the stare with a cold look that promises a world of hurt. In yet another dungeon, the silver-haired master has her own avatar on the ropes. And he calls her an ice queen, a compliment she sarcastically accepts as an honor. Their banter is cut short when a blast of fire shatters her ice field from behind. Of course, Tsukasa is there too, confirming this dungeon was another one of the targets. This time, he summons a powerful-looking blonde warrior to take on the avatar for him, who seems absolutely thrilled, calling a god a suitable opponent for her very first battle. Heimdall's avatar is floored, finally understanding that Tsukasa anticipated this entire plan. Tsukasa just smirks back, asking if he really expected anything less from a guy a god declared war on.